This long-haired student, even with a young girl by his side, has a certain type of fetish, and it is for 40-year-old teachers. Honestly, you and I would do the same with a teacher like that. His duel is about to start, but he completely ignores his opponent. Stick with me here because I am dropping a major spoiler. He actually gets that dinner date with the teacher. But there is one hilarious catch. He has to completely win this crazy duel first. Let's dive in. He doesn't just beat this guy, he shatters multiple bones and slices his vocal cords. Stick with me, let's uncover why this ruthless kid loves older women. At first, he was absolute trash, humiliated by his classmates constantly. Even Frey Blake's own father called him a pathetic weakling, literally telling his son to drop dead and disappear forever. Breaking under the pressure, he basically went back to the lobby. Now watch closely, this is the moment legendary Archmage Lucas Trauman hijacks his body. Lucas was his era's ultimate beast, a 9th circle Archmage who could wipe out an entire army with just one single spell. Let that sink in for a second. Only 10 mages in history ever reached the 8th circle. Absolutely insane, right? A 9th circle master completely wrecked. Now watch closely. A demigod drops in, calling him arrogant. You and I are about to watch pure madness. He reached the peak of humanity, challenged the gods, and got sealed by a massive spell. Trapped in that awful void for 4,000 long years, the guy was completely losing his mind. Then, a weak boy named Frey Blake appeared in his mind, desperate for power. Right then, our legend Lucas fully took over his body. He promised to grant Frey's dying wishes and swore total revenge on those arrogant demigods. Then he spent all night grinding his magic. Day 1 of training, and he already hits the 5th rank, though naturally he had to sweat out a massive amount of gross impurities. Now pay attention here. The principal is only 6th circle. Meanwhile, out in the courtyard, Frey's pathetic bullies are busy hanging out. Their smug leader is actually excited to beat Frey up again. They're literally laughing about destroying him last time. Then the big guy mentions seeing Frey sneaking out of the clinic with a bunch of sleeping pills. These jerks actually start betting on whether Frey finally ended it all. The leader completely doubts it, saying he's way too much of a coward. Back inside, Lucas finished purging all that dark, toxic sludge. This kid suffered heavily, but compared to 4,000 years, not quite. So what do you and I think? Does he need a blood transfusion? Alright, stick with me here. Everyone at the West Road Academy cafeteria is absolutely stunned. Frey is destroying a mountain of food. They think this guy starved for a whole week. But the actual truth, he hasn't felt a warm, cooked meal in his stomach for 4 entire millennia. Pure heaven. So yeah, the legendary Lucas is stuck attending a magic school surrounded by annoying little kids despite being 4,000 years old. He has to learn exactly how this new era works. Only then can he finally unleash hell on the demigod. Anyway, time for class. The classroom bullies are waiting. Everyone stares. The boss smirked loud and proud, claiming he won the bet just because Frey walked in alive. Out of nowhere, the head bully sticks a foot directly in Frey's path, welcoming his so-called classmate back to reality. Now watch closely. They are definitely not friends, and the ultimate humiliation is starting. This massive guy suddenly grabs Frey by the collar, demanding the 10 meal tickets he supposedly lost in their bet. Frey is just staring, wondering who this massive idiot smacking his head even is. Clearly not a buddy of the original body's owner. But then his physical body starts shaking violently. Why the sudden panic attack? Right before the giant fist connects, Frey literally vanishes, reappearing behind the bully like instant transmission. The whole class gasps at the insane speed. You saw that too, right? Even the Academy beauty is utterly confused. Lucas figures it out. The trembling, it's pure trauma. These scumbags push the original Frey to end it all. Absolute fury takes over. The bully recovers, throwing a massive swing at Frey's face. Big mistake. Frey unleashes a raw energy blast, sending him rocketing backward, hands still stuffed in his pockets. He shatters right through several wooden chairs. The tough guy is now bruised, completely exhausted and utterly humiliated. Defeated without a single spoken spell chant. Shocked, whispers explode across the room. The students realize this is a totally different person. Honestly, making such a dramatic scene in front of teenagers actually left Frey feeling slightly embarrassed. Everyone is frozen stiff. He tries quietly, slipping away from the spotlight. David is literally too terrified to talk. He just watched. Nobody believed weak little Frey pulled this off. The red-haired girl stared at him closely. Suddenly, a voice demands answers. Professor Dio just walked in. The big bully is out cold on the floor. Dio steps up to check the damage and finds crazy traces of lingering mana. That raw power totally shocks the professor. He cannot fathom a genius hiding in here. So what do you and I take from this? The real show is just starting. With Dio hauling Jack away, confirming he was only knocked out, Professor Kevin stepped up to take over the lesson. Alright, stick with me here. Class is starting. Students look super uneasy, and Professor Kevin immediately zeroes in on all the girls. Seeing so many female students, this creepy guy instantly decides it's his favorite class. Then his gaze lands on Isabel, quietly reading. A split second later, he spots someone else. Our boy Frey is actually here just reading a book. One girl whispers how much she hates this professor. Why? Because he turns into a total creep around women. He marches right up to Frey, who stares back. Honestly, it's pretty weird seeing Frey here since he basically skips every single class. Frey hesitates. Kevin initially assumes he's a hardcore nerd until he suddenly remembers the kid is literally always absent. Smiling naturally, Frey apologizes and claims he's been super busy. The girls whisper that he's pathetic, especially since he usually just gets bullied anyway. Annoyed but curious, the professor asks what could possibly trump his amazing class. Dodging the question entirely, Frey calmly says he is simply enjoying the absolute peak of his youth. The girls hold back laughs. Kevin thinks that's total garbage. Still, he isn't the type to force his subject. Instead, he challenges Frey, asking if he has been studying properly lately. Time for a pop quiz. If Frey fails, he'll seriously pay for acting so bold in front of everyone. Game on. Watch closely here. First question, name 3 items used by magic warrior King Cassidon. Frey narrows his eyes. Instead of answering, he asks the professor to repeat that. He didn't hear the name right, but it sounds incredibly familiar. Flashback. 4,000 years ago, a fearless hero existed. His absolutely insane mysterious powers literally shocked the entire world. He trained in martial arts with absolute obsession. His raw energy crushed entire forests, causing massive earthquakes and pure destruction everywhere. He could literally reshape geography without breaking a sweat. One day his friend joked that if he kept going, every single mountain would be wiped out. That specific friend carrying a heavy bag over his shoulder, Lucas Trauman. It had been a while since he last checked on Cassidon. It was a perfectly calm day and Lucas watched his buddy intensely training. Cassidon didn't even pause for his guest. He simply mentioned he brewed some tea, telling Lucas to go pour a cup himself. While drinking tea, Lucas casually asks if he ever thought about settling down and marrying. Cassidon actually freezes. Then he totally roasts Lucas, claiming he will never understand women. Loving a woman, he argues, will literally shake a warrior to his core. Weak minds always fall to temptation. Cassidon strongly believed a true warrior must stay as solid as stone whenever women are around. Mages definitely didn't see things that way. Lucas silently studies his old friend while Cassidon just stares right back. Eventually, Lucas jokes that he would date a rock if it looked pretty enough. This exact memory hits Frey so hard he bursts into tears. I know what you're thinking, wild plot twist. Frey realizes his old buddy Cassidon became a famous legend. Meanwhile, Kevin is completely confused by the crying. The rest of the classroom just argues about whether the professor's question is way too difficult. Isabel knows the professor just wants to flex and humiliate Frey. Suddenly, a very polite voice cuts in and asks to interrupt. It's Isabel. She declares this question has absolutely nothing to do with magical history. The entire class is stunned by her sheer boldness. Even Frey notices she speaks exactly like a hardcore soldier, despite her delicate vibe. Kevin instantly glares at her, his expression turning super ugly. She argues that Cassidon was a pure warrior who only used mana for basic training, meaning he definitely shouldn't be classified as a mage. She waits nervously. Kevin silently marches right up the stairs and comes to a dead stop right beside her desk. He harshly asks if she is insulting every single person walking the magic warrior path. Completely shaken, she stammers that wasn't her intention. The classroom is dead silent. Frey actually feels insulted too, clearly remembering how much Cassidon absolutely hated being called a mage. Letting out a super strained laugh, the professor mutters that this might actually become an interesting little discussion. He places a creepy hand on her shoulder, ordering both students to follow him straight to his office. But Isabel immediately slaps his hand away. Kevin is absolutely shocked. He never expected a random student to actively defy him in public. Isabel is totally trapped. As Kevin demands she answer the quiz instead of Frey, someone else suddenly speaks up. Hearing the words Tiger King's glove and Giant's belt makes the professor freeze. He slowly, carefully turns around. It is Frey. He calmly states Cassidon only ever used those exact items. Frey almost starts blabbing about his old friendship with Cassidon but stops and just asks if he said something weird. Gritting his teeth, the professor angrily admits the answer is correct. Smirking proudly, Frey declares there is zero chance he would ever miss a question like that. You and I can tell Frey is acting totally different today. Meanwhile, Kevin glares at Isabel, calling her behavior completely disrespectful. He suddenly grabs her wrist, aggressively demanding she come to his office. She freezes up, completely paralyzed by fear. Frey watches the whole mess unfold, then steps right in, dropping a classic Cassidon quote. He loudly repeats that loving a woman shakes a man to his core. Cassidon also said a warrior must always stay as firm as stone before women. Stick with me here because a weak-minded guy would just give in to temptation and become an absolute animal. Professor Kevin absolutely hated being interrupted. Missing the point completely, he snapped that maybe Cassidon was wrong. Frey just glanced down, noticing the teacher was still standing perfectly still. Suddenly, the insult clicked. Pure rage flooded Kevin's face as he screamed Frey's name, absolutely fuming at the sheer disrespect. Right then, Isabel realized Frey had actually defended her. Now Kevin locked onto the student, getting overly confident after one lucky answer. He growled, a warning Frey would severely regret failing the rest of this quiz. Frey calmly waited for the next question. Meanwhile, the professor was sweating heavy buckets, leaving the other students staring in total shock. Frey casually nailed every single question. His knowledge about the Age of Light was honestly unbelievable. As the bell finally rang, Frey was just thrilled that lunch had arrived. He called out to Kevin, claiming he had fun, then asked if there were any more questions because he was completely starving. Kevin was baffled. How did this absolute brat know so much about a 4,000-year-old era? Frey's blank expression gave zero clues, making the sweating professor even more incredibly frustrated. Ultimately, he just dismissed the class, unable to stop overthinking what just happened. Isabel was totally stunned, too. Outside the academy, Frey happily strolled along, actually humming a catchy tune. Sneaking up from behind, Isabel asked about lunch. He completely ignored her, but she just kept looking at him with absolute pity. Frey turned and completely ignored her, but she stubbornly kept following, leaving them walking awkwardly in a single-file line. Frey finally noticed, spinning around to ask why she was trailing him. Her super formal, noble family way of speaking was honestly getting on his nerves. Pretty soon, the students piled into the cafeteria as lunch was finally served. Isabel was completely blown away by Frey's massive appetite. He casually claimed he hadn't eaten in 4,000 years without offering any further explanation. Isabel quickly apologized for following him around, admitting there was just nowhere else she wanted to sit. Then she asked how he knew so much about the Age of Light, an era famously named after the dazzling legendary powers of the four great masters. Chewing his food, Frey's interest piqued. He suddenly realized that over 4 millennia, magic hadn't advanced a single bit. It got worse. Now pay attention, he immediately suspected the demigod was completely behind this. Across the table, the girl quietly ate while he casually listed the masters, Kassadin, the magic warrior, and Schweizer Wilsman, the great sage. Then came Iris Peacefounder, the dark witch, and Lucas Trauman. Her face completely lit up at Lucas's name, calling him an absolutely amazing man. She literally joked that if he were alive, she'd beg her mom to marry him. Frey nearly choked, bursting into loud laughter at that. He couldn't believe a kid this young was discussing marriage. Amused and slightly flattered, he politely shut the entire idea down. Meanwhile, the other students were totally staring. Rumors had already blown up about Isabel following him around earlier. She was the academy's second-best student, and even that crazy guy David had a massive crush on her. Right on cue, David marched over after hearing his name. Everyone else immediately backed away, but Frey and Isabel just kept right on chatting. David couldn't believe his own eyes. Cutting her sausage, Isabel just casually asked about Professor Kevin's last history question. Frey kept stuffing his face, explaining that Schweizer's training methods broke down into assimilation, development, and conflict. She admitted she only knew the first two. Slamming a hand on the table, she eagerly begged him to teach her all about conflict. Taking another big bite of bread, Frey asked her level. Isabel proudly revealed she had already reached the 3rd degree of magic. He was genuinely impressed someone her age got that far. She quickly pointed out that he sounded exactly like an old grandpa. Licking his plate clean, he claimed he'd lived a long time. You and I both felt that irony, right? Because technically she's both completely right and dead wrong. Demolishing that entire mountain of food, Frey happily declared he was finally full. Grabbing his empty dishes, he completely dodged her request about teaching conflict. He claimed he only knew it through raw experience, not formal theory, so she was better off just reading books. Basically, he couldn't properly teach it. Hearing he had real combat experience left her even more completely stunned. She just couldn't comprehend how a boy his exact age knew so much about deep magic. Watching him walk off, she seriously wondered who he actually was. Sometime later, the students all gathered for their magic duel class. To keep the fights fair, everyone was strictly limited to 1st-degree spells. David was hyped, but getting seriously furious seeing Frey hanging around Isabel. He couldn't fathom her obsession with Frey. Up front, the teacher warned everyone to treat this like an actual fight and take it incredibly seriously. Frey was paying very close attention to the teacher, Teacher Jane. Honestly, he was completely captivated by her beauty. Isabel awkwardly protested, saying it was totally weird to simp over a 40-year-old teacher, but Frey just kept praising her beauty openly, calling her the absolute perfect, ideal woman. Isabel was totally mind-blown by his old-fashioned taste. But now it's David versus Frey. And that's where we leave it. Trust me, you're going to want to see this fight. Stick with me here. Frey stepped up grinning while David held his hand out, eager for violence. Frey totally ignored him, but something was off. This definitely wasn't the same weak kid David used to bully. The whole class gasped. Frey just casually grabbed Professor Jane's waist, complimenting her beauty. She completely froze up, but he just told her to relax. He smirked, saying he was actually way older on the inside. Then he straight up asked her out to dinner. Flustered Jane pushed him away, ordering him back. But Frey doubled down with a bet if he wins, they get dinner. Everyone thought he was crazy. A first-degree mage beating a third-degree powerhouse like David, absolute joke. Certain he'd get crushed, Jane agreed. The deal was set, but his bold move left her completely rattled. Blushing hard, she tried to cool off. A student shouldn't make her heart race like this. Meanwhile, David got in Frey's face, asking if he'd lost his mind. David kept pushing his buttons, assuming Frey was just stalling to make the professor cancel their match entirely. Pure hatred burned in David's eyes as he mocked him. Frey didn't even blink. David promised to rip out his vocal cords and shatter his bones, swearing he'd never walk again. But Frey just stood there completely bored. Last time he checked, a basic first-degree spell couldn't do anything close to that. Watch closely now. Jane gave the signal and the showdown began. Both fighters held their ground perfectly. David launched Stone Fury immediately. Massive rocks ripped through the ground, forming a gigantic stone arrow mid-air. The crowd went nuts. Stone Fury, even Isabel was stunned. Jane had banned high-level magic, yet technically David hadn't broken a single rule. The red-haired girl demanded to know how a spell that huge was even legal. David bragged it was an exclusive family air skill, then sparked his vision magic. Insanely powerful, yes, but still technically castable by a first-degree mage. His noble family treated vision magic as a sacred power symbol. David just used it to bully weak kids. Aiming the massive arrows, David smirked, thinking Frey was terrified. But Frey just scoffed. That weak magic meant absolutely nothing. Raising one hand, Frey cast a basic magic missile. The entire crowd, including Isabel, went completely dead silent. The spell glowed brilliantly. David just laughed. A basic missile couldn't possibly beat his Stone Fury. He launched the arrow, but in one booming clash, Frey shattered every single rock, blasting David backward at terrifying speed. The sheer impact sent him flying. Crashing into the dirt, heavily injured David literally started foaming at the mouth. Every student was utterly speechless. Even Professor Jane was mesmerized by Frey's raw power. His growth was absolutely off the charts. Meanwhile, David shrieked in agony, unable to speak through his wrecked throat. A truly brutal scene. A stunned student nearby dropped his practice stone. They only came here expecting a boring class sparring match. Frey mocked him, saying using vision magic in a basic duel brought total shame to his family. David tried arguing back, but only drooled pathetically. Remembering that arrogant threat about ripping out his vocal cords, a cold, faint smile crept across Frey's face. You saw this coming, right? Payback time. David promised to crush his bones, and Frey was more than happy to return the favor. Defeated David desperately tried to beg for mercy, but zero sound came out. With a casual flick, Frey fired another glowing sphere. Boom! It smashed into David's leg. He screamed in pure agony, finally realizing he was completely doomed. Every bone in his right leg, completely shattered. Frey just kept walking closer, reminding David this was his own grand plan. Isabel gasped. Seeing the brutal overkill, Jane ordered the match stopped, instantly declaring Frey the winner. But technically, David hadn't surrendered yet. Frey shot back, reminding her of her own rule. Treat this like a real war. And real battlefields do not have timeouts. Isabel was totally lost on the professor's logic here. Powerless Jane backed down. Frey's eyes glowed with pure rage. David loved inflicting pain on the weak, but now, he was the victim. Frey looked down, declaring that garbage mages like David were ruining this entire world. For society's sake, he needed to lose his magic forever. Stepping closer, Frey suddenly smiled. Just kidding, he wouldn't break every single bone. Out of pity, he'd stop now. Sobbing, David felt a rush of relief until Frey looked back. Yeah, it still wasn't over. David still had one perfectly good leg left, meaning it needed a magic missile too. Seeing the energy sphere ignite again, absolute despair flooded David's eyes. The magic just kept expanding. He tried screaming, but only silence remained. From afar, spectators quietly witnessed Frey's monstrous power. One blonde student watched closely before turning and walking away. Elsewhere, 2 more people studied the arena. The crazy story spread through the academy lightning fast. Rumors said Frey utterly crushed David, destroying his voice and legs. Honestly, most students secretly agreed David was an idiot who deserved it. Wild right, they still couldn't believe the Blake family's trash actually won. Alright, let's jump right in. Some thought Frey made a devilish deal. Walking the halls, a strange man suddenly blocked him. Frey had zero clue who this was. The guy proudly called himself Duman Milost, a 4th-year senior. Realizing he was talking to an upperclassman, Frey casually dropped his own name in return. They locked eyes, sizing each other up. Then Duman got straight to the point, joined the Trauman rings. That name definitely sparked a reaction. Frey already knew what this elite squad was all about. They were basically the poster children for Westroad Academy. Super exclusive, and they definitely didn't just accept anybody. The glowing rune ring on Duman's hand proved his status. Meanwhile, Frey was just annoyed, wondering if stealing his name counted as an invasion of privacy. He just stood there, letting the senior ramble on. Before Duman could even brag about being the leader, Frey completely turned his back, zero interest in joining their little club. Suddenly a voice echoed saying that guy won't be easily convinced. It was Paranjun chilling in the hallway as Duman quickly greeted his imposing friend. That name caught Frey's attention. The newcomer stepped right up, formally introducing himself as the real group leader. He instantly apologized for Duman acting tough, but added that his friend wasn't lying about the Trauman ring's prestige. Watch closely here. Frey just stared at him in pure silence, finally paying real attention. For a kid that young, he actually gave off massive boss energy. Still, Frey wasn't sold. He walked away joking that he'd let the copyright strike on his name slide. Duman was furious at the absolute disrespect, but Paran calmly told him to drop it. Scratching his head, Duman apologized for snapping. Meanwhile, the blue-eyed leader silently watched Frey leave. Later that night, dinner guests began showing up. A massive feast was ready. The professor promised to dine with Frey, but Isabel crashing the party felt super awkward. Mid-bite, Isabel casually told them to pretend she was invisible. Completely annoyed, Frey literally just told her to get out. She just shrugged it off and casually mentioned the combat method, instantly hooking the professor's full attention. Since Frey was keeping secrets, Isabel's genius plan was to stick to him like glue. Hooked Professor Jane asked if she meant Schweizer's legendary training. Isabel blinked, totally shocked that the professor actually knew about it. Jane sipped her drink, admitting she'd only caught whispers from veteran warriors. She had dug through endless academy records and found absolutely nothing. Realizing Frey held the real answers, she was desperate for details. Frey just quietly sipped his drink. Out of nowhere, a sudden touch completely startled the professor. Frey stood right behind her, wrapping his arms around her, whispering he could teach something way more exciting. He wanted to take this private chat back to his room. The professor felt insanely tempted, hesitating only because he was basically a kid. Her brain said no, but her body was totally frozen. Inches away from a kiss, Isabel violently slammed the table, screaming at Frey to stop acting so shameless. Outside, the moon hung high. You saw that too, right? Out by the balcony, Frey analyzed his new life. If the demigod really ruled everything, he was a massive target. Crazy enough, even after 4 millennia, the world still remembered Cassidon, Schweizer, Iris, and himself. His epic legacy was still breathing. People were still fighting. Isabel sneaked up quietly, while he was totally zoned out. She just stared with massive, curious eyes. Finally, Frey met her gaze and asked a direct question. He needed to know who really ran this academy. Basically, who was the absolute top dog among all the students, staff, and professors. Pouting, she complained that he literally never answered her questions. Frey smoothly promised a trade information for the name of the big boss. Instantly hyped, she did a super cute little celebration dance. The strongest student, Paranjun, the top professors, Dio Pulsman and Adelia, but the absolute final boss of the whole academy was actually her own aunt. Her aunt was Madame Cirrus Trisnine, the headmistress of West Road Academy. Right then, Professor Jane casually walked up. Jane explained Cirrus was an ice-cold 6th-degree mage. Just hearing that rank, Frey felt the insane, overwhelming pressure of her power. On paper, reaching the 9th degree was possible, but absolutely nobody had achieved that god-tier level in over 3 millennia. Most people honestly thought it was a myth, claiming the true human limit was just 8th degree. Less than 10 mages had even hit that cap. Frey looked around, wondering out loud if the headmistress created the academy's massive defensive shield. Jane wasn't entirely certain, but admitted it was highly likely. Frey knew a 6th-degree mage was way out of his league right now. Then he suddenly remembered the Trauman rings. Sensing something felt totally off, he realized he had to meet Cirrus Trisnine. Turning around, he called his new friend over. His cold face actually softened. Asking this huge favor felt a bit messed up since dragging a completely innocent kid into his mess was risky. His crazy new goal, reaching the 7th degree. The professor bluntly warned him that would take at least 10 years of grinding. So, what do we take from this? Frey boldly claimed he'd do it before vacation ended. Jane just laughed, but he meant every single word. Let's dive into this academy mess. Seeing the professor alone, he immediately tried flirting again. Isabel, completely annoyed, reminded him she was standing right there. She warned that if a student got caught with a teacher, her aunt would destroy them. That instantly ruined his entire plan. This right here is why he absolutely hated kids. Professor Jane quickly agreed and left, which just made Isabel even madder. Under the night lamps, Frey realized there was zero need to rush. He just needed to avoid screwing up. Glancing at the moon, he picked the fastest route. 2 weeks later, someone walked in totally limping. David was back on campus hunting for Frey. Refusing to accept his embarrassing loss, he kept shouting that trash like Frey could never beat him. Everyone in the hallway heard his annoying screaming. Meanwhile, Frey casually read a book, his face completely red with anger. David promised to make Frey seriously regret being born, threatening pure hell. But before he could even finish, Frey blasted a magic missile and knocked him flat. Crutches went flying everywhere while the other students just watched in absolute terror. And now his nose was totally busted. Later in class, Professor Kevin casually mentioned David went home to fix it. Bored out of his mind, Frey walked the halls. He figured students at the elite Westroad Academy would have some actual class. To learn how to control mana properly, he seriously needed real combat experience. Then someone suddenly yelled out, "Hey gray-haired guy." A random kid behind him said they heard Frey was actually decent. Now, watch closely here. Inside, a wrecked room, upperclassman Alex Dreamid introduced himself, completely expecting Frey to be impressed. Acting completely fearless, he proudly bragged that crushing this skinny freshman would take zero effort on his part. Furious, he demanded to know what happened to David, calling him his little bro. Frey barely even reacted. Honestly, he was just wondering if these idiots were annoying him on purpose. Demanding some respect, the senior raised his hand. But to Frey, they were just brats. Dream kept pushing about the fight. He bragged about getting 17th place in the Glade Heed Magic Tournament, but Frey just let out a yawn. Finally, the senior tried to sound terrifying, declaring that today would literally be Frey's funeral. To Frey, this was just a loudmouth trying to look cool, threatening a freshman. His little squad was basically just there for the show. Ganging up on someone they thought was weak was pathetic, especially since Frey was already charging up a massive magic missile. Boom, it hit 3 guys, instantly blasting Alex all the way back. Frey's insane power dropped multiple guys in a single shot. That just pissed them off more while Alex laid completely unconscious. You and I know villains hate being interrupted, right? Well, Frey found shutting these arrogant brats up mid-sentence absolutely hilarious. His cocky attitude made their attacks even crazier. Golbor, the first son of the Gillard family, stepped up to crush him. Pry, the second son of the Pinalark family, jumped in too. But Frey didn't even flinch. He just raised his hands and fired another magic missile. As the angry students rushed him, he charged up more energy, dropping them one by one. Even the simplest hand motion launched an overpowered missile. Eventually, he sat on a literal pile of beaten bodies, thinking this whole mess was a huge waste of time. Scoffing out loud, he realized none of these clowns were worth the effort. Dark clouds rolled over the academy. Frey had been pushing his training so hard that he basically passed out from pure exhaustion. Suddenly, a voice asked what he had been up to. He turned and spotted Isabel. People were actually calling him the Deadly Missile because he kept one-shotting everyone with basic spells. The cringe nickname embarrassed him, but he hadn't used his stronger magic yet. Isabel was genuinely shocked by the weird feelings she had for him. Watching him sleep on the desk, she literally couldn't look away. Without even lifting his head, he flat-out asked what she wanted. She nervously admitted she followed his advice. She knew true blood-boosted magic circles, but mixing it with magical essence in a 7-to-3 ratio was mind-blowing. Throwing troll blood in, that made it even crazier. Still, she thanked him for the massive breakthrough. After an awkward pause, she wondered out loud what he would teach her next. Frey looked so incredibly exhausted and bored that he just stared right back. She held eye contact, desperate to see what else he could do. He hadn't even realized he basically became Isabel's personal tutor. Since she was a genius, proper training could easily push her to the 7th degree. He thought about it for a quick second. Then he looked at her and promised to teach her real combat next. Her face completely lit up, totally amazed it was actually happening. He told her he was leaving campus during break for hardcore training, and she could tag along to watch. He gave a warning that the trip could get deadly, but she instantly agreed before he finished. She was absolutely desperate to learn combat. No matter what, she was joining his training journey. But when departure day arrived, she showed up carrying a gigantic backpack. Frey stared shocked by how much random junk she actually packed. He just figured girls packed heavy. She nervously asked where they were heading. And trust me, you're going to laugh, even Frey has absolutely no clue yet. Now stick with me here. Frey's next target was the Espania Mountains, a literal monster paradise and beyond deadly. Map in hand, they hunted down the quickest possible route and calculated their exact travel time. A ship ride would take around 12 hours. But getting from the port to those mountains, a tricky path crawling with vicious monsters. Even so, Isabel geared up without sweating it at all. She never expected an easy trip, but Frey just frowned at her total confidence. Walking along, they brought up teleportation stones for crossing massive distances. Crazy fact, those bad boys didn't even exist 4,000 years ago. Magic had completely stalled, but tech was booming. Still zipping across continents with just a magic rock sounded absolutely insane. Only one massive problem, the cost. Warping all the way from Cow Symphony to Hispaniola was so far it would burn through 10 whole gold. Frey searched his bag for cash, only finding a single gold coin. Thankfully, he had a solid backup plan. Since Isabel was a fellow noble like Frey Blake, he politely asked how much cash she brought. Her answer, 0. According to her weird logic, having cash makes you lazy, so she left her wallet at home. Earning travel money was supposedly part of their training. Frey was completely speechless. How could she sound so shameless while lugging around that massive backpack? Isabel immediately snapped back that those two things were completely unrelated. Hey girls, just need to pack a lot of stuff. They pushed on, hoping for a miracle at the port, since neither had ever worked a real job. Down near the bustling docks, the place was totally packed with rugged sailors and port workers. They stared up in pure, absolute shock at the massive wooden ship. Boarding was totally free for academy students, explaining the massive crowd of kids hanging around. Plus, the food on board was supposedly top tier. Frey was practically drooling thinking about that buffet, but reality hit hard. The ship was totally booked, and the next ride wouldn't leave for 4 agonizing days. He collapsed onto the dirt, completely giving up on their schedule. Now their only option left was the Cortez, an old beat-up passenger ship. Still, they really could not complain. That was just how life worked sometimes. Even with a pit stop at Jutenbull, they would hit Cow Symphony in under 5 days, and students still boarded free. Inside the cabin, the shady crew whispered. A guy with a nasty scar announced they were good to go. Their captain ordered a night departure for the ultimate flawless raid. Another guy wearing an eye patch just laughed out loud. When asked why he ripped his own eye out, he proudly claimed it was a pirate mark. Huddled over a map, these bloodthirsty pirates plotted their move. Pointing right at a super remote zone, one declared their target was the ship hitting Jutenbull. They planned to ambush it right after clearing the Oscar Islands. Now pay attention here, their real target, the Cortez, fully loaded with rich kids. Meanwhile, Frey and Isabel just stood at the front of the ship. The captain introduced himself, welcoming everyone aboard. Being polite, Isabel immediately started up a conversation with him. Without this vessel, they would be waiting 4 extra days. And despite looking perfectly decent, it barely had any passengers. The captain calmly explained why their route cut through the Oscar Islands, a notorious pirate hotspot. Isabel panicked a bit, but he instantly reassured her. They only had 2 escort warships, but each one carried a powerful 4-star mage. Both were elite battle mages from the Magic Tower. So honestly, a random pirate attack was zero threat. Right now those 2 mages were maintaining active protective barriers. That finally let Isabel relax. Any smart pirate would stay away. But suddenly Frey noticed something incredibly unsettling. Total panic hit the crew when they spotted real pirates. A massive, heavily armed warship was barreling directly toward their faces. Even Captain Mac was stunned. Isabel could only stare in pure panic at the unfolding nightmare. Frey stayed totally chill, but both escort ships were already underwater. That alone proved these guys were not your average pirates. They packed massive cannons and deadly resolve. Let's pause for a second. Just minutes earlier, the pirates found their target eagerly watching the Cortez approach. The 2 escort ships worried them, but they packed a secret weapon. A very special guest for this raid. Chanting in some strange ancient language, he unleashed his power. Enter Lord Dullard, an actual undead lich backing up their assault. His dark magic terrified even the pirates. He radiated pure darkness and absolute destruction, but the pirate captain trusted him completely. This was a literal undead monster. With a powerful lich on his side, the captain thought he would easily make pirate history. Pure dark power fused with shadow magic. His opening move, Ice Spear. He blasted the warships, piercing the solid hulls to directly strike the defending mages inside. Spotting the attack, the 2 mages desperately tried to defend themselves. It was just too late. Those ice spears were just ridiculously strong. The mages tried everything, but the magic ice kept tearing through the wood, destroying both ships completely. The pirate captain laughed loudly, already dreaming of the massive riches they would steal tonight. His crew eagerly drew their swords for battle. Moving closer, he tried praising Dullard's amazing spell work. But then the undead monster sensed something extremely odd. When he turned, the captain flinched. Dullard had cast 3 ice spears, completely confused why the Cortez was still floating. Trust me, you and I gotta see what's next. Stick with me here. The captain suddenly remembered he wasn't supposed to destroy that one. Those passengers were basically hostages. Alright, stick with me, this annoyed lich just snapped, calling him a boneheaded brat. He planned to attack just enough to block their escape, not sink them entirely. Meanwhile, the pirate crew just stood there looking totally clueless. Dullard sensed something weird about that boat. Right on cue, pure chaos erupted on the Cortez as terrified students sprinted across the deck. Off in the corner, a hooded guy sat perfectly still, breathing heavy and looking completely exhausted. Frey and Isabel stayed frozen in place. Seeing those warships destroyed left her trembling in fear, but Frey, his expression was totally deadpan. He just patted her head and casually told her to chill out. Right now, pirates were the least of his worries. He watched 3 ice spears fly, but the one targeting their ship magically disappeared. Knowing he didn't cast any defensive shield himself, his brain went into overdrive. He felt the mana, but failed to block it. Then a demigod-like aura hit him. Pure rage and pain boiled up over his total inability to fight back. Snapping back to reality, he realized not a demigod. The magic definitely felt undead, but their mysterious savior remained totally unknown. Hand to his chin, he figured this unknown hero deserved a massive thank you. Meanwhile, the pirate vessel closed in as students kept screaming in panic. The boats pulled up close, slamming down boarding ladders. Armed pirates instantly swarmed the deck. The crew shrieked for help, completely defenseless. Total pandemonium took over. Bodies began falling left and right before someone finally stood up. Now watch closely because the real fight starts here. The Cortez was smaller than the Nifla, but packed with 40 wealthy heirs. Imagining massive ransom payouts, the pirate boss smirked. He swaggered over, hyping up his bloodthirsty crew. The Cortez captain drew his blade, but this greedy pirate just saw a giant chest of walking gold. His crew exploded with laughter, instantly pissing everyone off. Suddenly, a terrified student stepped right up to the boss. Trembling, he proudly announced this boat held future top-tier mages, basically telling them they messed with the absolute wrong crowd. Seeing the kid try casting a spell, the boss reacted. Before the magic could even spark something, slammed the boy hard into the wooden wall. The pirate had chucked a dagger. The student absolutely panicked, feeling the cold steel right by his throat. He shivered in pure terror. While Frey and Isabel stood frozen, Frey realized that deadly knife was deflected right at the very last second. Sensing energy from that weird hooded guy, he wondered if he was their secret ship protector. A raspy voice suddenly warned that the kid stood zero chance. The stranger told him to keep his head down and obey. Brushing it off as a joke, the captain finally decided playtime was over. Locking eyes on the weakest link, he decided to set a brutal example. The boy stumbled backward, desperately guarding himself. He literally peed his pants in fear. The captain ruthlessly mocked the crying baby, while another thug stepped up to handle things. Scooping the kid over his shoulder, he laughed about giving him a wash. The hooded guy yelled to stop, but the pirate just hurled him overboard. The boy thrashed, screaming for help. He drifted farther away until he completely disappeared. Despite being a second-degree mage, Orko was executed with absolutely no mercy. Those scumbags didn't care one bit. Furious, the remaining students finally fired their magic. The captain just groaned about the annoying noise. You and I saw this coming, right? Something completely overpowered, just crushed their spells. That undead aura totally shielded the pirates. It spread everywhere, completely blocking every single strike. The kids were completely clueless against this evil. The boss just cackled while his undead backup did the work. Dark magic effortlessly wiped the floor with them. A shadowy vortex dragged everyone down. One kid just stared, realizing this was straight out of his textbooks. A terrifying absolute monster of a lick, Isabel looked ready to faint, but Frey deep in tactical thought. These fools actually struck a deal with an immortal. But newsflash, immortals only bargain when they're totally using you. Of course, these greedy scumbags only cared about getting paid. Cash ruled everything around them. Trembling Isabel clung to Frey. He complained she was making him sweat, but then he caught her expression and completely froze. She was full on crying. Okay, these definitely weren't your average pirates. This lich was at least 5th tier, way too strong for the ship's mages. Then the pirate boss glared at that mysterious stranger. Demanding answers, the lich roared for whoever blocked his attack to reveal themselves. He knew for a fact they were hiding on board. Met with silence, he cranked up the threat level. Summoning deadly ice arrows, he promised a complete massacre if the hero stayed hidden. Laughing like a psycho, he made those arrows huge. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens next. Stick with me here. The captain frantically begged the undead boss to leave the hostages alive. But the lich just shot back a glare so terrifying even the battle-hardened captain immediately looked away. Suddenly, a quiet figure stepped up. The guy kept his hood pulled low, but the lich totally knew this was the dude messing with his spell. Zero hesitation, the kid admitted it right to his face. Amused, the monster demanded to know who he was. He yanked back his hood and the whole crowd gasped. Isabel was completely floored. Frey. He just stood there looking totally bored by the drama. The kid dropped his name, Peron June. Isabel instantly recognized him as a top-tier student from their academy. Literally everyone knew this guy. President of the biggest club and the golden child of one of the Empire's top 3 noble families. He always rivaled Isabel for the #1 spot in class. But yeah, academic rivalry wasn't exactly the priority right now. She knew the harsh truth, their grades were close, but his actual magic tier was way out of her league. The girls started freaking out, literally cheering because they thought the school idol would save them. Isabel desperately prayed he could pull this off, but Frey shattered that hope instantly. Look closely, blood was dripping down Peron's chin. The kid was practically running on fumes. That undead freak was at least a 5th tier mage. Peron was a genius, sure, but he had barely scratched that level himself. Honestly, just surviving a blast that powerful was an absolute miracle. Panicking, Isabel asked if Frey could beat the monster. He casually said no, then told her to back off because his body was still running hot. You and I both know the pain of instant regret, right? Peron only picked this empty ship to hide, and wow, what a massive mistake. He managed to block the attack, but the recoil left his bones, feeling like they were about to completely shatter. Staring down this absolute nightmare, he was completely out of ideas. Meanwhile, the monster just laughed, calling it his lucky day. A perfect new test subject just dropped right into his lap. They locked eyes and Perron just closed his, fully bracing for the end. Suddenly someone yelled out asking what the pirate captain actually wanted. Smirking like a total creep, the guy claimed it was nothing personal. He joked that seeing rich, noble kids sailing through dangerous waters, well, they just had to step in. Out of the goodness of their hearts, they would safely escort everyone to port. His lackey chimed in saying the boss was busy, but they would do it for a massive protection fee. Classic pirate logic, it always comes down to money. Perron didn't even flinch. He threw out a wild counteroffer, take him as the sole hostage and his rich family would literally double their payout. But the captain totally refused. With an undead mage backing him up, he could extort literally any price he wanted. Perron just shrugged quietly, admitting the guy wasn't wrong. He knew he couldn't win this fight. But he swore he would burn every last drop of mana to drag that monster down with him. Now pay attention here, because this is the exact moment our lazy main character finally respects the kid. Frey loved seeing that kind of ruthless fighting spirit. He figured the Empire was in pretty good hands after all. But the Lich, yeah, he didn't care about the kid's bravery. Perron's magic was seriously impressive. Still, the color drained from his face when he realized the Lich's twisted plan. He scrambled to dodge the shadowy blasts, but the monster was trying to completely drain his core and turn him into a zombie puppet. With a burst of dark energy, the Lich snatched Perron right up. Negotiations failed. Time to violently drag every student onto the pirate vessel. The rich kids absolutely panicked and scattered, but the pirates viciously tackled them down. They were forcefully rounding up the crying girls, grinning like absolute garbage. Then this one-eyed pirate thug remembered he actually had a job to do. His creepy gaze landed on Isabel. He lunged and she instantly hid behind Frey. The pirate laughed, insulting Frey for being built like a twig. Frey literally looked over his shoulder confused before realizing the trash was talking to him. The thug doubled down, calling him a skinny brat. Frey, totally deadpan, just asked the guy to show some respect. Oh, that triggered the pirate bad. Cracking his knuckles, he moved in to smash the kid's face, but Frey didn't even flinch or step back. Around them, classmates were already getting hogtied. Some even whispered that Frey was acting crazy arrogant. The pirate just lost his mind with rage. He roared and charged at Frey, blade drawn for the kill. Everyone held their breath. Pure panic everywhere, yet Frey stayed absolutely frozen. The thug closed the distance, swinging down for a fatal strike. Isabel squeezed her eyes shut, but the only one spitting out broken teeth. The pirate. Frey hit him with a massive shockwave of pure energy. The dude was literally launched backward like crushed fruit. Frey just glanced down totally unimpressed. That single casual kick sent a grown pirate flying into the ocean. The crowd's jaws dropped because this was Frey, the school's legendary eternal loser. The blonde kid could only stare in pure disbelief, his brain shorting out as he tried to process that insane martial arts technique. So what do you and I take from this? Never mess with the quiet guy. A magic spinning kick before the enemy even blinked. Yeah, his control is terrifying. Jumping back in, Frey stopped the redhead from stepping up, giving her a quick head pat. He told her to stay alert. Besides that Lich, everyone else was weaker than her, so she could easily protect herself anyway. The mage smiled softly, touching her head. Then she locked in while Frey finally turned to face the pirates. Stick with me here. One kidnapper laughed it off, claiming his buddy only lost because a pretty girl distracted him. In a flash, our gray-haired boy materialized right in front of him, moving so fast the air literally warped. The pirate could not even process that insane speed. Meanwhile, the Lich watched silently from behind, visibly shocked while studying Frey. Boom, aura exploded everywhere. Still totally confused, the pirate groaned in absolute agony. Striking him dead, Frey coldly muttered they should never have taken that deal. He hated this arrangement and playtime was officially over. For a second, Frey realized he had never actually killed before. But who cares? Everyone was too busy staring in pure shock anyway. Scum like them were never going to like a guy like him anyway. Screaming, the pirates rushed the gray-haired boy. Frey gave them a dead stare, grabbed the fallen guy's neck, and chucked him into two others. Then he followed up with a massive aura strike tearing through everyone in front. The surviving pirates tried to flank him from behind. But in a blink, Frey blasted his aura outwards and instantly crushed them too. The guy beside the Lich called it impossible. Honestly, you and I would too. Frey just kept dropping them endlessly. The students watched in pure awe at this massive power gap. One desperate pirate grabbed a girl hostage, begging for his life. But Frey rushed him instantly. He moved so ridiculously fast he left literal afterimages. A single kick sent the pirate launching over the girl, smashing him right in the face. The rest tried to swarm Frey, but he just leaped up, making them crash hilariously into each other. Furious, they screamed they would drag him to the ocean floor. But looking up, the gray-haired boy was holding a massive energy sphere. Panicking, they begged for mercy. But with a totally cold face, he fired it silently. Their screams echoed out, leaving behind absolutely nothing but dust and deep scorch marks. Frey slowly floated back down to the deck. Then he noticed one single pirate had actually survived. Holding the mage hostage, the guy called Frey a total monster, warning him not to move or she gets hurt. Frey just stared blankly for a second, then flatly asked what he just said. The bald pirate blinked in total confusion. Before he even realized it, the mage was charging an attack. Staring into his eyes, she unleashed a massive electric shock that swallowed them up. One blast dropped him instantly. The surrounding crew fell dead silent, way too stunned to even speak. The lich and the redhead beside him were just as shocked. Frey and the mage locked eyes until the redhead asked how her skills were. Frey dryly replied she acted way too sweet for someone so incredibly dangerous. Then slow clapping echoed from behind. "I know what you are thinking, boss fight time, right?" Yep, it was the thug beside the lich, slow clapping and mocking their power. But even he had to admit he was genuinely impressed. Hero and villain locked eyes for a tense second. Then the villain broke the silence with a weird offer. He pointed out the boy was clearly no ordinary mage, but taking down the whole ship alone would still be super tough. The gray-haired boy stayed entirely silent. The villain said he only wanted half the trainees. Frey simply glanced at the terrified captives. One kid was crying for his mom, while others sobbed loudly, begging not to be taken away. The villain asked if he would take the deal, save some folks, and leave alive. A win-win, right? Frey asked how it was a win-win when most enemies were already dead. The villain just shrugged with an evil sneer, saying the boy could handpick who stayed and who got sold out. Suddenly, a blonde woman sprinted up, begging him to pick her. She basically threw herself at him, totally desperate. If money was not enough, she shamelessly offered other payments, promising to do absolutely anything he wanted. Another trainee dropped to his knees begging. Soon everyone joined in flashing cash just to buy their own lives. Frey dryly sighed that he had no choice, telling Isabel to start collecting all those payments. But Isabel snapped, saying he could not seriously be doing this. Hearing her complain, he smirked and joked about starting a live auction, making her even madder. The pathetic crowd kept crying and swarming him while the rest could only watch this mess in pure silence. Frey finally asked if they were done yet. He shoved the blonde away, saying she was too clingy and smelled like rotten fish. He called them all a bunch of rats. Their only real skill was throwing money around to get their way. They flexed their parents' hard-earned wealth just to bully people. They were hardly even worthy of being called real mages. A true mage protects the weak. Hearing that only made the girl admire him more. And let's be real, you and I just became massive fans too. Stick with me here. He ruins the moment by demanding payment again, making the redhead absolutely lose it. Off in the distance, the villains are watching. The red-haired lackey glances at the lich, wondering why the guy is dead silent. Was he actually scared of this kid? The lich flat out says no human is beyond his dark power. The redhead freezes up. Shocked that the undead monster just read his mind, he quickly stands at attention. The lich claims he was just observing, making the villain quietly swear to keep his thoughts locked down tight. This monster keeps studying Frey. He senses a weird, unfamiliar mana radiating from him, realizing this kid is no joke. But hey, he's just a 5-star mage, right? The lich decides Frey is no real threat and unleashes his aura, ripping his own cloak apart. His red-haired lackey hypes up Lord Dullard with total confidence, while our heroes just watch this monster's energy spike. The undead brags that he's crushed countless guys like him, ordering our mage to just give up and serve him. Frey stays totally chilled out, telling the monster he talks way too much. Furious, the lich instantly summons purple spear-like magical missiles. The red-haired girl panics at the crazy magic, but before she can even shout, the lich blasts them straight at our heroes. Our main character casually steps aside, and the attack nearly blows up some pirates nearby. But get this, the missiles curve in midair and loop right back. The mage screams at Frey not to relax, since that spell tracks its target. Frey dodges again like it's a total joke, saying he already figured out the trick. Watching this, the red-haired lackey thinks the spell is lethal. Those purple missiles will keep hunting their target even if Dullard casts something else. Now watch this part closely. The lich uses bone hands next. Dark magic floods the deck and skeletal claws erupt straight from the floorboards. Our hero easily dodges the missiles, but those bone hands catch him totally off guard from behind. The lackey starts celebrating early, thinking it's game over. The girl softly calls Frey's name, then absolutely screams it as a massive explosion erupts from the lackey's magic. The blast gets wilder, forcing the mage to throw up a quick shield to protect herself and the others. Everyone nearby scrambles away from the shockwaves. The redhead holds the barrier steady until she glances at the center and realizes our main character is completely gone. Nothing but broken smoking wood is left. She screams out for him, frantically begging for any kind of answer. The blonde mage is literally already mourning. But then, without warning, the lich's missiles freeze dead in midair. The undead is totally stunned and whips around. His own magical missiles are now aiming right back at him. Panicking, he throws up a repulsion shield to block the hit, but that snaps his focus, and the trapped mage finally breaks free. Whatever. He gathers more dark energy in his hands and blasts the rest of his own missiles to dust. He just can't compute it. How did this kid hijack his magic? He thinks he's safe until the gray-haired boy just casually appears right behind his back. Everyone watching is completely shocked to see Frey standing right there, totally unharmed. I know what you're thinking, this kid is cracked. The Lich spins around totally confused, but Frey just stays glued to his blind spot, treating him like an absolute joke. Panicking hard, the monster leaps into the sky just to escape. The Lich is seriously rattled, trying to figure out how this is even possible. Humans just don't move like that, but our hero only stares up at him, eyes glowing with pure magical confidence. The girl asks if he's okay, and Frey gives her this super calm look and a tiny nod. She stares at him in total awe, suddenly flashing back to a memory of another legendary mage who looked exactly like him. The pieces are finally clicking together, and the truth is hitting her. Up above, the undead starts charging a massive spell, terrifying the blonde kid below. Suddenly, the Lich unleashes a brutal rain of giant ice spears. The whole crew looks up in pure horror, absolutely sure they're doomed. The monster realizes that wiping out the entire ship is his only escape plan, so he just keeps dropping the artillery ready to murder everyone. But then, something stops him cold. Every single spear gets blocked with zero effort. Frey casually throws up a massive energy barrier around the whole ship. The undead just stares down, screaming that it's flat out impossible. The blonde boy agrees, it's insane. He'd literally cough up blood just trying to block a single spear. Meanwhile, the girl is seriously questioning who Frey actually is. Up above, the monster yells, he's just a human forming a colossal iceberg to crush the ship. The blonde kid screams that absolutely nothing can block something that huge. Screaming for the humans to die, the Lich hurls the giant ice block down like a literal meteor. Our hero answers by blasting into the sky. He charges straight through the massive iceberg, slicing it completely in half, soaring up until he's face to face with the monster. The younger mages below block the falling ice chunks. The Lich is losing his mind, screaming that a mere 5-star mage shouldn't have this kind of power. The gray-haired boy just coldly states that he simply knows the path he must walk. So, where do we go from here? The undead screams, asking if he really knows what's beyond 5 stars. But Frey just smirks, telling him his trash spells mean absolutely nothing. Stick with me. The shaken Lich demanded his real identity. Our hero proudly introduced himself as Frey Blake, the Academy's absolute loser, and just that name completely terrified the monster. Then he dropped the bomb. He was Lucas Trauman, history's strongest mage, returning after 4,000 years. The ship's mages groaned, complaining they could barely keep up while trying to focus, while the red-haired girl just looked up in pure worry. In total denial, the monster yelled that was impossible since Lucas was dead. Then he lunged forward, launching a direct one-handed attack. Frey just casually teleported behind him, joked that he looked way better from the back, and struck. His hand pierced straight through, grabbing its glowing blue heart. Our main character smirked, saying he knew exactly what this was, and asked if the Lich still wanted to keep living. He casually added that he had guessed the core's location, even though its weird type made it pretty hard to pinpoint for sure. While the monster screamed in panic for him to wait, Frey completely crushed the stone, triggering a massive explosion. The monster shattered and completely vanished into dust, leaving our stern-faced mage just floating there in midair. The ship's mages were absolutely stunned by how incredibly fast it ended while the pirates mourned their defeat. The red-haired villain just kept begging to know how this was even possible. Now pay close attention. Frey appeared right behind him, making it completely clear there would be no more deals. Every single pirate on that ship was going down. Shortly after, the entire crew was totally defeated, especially the redhead, who ended up completely wrecked and in the worst shape. Our hero stood right among the fallen bodies, ending the fight with one brutal downward strike. After that, he turned around to see the apprentices staring from afar, especially the red-haired mage, looking at him in absolute awe. By dawn, they finally reached a port. Frey got off the ship with the girl, but a blonde boy suddenly stopped him, praising his insane skills. He even claimed to be a massive fan. Frey just kept walking right past him, leaving Isabel completely confused by his ice-cold attitude. But then the kid stepped up, bowed deeply, thanked him profusely, and swore he would repay him for saving his life. The girl quickly told Prith he did not have to bow like that. Frey watched in surprise, then just quietly relaxed. Frey asked how the kid felt since that massive shockwave could have hurt him. The blonde smiled, saying he was perfectly fine because he came totally prepared for that. Frey found that pretty funny, making the girl scold him for being rude. As the three walked through town, Prith asked what exactly happened to Frey. He really wanted to know how Frey beat that Lich so easily, since that should be literally impossible for any normal mage. He had heard the rumors about the Academy's most talentless student, so he asked if Frey had been hiding his true crazy power all along. Frey answered dryly, "Life surprises you. We both know that is an understatement." The two just stared at each other in total silence until the blonde finally shrugged, breaking the tension. He agreed anything could happen with the girl following right behind. After all that craziness, Prith officially invited Frey to his home so he could thank him properly. This super formal offer left Isabel completely speechless and blushing as she waited for an answer. Frey casually said he would think about it if he had time. That made his companion absolutely furious. How could he just casually brush off a noble's invitation? Once Frey got the hint, he completely changed his tune, saying he might go if there was something to gain. Isabel got even madder, calling him a total bastard, while Frey remained completely clueless. She yelled that asking for money was completely shameless, and he instantly shot back that they were broke entirely because of her. Right in the middle of their fight, the blonde said he did not mind, but just asked why they needed money. Frey explained he needed to use the super expensive Casenfini portal stone, which made Prith really curious. Then the boy got a bright idea, dug through his fancy bag, and pulled out gold coins as payment. 3 gold coins and 300 silvers, making the broke pair instantly ecstatic. Frey honestly said they only needed 20 gold, but the rich noble insisted they keep absolutely all of it. That just made an exhausted Frey realize this kid really was a spoiled rich boy. They kept walking and chatting with the blonde, happily inviting Frey over once again. He kept listing reason after reason, and Frey started getting really tired of it. When Frey finally snapped, Prith nervously said he was just being polite, mentioning that his father basically handled everything himself. But something right there caught Frey's attention, and he suddenly asked if the boy had an older sister. The blonde said yes over in Luenoble, but Frey only cared about the girl, which super annoyed the redhead behind him. Prith explained his sister came from a family known for raising absolute warriors, so they would probably be super disappointed that he was pretty terrible at magic. Isabel quickly told him not to think like that, because he was way stronger than he believed. Then Frey grabbed the kid's attention, telling him not to lose confidence because a handsome guy was here to help out, making poor Prith completely flustered. But of course, Frey ruined it right away by telling him to call if he had a hot older sister or aunt, which sent Isabel completely over the edge. She absolutely lost it, screaming and calling him a total pervert. The blonde took a deep breath for a second and then suddenly burst out laughing. He called them funny friends, saying he had not laughed like that in ages. Trust me, you and I are going to love this trio. Stick with me here, let's jump back into the chaos. By late afternoon, the blonde kid finally decides to leave. He invites them over one last time, saying he has to repay them. Frey just shrugs, saying he will visit if he has time. And yep, that instantly pisses the redhead off again. They exchange a quick look, silently waiting to split up. Isabel mutters that she takes it as a good sign. They finally say their goodbyes. Honestly, Frey thinks the kid could actually make a pretty decent friend. Frey casually mentions the boy is a properly polite noble. She agrees right up, until Frey adds that the kid is completely loaded. Cue the redhead losing her temper again. Frey is totally clueless why she is mad. When she blows up, he defends himself. Hey, it is not his fault, he is broke. Next day, Isabel tries on everything, including a super flashy mage set. She turns and asks Frey if she looks pretty. Frey's answer, he just wants to go home. He tells her to ditch the frilly stuff for practical gear that will not slow them down. She is completely flustered. Annoyed again, she starts yelling, saying she is just happy to finally wear some decent clothes for once. Frey is still completely lost. Meanwhile, the shop worker steps in, gently pointing out that her companion clearly prefers simpler styles. Frey seriously regrets bringing her along. A bit later, fully geared up, they head out near the edge of the city. Looking at her gear, Frey admits no matter how many times he sees it, that item is still amazing. The magic subspace bag. It uses crazy magic to hold way more stuff than physically possible. Isabel brushes it off as nothing special. Frey asks if she is just being dramatic, but she snaps that it does not matter anyway. Now pay attention, this is where it gets interesting. Frey takes a breath, realizing that just like the portal stones, the whole world has drastically advanced and grown. Then it hits him. Well, obviously, the guy has been gone for 4,000 years. He suspects the demigod intentionally held human progress back. To those fake gods, humans are basically just little ants. Isabel snaps him out of it, asking what he is thinking. They already reach the portal. Scratching his cheek, Frey mutters that he will figure it out later. Right then, a man announces the portal is opening. He tells everyone to step onto the magic circle. Frey is honestly surprised they can handle separate groups like this. The portal system's efficiency seriously impresses him. Isabel hisses at him to stop acting embarrassing. Above them, a massive magic circle forms and quickly spreads out. Frey casually warns her that first-timers usually get portal sickness. She immediately snaps back that she already knows. The portal activates with a weird surge of energy. They are dragged through a glowing space tunnel until they finally drop. Frey looks around in surprise. Welcome to Hispa. He studies the rugged landscape. Some things never change, even after 4 whole millennia. He turns to ask where they should go next, only to find Isabel aggressively vomiting from portal sickness. Wiping her mouth, she insists it is just because she skipped breakfast. Food will fix it. Frey just sighs, seriously regretting his life choices right now. Over in a nearby tavern, some rugged men are drinking when the bartender suddenly notices a commotion. You and I know this guy has zero filter, right? Frey kicks the door open, demanding food and straight-up alcohol. The redhead absolutely loses it, calling him totally irresponsible. Frey just tells her to pipe down. She has absolutely no idea how long it has been since his last real drink. He also complains that the academy not selling booze makes zero sense. Isabel is left completely speechless by his logic. She screams that the reason is obvious, but Frey argues back. In his day, everyone started drinking at 13. The bartender drops off their order asking if they are mercenaries. Frey completely ignores the guy, his eyes lighting up at the food. The bartender chuckles. If they are here in shiny new gear, they must be rookies. They look like they are off to hunt a dragon. Frey just keeps eating in silence. The bald bartender shrugs, saying that is not entirely a bad thing. Rich kids should enjoy their youth. But he warns them to eat and go home. Rookies have no business in the mountains. Isabel chimes in, saying she heard the place is crawling with deadly monsters. That comment actually pisses the bartender off. He coldly tells her she has no idea what she means. She jumps back startled while the local adventurers burst out laughing at the thought of these two kids surviving the mountains. Frey ignores the drama and just keeps eating. Calming down, the bartender sighs and apologizes. He has a son, right around their age. He explains his boy trained as a mercenary, which is why he got so protective. Isabel softly asks where his son is now. The old man's face falls. He is gone. He went into the mountain. She quickly apologizes, but he waves it off. He brought it up after all. The bartender explains his son was escorting a mother and daughter. Only the daughter made it out alive. She came back alone, saying his boy was never returning. The bartender says he is not trying to insult them, but entering that mountain is a complete death sentence. They might never come back down. Hearing that dark story, Isabel is left completely speechless. Then Frey shatters the tension. He is still chewing like nothing happened, casually declaring the food is fantastic. Then he just straight up asks what monsters live up there. So what do you and I learn here? Never trust Frey's taste. The redhead takes one bite and yep, the food is absolutely awful. Let's dive right in. The old man asks Frey if he is actually heading up the mountain, fully knowing it's practically a death sentence. Frey just stays silent. The bartender totally gets the hint, muttering that he is definitely going to lose sleep over this mess. Even so, after they finish eating, he whips out a map. Isabel admits she had her own plan, but this is way more helpful than she actually expected. Frey asks for the bill for the food and drinks, thanking him. The old guy waves him off, no need to worry, yet this round is totally on the house. They can pay up later, assuming they survive. Frey jokes about how he even stays in business, giving freebies, and the old man laughs, saying he gets that a lot. Later that night, as they head out, Frey thanks him for the meal, but the bartender instantly calls him out for lying. The food is absolute garbage, but hey, the drinks are solid. He waves goodbye, promising he won't forget them, and swears the sausages will be better next time. Frey smirks, saying he can't wait. The old guy flashes a huge smile as they leave. Then our duo keeps pushing forward, marching straight into the dark forest toward the mountains. Dead of night. An insane battle breaks out. Blue lightning explodes from a massive strike, completely tearing up the battlefield and violently shaking the ground. A red-haired woman just watches from far away, calculating every single move. Beside her, this white-haired guy is dead silent, unreadable. Around them, warriors are brutally clashing across the absolute ruins. One fighter yells that the enemy is blocking their path. The other screams back that they will just smash their way through by pure force. Things get super intense right away as they scramble to figure out their next move. The white-haired dude questions why they even showed up, stressing over the crazy danger. She insists this is massive, there is totally some shady stuff happening behind the scenes. Suddenly, they spot this giant structure glowing with wild energy. She points out it might literally be the key to all this recent chaos. Watch closely here. Enemies lurk in the shadows, ready to strike. The group instantly realizes they are not alone. Every single move is life or death now. Frey analyzes everything and drops a major fact, but the redhead pushes back, trying to figure out his crazy logic. He raises a single finger, proving he has one big point left. Fully confident, he declares everything rides on a single month. She calls him crazy, arguing a month is barely enough time, but he is absolutely certain they can pull this off. As the sun finally rises, another brutal fight kicks off. The warrior rushes in, blasting pure blue energy. The fight rages on as our redhead speeds right through the exploding attacks. She perfectly weaves through the strikes, winding up for a counter. Meanwhile, the silver-haired guy just casually watches, downloading their every move. Then he drops a plan that could literally decide everything. The scene cuts as sunrise lights the entire area. The girl just stares, totally blown away by an insanely massive waterfall. She is absolutely completely speechless at the sheer size. Water roars like thunder as they step into a secret cave hidden right behind the falls. Something seriously mysterious is lurking inside. Boom! A golden sphere floating there, glowing with some crazy mysterious energy. It lights up the whole cave, and Silverhair instantly realizes this is super rare loot. You and I know what this means. She drops to her knees, totally overwhelmed as the glowing aura spikes. She watches totally amazed and confused, but our main character, cool as ice. With just one flick of his wrist, he effortlessly commands this godlike force. Tiny floating lights dance around him. As raw energy pools in his hands, he enters deep meditation, completely surrounded by a blazing blue aura. Seriously, even the massive waterfall reacts, surging down way harder. The girl is absolutely speechless. Suddenly, boom, the energy flips to a dark, intense purple. He snaps his eyes open, fully focused, knowing a massive breakthrough is happening right now. Zero hesitation, she steps right into the crazy vortex, letting that exact same wild energy completely wrap around her. The guy just smiles, basically confirming she has top-tier potential. He looks super proud as the energy explodes into a blinding tornado, lighting up the cave. Finally, the brutal training ends, the aura fades, and she just stands there stunned. She glances over only to catch his cocky, super proud smirk. Then he casually suggests grabbing some food. Completely caught off guard by his chill vibe, she blinks, then naturally smiles. She warmly thanks him, pointing out how much he has changed. The old him would never have brought her here to train. Isabel never imagined they would be hanging out like this. The guy used to literally bully her, but now his new vibe keeps drawing her in. She hesitates, choosing her next words carefully. Lately, he feels like a completely different dude, like some seasoned pro who always has the perfect answer. Looking totally curious, he asks her which version is actually the real him. She freezes for a second, unsure. Then she just giggles, saying they are both him. In her eyes, people don't change, they just level up. He closes his eyes, nodding along. Isabel repeats how crazy grateful she is. The past version of him would never take her on a secret one-on-one trip, but then she freezes suddenly, super panicked about what happens next. So here's where we leave it. They are stuck alone for a month in that tiny cave, but Frey brutally shuts her down, telling her to stop overthinking stupid things. Let's dive into this together. Isabel is blushing hard and absolutely furious, totally confused why. Frey just ignores it, casting a snare barrier spell to catch any wandering monsters while they sleep. He tells her to rest, lays down, and is instantly snoring. Isabel just glares, fighting the overwhelming urge to punch him right in the face. The next day, Isabel is still completely passed out. She finally wakes up looking absolutely exhausted, dreading the long day ahead. Meanwhile, Frey has been up for hours, just 5 hours of sleep. And honestly, that's her last real break because this next phase of training is about to be pure torture. Frey introduces Cassidon's training method called conflict. It is insanely dangerous, so he strictly tells her to just sit back and watch. Suddenly, his aura shifts completely. He releases his magic, forming a core to combine his raw forces. The magic splits, creating a new state. Frey divides his internal mana into fire and water. These opposing forces slam together, locked in a struggle. It literally looks like an all-out war inside his body. Eyes closed, Frey maintains absolute control over both elements, pouring all his intense focus right into dominating that water magic. Inside him, the energy feels almost alive. The water ruthlessly attacks while the fire desperately defends. Physically, his entire body stays perfectly aligned with the flames. Here's what you and I need to watch. He's balancing two wildly unstable forces, and Isabel suddenly realizes just how legendary this method is. So this is Cassidon's conflict technique. She stares unblinking, burning every detail into her memory. Gathering courage, she decides to risk it herself. Closing her eyes, she starts dragging raw energy into her body. Instantly, the forces clash. Following his exact lead, she tries forcing them into that perfect, razor-thin balance. But it's totally impossible for her. The backlash hits instantly, making her nauseous before she violently collapses to the ground in pure agony. One tiny slip in balance caused all that damage. This training method is absolutely brutal. Meanwhile, Frey stays perfectly calm, meditating like nothing happened. Isabel seriously starts questioning what kind of monster he actually is. Later, she heads to the waterfall. After getting wrecked by training, washing off in the clear water feels amazing. She thinks over all the crazy events while bathing. Getting out, she gets dressed and repacks her entire bag. She sets up some stones nearby, one large rock sitting right in front, surrounded by 6 smaller ones. She drops a small stone, swapping it for a matching one. This is her makeshift calendar, and she realizes 2 whole weeks have already passed. And through all this time, Frey hasn't moved from his spot. He's been running that terrifying technique inside the cave non-stop. Passing the barrier, Isabel checks in to see his progress. Putting her bag down, she senses a weird aura and steps closer. A massive wave of blue energy is spilling out. Dead center Frey sits cross-legged, eyes firmly shut. That massive mana surge proves he is hitting the 6th degree. I know what you're thinking, 2 weeks. That growth rate is insane. The raw power freezes her in place, yet Frey thinks he's still too slow. He demands even more speed and control. Isabel just stares. So she sits across from him, copies his exact stance, and tries again. Outside, pouring rain hits. Inside, the relentless grind continues. 3 whole weeks pass by. The large stones track the days. They keep releasing power, but her control still can't match his. Suddenly, a strange feeling hits her deep inside. Once again, she can't match his unbelievable focus. A single tiny slip is more than enough to wreck her balance. Still, this conflict method is buffing her at lightning speed. Her ancestors never trained this hard, proving exactly why modern mages are total pushovers. Then she catches her own scent and realizes she stinks. She looks toward the waterfall. The magical barrier starts cracking like something heavy just shoved through. A split second later, it completely shatters. A massive creature stands right there. Pure terror fills her eyes seeing this ridiculously giant bird. Frey finally opens his eyes to check the noise. Snapped out of his zone, he realizes it's a literal phoenix. Isabel is freaking out over a living legend, but our main character, zero fear. He's just looking at it like an absolute fanboy. Seeing his chill reaction, she tries looking at the deadly bird differently. The Hispania Mountains are packed with monsters, but a literal divine beast living here, totally mind-blowing to her. Their crazy fire training actually lured the phoenix in. Frey just casually holds out his hand, calling it over. Panicking, Isabel screams, "Humans can't tame divine beasts," but the phoenix just tracks his every move. You and I just witnessed peak main character energy. Frey stays calm, and soon this legendary phoenix is literally letting him pet its feathers with zero hostility. Let's jump right back in. Isabel is completely stunned. He's grabbing burning feathers barehanded. The beast wasn't angry, so she calmed down. But then she spotted massive claw marks tearing across its body. Its heart was practically ripped out. Honestly, it's a total miracle this thing is breathing. She thought phoenixes were immortal ash-rebirthing gods. But Frey casually dropped a truth bomb. They just fight off death way better than normal monsters. Definitely not immortal. Shaken, Isabel realized these mountains hid absolute nightmares capable of shredding a legendary bird. Whatever did this damage, definitely not your average everyday mob. Touching its fiery feathers, Frey offered his help, waiting dead calm for the massive bird to respond. Soon enough, the beast dropped its guard completely. To Isabel, it suddenly looked like a harmless, relaxed little pet. Frey joked it was about to taste his hard-earned training results. The phoenix just opened its eyes, totally unimpressed. Even so, he poured raw mana into those nasty wounds to close them up. Isabel watched every single second. He didn't even feel like the Frey she knew anymore. His whole vibe changed, and the air around him was weirdly peaceful. Fixing the bird up, he remembered an old buddy and actually teased the phoenix for whining about a little rain. Now, pay attention here. The annoyed bird stands up, and it looks like they're about to race up the mountain. Touching it hit him with heavy nostalgia. Seconds later, those fatal chest wounds sealed up completely. Once their energy returns, their crazy natural healing kicks in. Just like that, the flaming bird was standing tall. Raw power exploded from its body with a deafening cry. Frey just smiled, totally eating up the nostalgia. They locked eyes for a second, a silent thank you passed between them. Then it took off, looking absolutely majestic. At full strength, it was a total beast. But look, it left behind a single glowing feather as a thank you gift. These feathers can heal fatal damage or craft god-tier items. We're talking incredibly rare jackpot-level loot right here. It definitely paid its debts. Frey then totally roasted Isabel, saying she was like the bird, except completely useless. The insult finally clicked for her. How could he be an absolute angel to a bird but so toxic to people? Completely ignoring her death glare, he dropped right back into his intense conflict technique, leaving her awkwardly alone again. As night hit, that heavy rain outside just kept getting worse. But by morning, bright sunlight finally cut through. Raindrops still covered the plants. Counting the carved stones, 4 whole weeks had flashed by. Inside, Frey was still grinding non-stop. After a month of watching him, she saw he was practically on the verge of collapsing. 0 food. A solid week of straight meditation. She was stressing out, but honestly, he looked like a straight-up divine entity. She just stared, totally mesmerized by the raw energy bleeding off him. Truly unique. I know what you're thinking. He acts rude, but with that cold edge, his kindness to the bird, and that insane veteran knowledge, he totally feels like a legendary master mage. Sometimes he seriously reminded her of that legendary Archmage she once saw. Was her respect turning into a little crush? Suddenly, Frey's heavy breathing shifted into something perfectly controlled. Panicking a bit, she braced herself. Boom. His aura exploded violently, releasing a month's worth of stored-up conflict energy. His eyes snapped open, looking completely dead inside from exhaustion. Pushing through the pain, he forced himself up. Isabel was absolutely floored. He actually did the impossible in just 30 days, and she instantly started cheering. The absolute madman hit the 6th degree. Frey checked himself, feeling his insane new internal upgrades. Isabel couldn't process it. Until now, the youngest person to ever hit the 6th tier was 35. If the world found out a kid did this, society would literally riot. Now Frey pulled in mana just by breathing. But wait, his expression suddenly dropped. He stumbled hard, and Isabel had to dive in to catch him. Starving for a week had wrecked his physical body. He needed high-calorie meat like yesterday, which meant hunting time. Knowing he'd bounce back, they stepped outside, only to walk right into an absolute slaughter zone. Dead monsters literally everywhere. Frey was completely blind to it during his trance, but that phoenix totally played bodyguard. Thinking about how he saved it, Frey felt grateful knowing they were destined to meet again. Free food, he figured they'd grab a quick bite before hitting the Schweizer dungeon. But suddenly a blood-curdling scream echoed out. They whipped their heads around. That was definitely a human screaming nearby. Starving or not, they had to go play hero. Frey didn't hesitate. With one massive leap, he launched into the sky, leaving a panicking Isabel screaming his name. She's completely stranded while those desperate screams get worse. Trust me, you and I definitely want to see what happens next. Stick with me here. This poor guy is literally a human dartboard today. His buddies are dead, and these skull-masked bandits think it is hilarious. Luckily, Victor is completely hungover, and his aim is absolute trash. Juan grabs the blade, stepping up for his turn. But the vice captain yells at them to quit messing around. Chewing his meat, the boss wonders when that mystery woman is showing up. He is absolutely sick of this mountain camp. Juan raises his weapon, hyping up the crowd. He brags that he is getting a headshot right on the prisoner. The captive braces for the end. Juan violently chucks the blade straight at him. The screaming man expects to die, but out of nowhere, something completely deflects the hit. The heavy knife violently slams into the dirt instead. Every single bandit freezes up. One idiot actually jokes that the wind ruined the shot. Getting ready to pack up, Victor suddenly spots a shadow creeping right next to him. It is Frey appearing out of nowhere. Victor instantly senses pure danger. Juan pulls his blade ready to brawl. Meanwhile, Frey just stands there observing their totally twisted camp. His cold eyes shift, realizing these absolute scumbags are using innocent people for target practice. Now watch closely because one bandit actually thinks Frey is a walking corpse. They are so incredibly wrong. Before anyone can even blink, the bloodbath begins. Frey drops Victor, instantly slicing his head clean off his shoulders. Juan is totally stunned by this crazy speed. The other bandits panic. Hearing the massive chaos, Captain Lawrence drops his food. A brutal flash of power wipes out his men instantly. In a split second, the mysterious target completely vanishes from sight. That was a 5th-class light spell. A terrifyingly strong weapon, and Frey is using it to dish out pure punishment. Time to teach these fools a painful lesson. Meanwhile, Isabel is sprinting through the dark forest, gasping heavily for air. Finding Frey, she walks into a totally horrific scene. He is just standing over a mountain of dead bodies, completely blank. He slaughtered everyone, letting just one guy run so he could track him down later. Now they are staring at something weird on the dirt. It is the vice captain's head. Frey realizes the actual boss must still be breathing. Curious, the girl asks if he is going to wipe them all out. After seeing their sick games, he absolutely cannot ignore this. He wants to ruin the demigod's twisted fun of watching humans suffer and die. The thought of those monsters enjoying anything makes him completely sick to his stomach. Suddenly, a shaky voice interrupts. The guy tied up on the tree desperately thanks Frey for saving his life today. Even though the guy is bleeding out, Frey bluntly says he is not bringing him along on this trip. The warrior absolutely panics, begging for help. He refuses to die out here. Crying, he swears he needs to apologize to his dad first. Now I know what you're thinking, classic tragic backstory, right? Well, it catches Frey's attention while nearby enemies panic over their fallen squad. Captain Carl thinks these guys are drunk for reporting something so crazy, but the survivor swears he saw the brutal slaughter firsthand. The attacker had gray hair, a skinny frame, and smelled like literal death. This guy was definitely no ordinary human. He was so insanely fast they could not even react, beheading everyone in seconds, leaving this guy as the only lucky survivor. That weird description immediately grabs Captain Carl's attention. Sounds exactly like a high-level mage. The report claims he cast 2 spells at once. That makes him an elite battle mage. Confirming this, Carl jumps to his feet, absolutely furious. He orders his entire crew to hunt the intruder down right now. They are going to surround this guy and finish him off. Still, Carl doubts the Aquareed family actually hired someone that strong. He asks the bandit if they really used people as human darts. Turns out the human target was a mercenary. Carl remembers he was just escorting a mother and daughter looking for basic herbs. This makes Carl even more confused about the mage's true identity. Nearby, a totally wrecked carriage sits, flipped over, stuff scattered everywhere. The fallen guards are completely motionless, proving the fight was incredibly brutal. One guy has an arrow deep in his stomach, knowing his time is up. Captain Carl just stands over him with a totally sick grin. He has spent months hunting down Sonia, the eldest daughter of the famous Aquareed Knight family. Refusing to quit, she fights back with everything she has left. Sonia is a master swordswoman, cutting down 3 guys with just one single strike. Anyone stepping up dies instantly, but honestly, her exhaustion is finally showing. Even then, she refuses to let her heavy sword drop. She rushes straight for Captain Carl for the kill. But some loyal grunt actually throws his life away to block the heavy attack. Their weapons violently clash together, proving both are elite fighters. But a massive blow quickly sends Sonya flying backward into the dirt. Dragging her sword to stay standing, she catches her breath. Sonya Aquareed is completely running on empty at this point. Carl openly mocks her, joking that she must really love that sword to hold on this tightly. So, what do you and I make of this? The rumors are real, the maid is sobbing, and their protector is officially out of options. Stick with me, Sonya refused to surrender against these totally impossible odds. Carl just smirked, loving the chaos. He licked his lips, staring at the girl. Waiting a whole month in those mountains had totally paid off. Her beauty, definitely not a rumor. At barely 18, this noble house's eldest daughter had already earned the badass title of Storm. Looking around, Sonya realized her guards were wiped out. Only her 2 maids and Sir Leather were still standing. Honestly, she was the only one left who could actually fight, staring down about 20 heavy-hitting bandits. Carl demanded to know where her mage bodyguard was. Sonya was completely lost. The Aquareid Knight family would never hire a mage bodyguard, meaning whoever attacked his squad wasn't with them. Still, Carl was dead set on figuring out who this mysterious guy actually was. Then he made it crystal clear Sonya wasn't dying yet. He had something way more twisted in mind for her. His sick smile said it all. Sonya instantly froze in absolute horror. The bandits were hyped at the thought of claiming a noble. Her face twisted with pure hatred. She'd rather bite off her tongue and die than be their toy. Carl had plans for the rest too. If Sonya kicked the bucket, they'd just use her maids. Trust me, you're gonna hate these guys. Starved out in the wild for a month, they definitely weren't planning a quick, merciful end. Sonya finally realized why they were kept alive. The maids clung to each other, shaking in pure despair. Not wanting to burden their lady, they broke down. Seeing this, Sonya started crying. Sir Leather stepped up, declaring it an honor to die for her, brave and loyal till the bitter end. But Sonya saw zero way out, completely crushed by her massive failure. She begged for their forgiveness, taking full blame for their inevitable deaths. But the maids insisted they owed the Aquareid family their lives anyway. Lowering her head, Sonya accepted it. Then the maids made one truly heartbreaking request. They wanted Sonya to kill them herself. Meeting her in heaven after being used by those filthy bandits would be the ultimate shame. Gripping her sword, Sonya promised they would reunite in heaven with their pride fully intact. Captain Carl was completely lost, but Sonya declared that for the honor of her maids and her family name she had to act. Tightening her grip, she swore to guide them on their final journey. Finally, catching on, Carl barked at his men to stop Sonya Aquareid immediately. She swung her heavy blade toward the maids as the bandits watched closely. Tears streaming, Sonya squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to do the unthinkable. But when she opened them, she completely froze. The maids were perfectly fine. Her sword had completely vanished from her hands. Confused, she figured someone must have stolen it. She glanced back, suspecting the bandits, but no way were any of those goons fast enough for that. For a knight, this was absolute rock bottom. She actually apologized to her maids for failing to give them an honorable way out. Pivoting, she ordered everyone to just bite their tongues. But suddenly, a mysterious voice called her name. Captain Carl was actually thrilled. The ghost who wiped out the third squad had finally appeared. You saw that coming, right? Frey snatched her blade. Suddenly, him, Isabel, and the wounded guy stood right in the middle. The stranger's dramatic entrance shocked everyone. Isabel was holding up the injured guy who could barely even stand. Smirking, Carl mentioned he'd heard a ton about the guy who had been toying with his boys. Frey calmly handed the sword back to Sonya, asking if Carl was the boss. Still trembling, she just held it in absolute silence. Frey gave off this weird, totally unreadable vibe. Looking frail and harmless at first, he casually pointed back toward the mountain. Carl asked if he came from there, his camp's location. He aggressively demanded to know what happened to his men. Frey answered super casually. He just toyed with all of them. Carl's face twisted in pure rage, instantly ordering his goons to kill the gray-haired bastard. Knowing Frey was a battle mage, they absolutely had to stop his cast time. With sheer numbers, Carl thought it was a fast win. But before they could even twitch, Frey already had his power locked and loaded. Bam! He struck with overwhelming force, instantly dropping several bandits. Carl could only watch his squad get completely shredded. Shaken up, he couldn't figure out how this mage casted so fast. Then boom, an explosion blasted heavy smoke everywhere. Everyone was stunned by the raw power pouring from Frey's hands. Totally confused, Sonya asked who these wildcards were and why they showed up. Isabel just flashed a faint smile. She promised they weren't enemies, telling Sonya to just take a deep breath. Carl got blown back, catching himself on some debris. He kept telling himself a battle mage wasn't completely invincible. A mage is just a mage, right? Spell delays meant limited attacks. Seeing Frey spamming massive magic, Carl figured the guy was just burning through his mana. He just wanted to see if the mage would collapse first or get sliced up by his men. You and I both know how this ends. Carl wanted blood, but suddenly watched his own guy get completely launched across the sky. Alright, you and I are about to watch these guys regret everything. Bandits are pierced through, leaving Carlos terrified. Frey is just spamming attacks, blasting the captain and his entire crew non-stop. Carlos is losing his mind. No one should have this much mana. But Frey isn't sweating, which is absolute madness. The kid's power is just off the charts. While Carlos processes this, his body keeps dragging across the dirt. Knowing he's totally cooked, he actually tries begging. Leaning on his blade, he pleads with the boy to stop. Victory, yeah, right. Most of his crew is dead or exhausted, barely even able to breathe under this non-stop barrage. Half of them have collapsed, only standing by, leaning hard on their heavy swords. Suddenly, Frey stops. The captain looks confused, assuming the kid is out of mana, and orders another strike. It's do or die. Behind Frey, Sonia offers to help restore his mana, but Isabel already knows Frey doesn't need it. His tier is just way too high. Frey preps a spell and tells Sonia to back up fast. Now, watch closely, this is where it gets crazy. The earth shakes violently, throwing the panicked bandits off balance. Captain Carlos is standing there, totally clueless about what's happening. The tremors get worse. Massive cracks rip across the dirt until the ground literally splits wide open beneath them. Boom, the floor vanishes. Guys drop like flies, desperately clawing at rocks and screaming for their lives in pure terror. Even the boss gets dragged into the crumbling rocks, shaking and begging to stay alive. Sonia is absolutely stunned. With a single spell, Frey just deleted the whole squad. 0 survivors. That was a 5th grade earthquake spell, and she cannot figure out how he just dropped it. Isabel casually explains those earlier attacks were literally just a distraction. Big brain move. Even so, Sonia has never seen dual casting before. Isabel agrees it's wild, admitting she hasn't witnessed anything like it either. Standing in front of him, Sonia is completely starstruck. She doesn't know combat, but that display was enough to shock anyone. She bows her head and sincerely thanks them both. She formally introduces herself as the Aquarid family's eldest daughter. Frey, he just bluntly drops his name. Frey Blake. He's not sweating this fancy noble title at all. Unbothered. Isabel laughs, introducing herself and apologizing for his bluntness. Then Sonia literally covers her nose. The dude smells terrible. You and I both know the trope, right, OP? But stinky. She guesses he's just a mountain hermit. Sir Luther actually recognizes the name. The Blake family is a massive noble house in the Cast Cow Empire. Their boss, Isaka Blake, is a crazy strong 7th degree mage, sitting pretty at rank 6 worldwide. After chatting with Isabel, Frey asks where they are heading. Good news, their first stop is Hispaniola City, exactly where he's going. Frey casually decides to tag along, but Sir Luther suddenly remembers a massive problem. They need to pack up the dead guards first, telling the kids to go on ahead. Since dragging bodies to the city is impossible, they'll bury them here. Frey steps up to handle it, totally stunning Luther. With one simple cast, all the corpses float up. He moves everything with terrifying precision. Random wood scraps snap together into a perfect heart. Sonia is speechless. Frey loads them up and asks if they can leave. Luther is stunned silent, and the maids are mind-blown. They hit the road until finally reaching the city. The cart just floats quietly behind them. Sonia is honestly shook to find out he's only 20. He acts like an old man. She cannot wrap her head around his insane strength at that age. Frey shrugs. To him, 20 or 30 is basically the exact same thing. He's just glad he's young. He casually points out the bandits were definitely waiting for Sonia. A highly suspicious setup. Wait, he's right. The bandit boss mentioned waiting a whole month, perfectly matching when they left the Luanable kingdom. Sir Luther sighs, explaining the Aquarid family has tons of haters, so picking a suspect is basically impossible. Plus, those bandits were weirdly elite. Whoever paid them definitely has some serious cash and power. Luther laughs, reminding everyone Frey trashed them anyway. Super curious, Sonia finally asks how he got so overpowered. She thought mages were supposed to be squishy, but he completely shattered that logic. She stares desperate for his secret. Frey hits her with a single word: effort. She doesn't get it at all, quietly turning that over in her mind. So, what do you and I make of this? They arrive safely, pushing that heavy cart right onto their ship. Alright, jump in with me. A maid hugs Sonia, absolutely bawling. They wave as the ship leaves, and everyone watches the vessel smoothly sail away. Sir Luther gives Frey massive thanks. Because of our guy, they are actually going home alive. Frey just smiles, happy to help. He waves and wishes them a safe trip back. But hold up, Sonia is definitely not ready to let him walk away. Totally confused, Frey asks what she means. Turns out she wants to reward him for his heroic carry. He turns it down, saying helping people shouldn't cost a thing. But Sir Luther steps in. He insists sending him away empty-handed is pure shame. Frey finally stops to think about it. He glances over at Isabel, checking her vibe. Flashing a smile, she gives him the green light to pick literally anything. His big request, dinner at a spot with top-tier sausages. After a bit of walking, they finally arrive. Luther and Sonia are super confused by the heavy smoke smell. It is absolutely not a noble-friendly joint. but Frey swears that old rundown shacks like this serve the absolute best food. Right on cue, a loud voice demands to know what he means. The old man says it's great seeing the kid again, even if he looks half dead. Seeing him, Frey just laughs it off. Then Frey drops the bomb. Someone else made it back alive too. Someone this old guy definitely cares about. The man's expression turns intense once he connects the dots. Right behind them, Isabel is carrying the badly wounded guy. Watch closely here. The guy drops his trays in pure shock. He can't believe his son Cassadine is actually alive. He rushes over, carefully treating his nasty wounds. Cassadine is going to need a few solid days of rest. He actually offered himself up as a hostage to protect that mother and daughter. For a sketchy mercenary, he really proved he's a decent dude. In tears, Cassadine apologizes for yelling and running away. Isabel just watches quietly as father and son finally make up. Frey figured out they were family since they look exactly alike, especially the eyes. He also jokes that his baggage has amazing healing skills. Super annoyed, Isabel realizes he is literally calling her the baggage. Frey quickly dodges that subject. They want to crash there, but the place is packed. Since top-tier inns are always full, Sir Luther suggests they bounce and find another spot. You're seeing this right. While apologizing, Frey still hypes up these sausages. Then out of nowhere, the owner starts violently kicking everyone out. He aggressively yells that they are closed for the day. Customers complain, but he literally doesn't care. Demanding their cash, he physically shoves them outside. The second the last guy is gone, he slams the doors. He flips the sign and boom, the inn is completely empty. The old man says he wants to treat his VIP guests right, telling them to chill and wash up. Once night hits, they are fully settled. Meanwhile, Sonia is soaking in a hot tub. Totally lost in thought, she absent-mindedly moves her hands around. After such a crazy day, she looks exhausted and confused. Later on, the table is completely loaded with bread. But even with a mountain of food, the owner brings out yet another massive tray. Frey destroys his food like a total black hole. Soon enough, Sonia Aquaride pops in to join the feast. Everyone is stunned by how gorgeous she looks, though she seems super nervous. She calls out to Frey, but he just tells her to grab a seat and eat. Her face is bright red like she is running a fever. She awkwardly explains she just took a really hot bath. Suddenly, she rolls her ankle and totally eats it, but Frey snatches her arms before she hits the floor. They share this long, intense look. That's when he notices her arms are completely covered in scars. Blushing hard, Sonia instantly pulls away to hide them. She stays dead silent until Frey says the scars are actually impressive. He thinks they look badass. To him, they prove her insane hard work, nothing to hide. You can tell those words instantly warm Sonia's heart. Isabel cuts the tension, asking about their next stop. Sonia says they are kind of hitting the June family estate. Hearing that name, Frey and Isabel instantly freeze up. They both immediately think of Perron June, their old classmate. Perron once bragged about a girl from the Aquarid family being his potential fiancée. Now, they know for sure it's Sonia. Neither of them said it out loud. Luther asks if they know Perron June. Isabel explains, Frey went to the exact same academy as Perron, who definitely mentioned this engagement. Being nosy, Frey wants the scoop on his buddy's fiancée, but Sonia looks completely confused. His questions sound more like a strict inspection. Ultimately, Frey decides Perron hit the jackpot with a girl like her. A bit later, it's finally time to say their goodbyes. Isabel wishes the girl a safe journey. Sonia turns around and invites Frey to visit the June family once his mission is done. He pauses, totally caught off guard by the invite. Then he casually says he might swing by. Sonia beams, promising she will wait. As our duo heads into the forest, Isabel teases his insane luck. Trust me, you'll want to see where we go next. She muttered that Perron probably used all his luck scoring Sonia, then totally spaced out. You and I both know she meant Frey, but this guy just kept relentlessly teasing her anyway. Finally, they reached the Schweizer dungeon. The place looked absolutely terrifying. Just seeing it made Isabel literally shiver. Drake Mountain definitely earned its name. Huge winged monsters with deadly fangs constantly circled the dungeon. Realizing they actually had to climb to the peak, pure panic at facing those flying beasts. Frey just shook his head and pointed elsewhere. Isabel screamed, but our boy stayed completely chill. A Drake King footprint, dozens of times bigger than them. The absolute shock sent her falling backward. A Drake that huge, impossible. But Frey told her to focus. The Espana Mountains were basically hell on earth. Literally anything could be hiding here. Suddenly he cast a quick spell. Boom, the girl was flung far away. A massive creature just swung a whole tree trunk. The heavy impact sent them flying, leaving them scrambling up. Isabel was totally dazed. But seeing that giant monster, she realized Frey had just saved her life. A terrifying Espana forest ogre, super grateful, sure, but Isabel wished he warned her before throwing her. Blood-red skin, 3 eyes, definitely a mutant. That bartender was spot on about these infested mountains. Watch closely, because here is where it gets wild. The beast charged Isabel, but she was prepping a spell. She whipped up a massive fireball and blasted the monster. Even Frey was genuinely impressed. She was way stronger than expected. Smoke cleared, but the mutant was somehow still standing. Honestly, it looked way angrier. Doubting her own strength, Isabel assumed her attack did 0 damage. That mutant skin had insane fire resistance from the drakes. To survive this mountain, they definitely needed a new strategy. Fire failed, so ice was the only option. The area rapidly froze, chilling Isabel to the bone. 2 tiny ice spears formed, and the temperature instantly dropped like dead winter. Watching his intense focus, Isabel swore Frey looked exactly like the great mage Lucas Trauman. He launched the spears. Perfect lightning, fast strikes to the chest. Isabel smiled, totally thinking they won. Then shock hit them both. The mutant survived and violently hurled them away with raw strength. Even those heavy ice spears barely pierced its thick skin. The enraged ogre shredded through the trees. Isabel panicked, but Frey stayed dead calm. Wasting 0 time, she chucked more fireballs straight at its face. Still 0 damage, but the smokescreen bought them escape time. The monster completely lost track of their hiding spot. Frey admitted its skin and bones were ridiculously tough. With that insane durability, the obvious play was burning it alive with heavy fire magic. But fire resistance, remember? She instantly suggested using a massive earthquake to just bury it alive. I know what you are thinking. Big spell. Nope, that draws drakes. Instead, Frey prepped a piercing technique. Taunting the furious monster, he drew its attention right to him. Then he formed several more ice spears. Isabel thought this was useless, but Frey insisted the true secret was never giving up. Shaking, she realized they might actually die here. One hand raised, Frey readied his attack as the blind, furious beast charged. Boom! The first spear nailed its head. It stumbled but kept charging like a tank. Isabel grew completely desperate. The plan looked like a bust, but Frey stayed razor-focused, spamming the exact same spell. A second spear, then a third. The fourth spear smashed the exact same spot on its forehead. Yet the mutant kept coming. 7 spears later, it finally staggered. As the beast wailed, Frey aimed an 8th spear at that exact spot. Snap! The repeated strikes finally shattered its thick skull. Isabel exhaled hard. His crazy plan actually worked. Frey never doubted his power once. That final hit completely obliterated its massive head, sending the giant corpse crashing down. Smirking at Isabel, Frey repeated his never-give-up advice. But suddenly, a terrifying sound made them look straight up. Drakes, circling right overhead. That cursed ogre had drawn them straight to their exact location. Now they had to fight flying monsters. 0 time to rest. Suddenly a massive blast erupted, spraying deadly flames everywhere. Frey quickly shielded them both from the drake fire breath. Then they bolted straight for cover. Isabel unleashed a sharp ice arrow straight at the neck of the drake. Not enough. Then something insanely fast rushed the beast. Frey literally shot through the air, forging a massive ice spear big enough to pierce its entire chest. His eyes went ice cold as he brought down another enemy, landing fast while the dead drake crashed. And trust me, you will want to see what happens next. Stick with me, you and I are about to see this crazy fight go from bad to worse. The Dragon King steps out from the trees. Frey immediately covers her mouth. Absolute silence is their only option right now. This boss is way too overpowered for them. All they can do is pray it leaves. But no luck. Those glowing yellow eyes are already scanning the area for human prey. Neither of them makes a single sound. Heavy footsteps shake the earth, getting closer. Finally, it looks away and stomps off, crushing trees into splinters. Isabel finally exhales. Just looking at that massive footprint is enough to make anyone freeze. Later on, Frey crashes on a rock to recharge. Isabel sticks close, helping however possible. Before long, she completely heals his injuries. A tiny butterfly lands on him. After all that chaos, his mind and body are finally in sync. But the mission isn't over. He calls Isabel over and releases the butterfly. The priority right now, finding Schweizer's hidden dungeon. Determined, they push toward the mountain peak. Frey warns her to stay sharp. Schweizer loves planting lake monsters. Curious, Isabel asks how he even knows this place exists. Simple. Frey heard it directly from Schweizer. That guy always talked way too much. At the summit sits a lake with a tiny island. They arrive in no time. Stepping onto the shore, Isabel is completely blown away. Crystal clear water and lush greens everywhere. Meanwhile, Frey mutters, calling his old friend a scoundrel. Now pay attention. Underneath this island hides a dungeon way bigger than you would ever expect. Frey explains this island is literally just the front door. Looks simple, but it is pure flashiness. Isabel has no idea what he is talking about. They keep moving across the sunny island, totally calm. Then they spot a massive tree with a dark tunnel. Boom. That is the entrance. Peering inside, they find stairs going deep underground. Glowing crystals light their way as they descend. Isabel bites her lip, wanting to ask a question but hesitates. Terrified of the answer, she swallows her words, and they keep walking in absolute silence. At the bottom, something insane, a massive door sealing away God knows what dark secrets. Frey inspects it closely, looking for a handle. Isabel just stares, totally clueless about opening it. It is a trap spell set by Schweizer. Forcing it means instant death. Frey steps toward a blue sphere. He raises a hand, tapping into its raw power. Immediately, thick smoke floods the room. Isabel watches in pure confusion. The smoke twists into a human shape. Suddenly, a kid appears. Smiling bright, the kid asks if his voice is coming through. Isabel wonders who this is, but Frey freezes completely. She calls his name, but he is totally unresponsive. He is actually shaking. The little boy cheerfully welcomes them inside. Frey reaches out, but his fingers phase right through the face. It is a hologram, a magical pre-recorded greeting. Hearing that loud voice, Frey knows his old friend hasn't changed. Schweizer definitely made himself look way younger for this recording. Even so, Frey is just happy to see his buddy's face again. I know what you're thinking. Yes, this tiny kid is actually the legendary Schweizer himself. The glowing image asks exactly why they have come to visit. It feels so real, like a normal conversation. But sadly, it is just a loop programmed with a few limited responses. Schweizer claims his dungeon holds literally anything you could ever desire. Frey almost asks how he died, but the hologram ignores him, demanding they answer a security question to enter. Make one tiny mistake and you are trapped in this place forever. Frey fights back tears. That arrogant tone is pure Schweizer through and through. It feels like the past is alive again. But his voice won't reach him. He is alone, yet he refuses to accept being the last survivor. His loved ones are gone, but the monsters who ruined everything are still ruling this world. His enemies are still breathing. Seeing Frey's dark expression, Isabel starts feeling nervous. The boy grins and asks what does Schweizer hate most in this entire world. Frey instantly snaps back demigods. The kid cheerfully says correct. The image vanishes into thin air, doors opening wide. Relieved, Isabel gets ready to follow him inside. But that burning question is still eating away at her mind. Seeing her hesitate, Frey turns back. She steps up, opening her mouth, but the words just won't come out. He tells her to hurry up. Trust me, you are going to want to see what happens next. Stick with me, we're heading deeper into Schweizer's dungeon, and they had to be ready for whatever traps came next. If she spaced out now, she was dead meat. So Isabel just swallowed her question and quietly accepted his warning. Climbing higher, Frey couldn't help but wonder, was this dungeon a fresh start or a dead end? Soon enough, they hit another door. Frey pressed his hand against the blue sphere, and just like before, smoke poured out to form a shape. Schweizer's image appeared again, but older this time. It seemed like with every single door, the guy kept aging. Time for the second question, but this one completely caught Frey off guard. The Phantom explained they could only grab one item. Break that rule and the golems would attack. One tiny mistake meant instant death here. Then out of nowhere, he dropped the name Iris Fistfounder. Young Schweizer complained he never understood that annoying witch. While everyone else was busy saving the world, she threw it all away just for some guy. Isabel knew exactly who that was. The Black Witch. Famous for her stunning beauty and dark hair, basically no man could resist her. Thinking about his charming friend, Frey got totally lost in thought. But when the Phantom said Iris had problems and Lucas was even worse, Frey's entire expression shifted. Schweizer whined that being a top-tier mage meant nothing if Lucas couldn't even see Iris's feelings. Frey looked completely lost. He hadn't ever noticed. Watching him, Isabel quietly realized Frey was acting exactly like Sir Lucas. The Phantom joked a golem had more sense than Lucas, then asked the question. Iris contracted 3 strong demons, but which one held the weapon of coexistence? Watch this. Before the question even finished, Frey just answered Zura. He nailed it immediately. Honestly, Isabel was blown away that he didn't even need the rest of the hint. Beyond the door, a massive room totally stacked with treasure and jewels. Soon after, they hit the next door. Schweizer looked like an old man now as he gave the third question. Isabel watched quietly, completely puzzled. Why on earth did his image keep aging? The answer was actually simple. The entire dungeon was built straight from Schweizer's journal. Frey figured Schweizer wasn't thinking clearly when he built this. He felt his old friend was trying to leave a secret message for someone. Frey easily answered the third question correctly, and the door clicked open. The fourth one was basically a breeze, too. Walking side by side, Isabel was completely stunned. She couldn't believe they had cleared 4 rooms that incredibly fast. But Frey thought it was super weird. None of the questions were about magic, just odd personal memories. Still, Isabel thought he was way weirder for knowing every single answer. Before long, they reached the next door. Old Schweizer calmly announced this was the very last one. Seeing his friend looking so ancient really shook Frey. Standing there, the Phantom felt exactly like the best friend he'd missed for ages. Then, without hesitation, the name Lucas Trauman left his mouth. Just for a second, Frey thought he was actually recognized. The old man said his greatest pride in life was calling Lucas his dear friend. Frey fired back that he was proud to be Schweizer's friend too. Out of everyone, Schweizer had always meant the most to him. Isabel could only stare, totally confused by this bizarre exchange. Old Schweizer just waited calmly. You see where this is going? He asked the final question. What was Schweizer Stroh's real name? Everything clicked. Every single question was something literally only Lucas Trauman would know. Staring straight ahead, Frey revealed the true name, Schweizer Wilsman. Isabel just couldn't understand how he knew all this. But the old man smiled with pure pride. The final door opened, and he told Lucas to step inside. Everything was prepared specifically for him. Desperate Frey begged his friend's phantom to stay. Before fading, Schweizer asked Lucas to take care of absolutely everything for him. Frey reached out to stop him, but it was too late. Meanwhile, Isabel was struggling to process this crazy reveal. The legendary great sage Schweizer had literally just called Frey by the name Lucas. Honestly stunned, the two stepped inside. Unlike the other dusty areas, this felt like a warm, cozy bedroom. Digging through a chest, Frey finally found his target. It was a flask holding some crystal-clear liquid. When he casually called it the frozen river, Isabel almost passed out. This legendary potion from Laman's cave only formed a single drop every 1,000 years. It instantly supercharged a person's inner mana. One single drop could boost a totally normal person into a 4th-grade mage. Isabel was mind-blown. She thought the frozen river was just a myth. And if Frey was going to hit the 7th grade, he absolutely needed that exact elixir. Super curious now, she started digging through the rest of the chest. She spotted a pair of wildly colorful earrings. The second Frey saw them, his entire face froze. Isabel thought they looked tacky, but Schweizer had guarded them in this chest for ages. And trust me, Frey made those typhoon earrings himself. Isabel was totally stunned. He actually crafted something epic enough to sit in this final room. 4,000 years ago, he made those exact items and handed them to Schweizer. He honestly had no clue his buddy kept them all this time. Her face turned dead serious, demanding to know what he meant. Frey looked at her, debating if it was finally time to drop the ultimate truth bomb. After a tiny pause, he decided to spill everything. Isabel waited, holding her breath. Finally, Frey Blake just straight up admitted he was Lucas Trauman. 4,000 years ago, he and Schweizer rebelled against the demigod lord. His punishment, trapped in absolute endless darkness. Then one day a voice pierced right through that void. It was Frey Blake desperately begging for power. He still has no idea how their minds magically synced up, but he heard the call loud and clear. Frey Blake literally gave him this physical body. Isabel just stood there completely speechless, trying to process this insane lore drop. Her eyes drifted, mind working overtime. She had to ask, was he actually messing with her? The story sounded completely absurd, but somehow she completely believed him. Crazy, right? But it explained everything. Looking at those earrings, you and I can see it all finally clicking into place. She instantly dropped to one knee, greeting Lord Lucas, and respectfully offered the earrings back. He watched her, then grabbed the typhoon earrings. Getting down to her eye level, he told her to keep calling him Frey and just help him win. He needed her to act completely normal. With just a single candle lighting up the room, Frey honestly looked thrilled to have his classic gear back. Meanwhile, Isabel dug into the chest again and pulled out a sensory amplifier. Frey explained these items were pure Schweizer originals. That wasn't just a bracelet, it was a scepter, the great sage, basically used as an extra limb. Use it wrong and it drains all your mana until you drop dead. Frey casually slapped it on his wrist and activated it anyway. He threw on the typhoon earrings too. Boom, raw energy exploded through his veins. Isabel was absolutely blown away by Lucas Trauman's real power. The stat boost was totally off the charts. Magic tools weren't usually his vibe, but a gift from his best bro. Exceptional. Digging a little deeper, Isabel scored something else. She was holding a legit mana golem core. Eventually, she shoved all the epic loot straight into Frey's bag. Then they turned their attention back to Schweizer's dusty old desk. They spotted an eternal mana candle there, just another one of his incredibly extra inventions. Isabel noted the room's whole vibe proved how much Schweizer loved Lucas. Frey carefully cracked open a diary resting on the desk. What he read literally froze him in shock. Now, watch closely. The page marked the exact day Lucas vanished. And guess what? Schweizer already suspected the demigod lord. Schweizer knew deep down that only Lord had the power to erase Lucas completely. He documented every single disaster after Lucas vanished. The brutal clash between Kasajin the Magic Warrior King and Lucid the Sword King, plus Iris randomly disappearing too. Demigod influence was spreading like wildfire across the whole continent, forcing Schweizer into complete paranoia mode. Even the people praising him secretly wanted the poor sage dead. His diary was packed with endless brutal life-or-death battles. Lucas read about the absolute crushing isolation his best friend had to survive. To the whole world, Lucas Trauman was the irreplaceable boss. The harder Schweizer tried to fill those legendary shoes, the more obvious that terrible truth became. Listening to this tragic backstory, Isabel was literally fighting back her tears. Despite giving it everything, Schweizer penned a heartbreaking apology for ultimately failing. Reading those exact words absolutely shattered our hero's heart. Tears welling up, Lucas just couldn't stomach the fact that his greatest friend suffered through that living nightmare totally alone. Standing beside him, the girl desperately tried to find some way to comfort him. After his own miserable life, Frey completely understood that suffocating heavy isolation. Then with pure determination he vowed to carry that heavy burden and will himself. Eyes burning with pure rage, he swore to annihilate every last demigod. Frey went totally quiet after that, but Isabel suddenly noticed something super weird in the diary. There was one hidden page left. It commanded whoever found it to fully complete Anastasia. Schweizer hid all his life's work inside Anastasia, his ultimate masterpiece. Isabel was super confused, but Frey was already digging wildly through his bag. He yanked something out and both of them just stared. It was Schweizer's absolute pride and joy, Anastasia. Crystals lit their path out of there. Climbing the stairs, they chatted about that mysterious gem, which was actually a high-tier golem core. Schweizer was a legendary puppet master, but honestly, even Frey had zero clue what Anastasia really was. Suddenly, Isabel had a massive lightbulb moment. She asked if he could actually finish building the golem with that core. Nostalgia hit hard, making Frey stop on the stairs. His mind instantly flashed back to the good old days. He pictured a super clunky golem with a hilarious blocky design. Schweizer was cracking up, calling Lucas's golem absolute trash and telling him to rebuild it. You and I both know, true best friends roast each other. He joked he could build a better one without his hands. Alright, you and I are diving right in. Annoyed by the endless teasing, young Lucas literally blasted a fireball right into his laughing face. Alright, let's dive right back into the madness. Brushing off that weird memory, Frey pulled another item out. Decoding this could reveal the lost history. Confused, Isabel asked what he meant. He broke it down. The lost history covered everything from when Lucas Trauman got locked in the abyss, but halfway up the stairs he completely froze. His expression screamed trouble, making the girl behind him ask why they stopped. He barked an order: sprint to the village the second they exit. Outside, hungry dragons were already circling the sky. Hitting the mountaintop, the tension was suffocating. Pure fear washed right over Isabel's face. The Dragon King himself was waiting. Lucas stared the beast down, completely unfazed. The smart, massive creature glared right back, totally ready to brawl. Smirking, Frey actually asked if the king had been waiting for him. Amused by this wild disrespect, the dragon roared. He claimed he had been waiting since this kid stepped into Great Torkunda's turf, so the monster sensed them way back in the forest. To Isabel, Frey actually sounded a little nervous. Now watch closely, things get crazy here. It bared its huge fangs, waiting for them to leave, knowing humans always carry shiny treasure. That triggered Frey's memory of the frozen river. Torkunda was using the dungeon to trap humans and level up. Schweizer's most prized location was just a buffet for this greedy, overgrown lizard. Annoyed, Frey bluntly stated Torkunda needed a lesson. That completely threw the beast off. It just stared at him in pure shock. Frey drew a line: attack the girl, and he dies. Narrowing its eyes, Torkunda growled that he really hated the look in Frey's eyes. Before the absolute chaos kicked off, Frey told Isabel to run for her life. But knowing his victory was uncertain, she stubbornly refused. To the monster, these two looked like a premium 5-star meal. Charging up raw power in its jaws, it declared dinner time. Frey immediately gripped Schweizer's legendary staff. He threw up a magic wall, launching a counterattack. It barely scratched Torkunda, and worse, Isabel was still frozen in the crossfire. Playing the bad guy, Frey snapped that she was useless and blocking his way. Tears instantly filled her eyes. Heartbroken, she finally turned and ran, promising to return fast. Meanwhile, Torkunda charged up a massive blast, spitting a literal wall of flames at Frey. Frey dodged, shooting up in the sky. But looking back, the beast was right there. Flapping its massive wings, the monster gave chase. Frey threw spells mid-air, but with his weak stamina, he barely dodged the next strike. Then things got worse. A whole squad of smaller dragons blocked his path. Combining the earrings and staff, he summoned jagged ice spears, dumping his mana into a windstorm. Those poor dragons had zero clue. Boom, the frozen blast hit completely, shredding the entire group mid-air. Some got sliced cleanly in half, others severely mangled. Frey just watched them drop like flies. I know what you are thinking, the minions do not matter. To win, he has to slay the leader. Torkunda furiously charged back in. Frey needed exactly 3 seconds to cast his explosion spell, but that dragon was closing the distance insanely fast. Still, the magic was ready. The timing lined up perfectly for a blinding light trigger. A massive explosion ripped through the sky, swallowing the giant dragon in roaring flames. Frey anxiously watched the smoke. It was a genius, heavy-hitting move. Even the beast was shocked. Frey used its own momentum, but raw skill just was not enough here. Smug as hell, the king laughed that the spell just tickled. Frey realized he was totally screwed. Torkunda up front, and a massive swarm of angry dragons closing in from behind. Trapped survival looked basically impossible. His only lifeline was that crazy frozen river elixir. He remembered Isabel asking why he wouldn't drink it. Well, it was not some casual potion. Taming that power takes a whole week, and chilling in a dangerous forest without food or water. Yeah, nope. Drinking it was straight up suicide. He had to rely on his current strength alone. Scanning the chaotic sky, he desperately searched for the king. He spotted the danger way too late. Torkunda lunged jaws wide to swallow him whole. Inches from those fangs, it looked like game over. Suddenly, something insanely powerful slammed into the Dragon King. At first, Frey had zero clue who saved him. She mercilessly struck every single dragon nearby, literally grabbing some by the throat. No way was she letting anyone touch Frey Blake, her savior. With one epic rush, she dropped two smaller dragons. The fiery bird blazed with life. She gave Frey a look of pure respect, but the worst problem remained. So what do you and I make of this crazy cliffhanger? Frey was totally shaken with no escape plan. He begged the outmatched Phoenix to run, but she was already charging up her ultimate power. Stick with me. As she charged, Torkunda unleashed his absolute maximum power. Boom, the beasts collided hard. But Torkunda just laughed it off. Frey realized this massive dragon was basically immune to fire damage. Literally the worst matchup for a firebird. Panicking, Frey practically screamed at her to fly away. But this fiery chicken wasn't scared at all. She knew the deal and was totally stalling for him. Her glowing eyes screamed at him to run while he could, but running away, not Lucas Trauman's style. Sadly, his current body was just pathetic and super weak. He couldn't just blame his noodle arms or complain about how magic had totally downgraded over the last 4,000 years. The real issue, he lacked guts. Muttering a quick sorry to the bird, he realized he owed her big time. Following her lead, he scrambled back into the cave. Whatever happened next, this near-death experience was a wake-up call he would never forget. Death was just part of the job. Begging the bird to stall, he chugged the legendary frozen river potion. He tossed the empty bottle. Instantly, his body started morphing. His face cramped up in agony, eyes bulging and turning super dark. Bam, his hair bleached pure white. Pure agony ripped through his fragile bones as the potion's crazy power finally kicked in. His eye color shifted completely as he ripped out a blood-curdling scream. Wild energy exploded from his body. Watch closely because this violent potion upgrade is about to get completely insane. Outside, Torkunda finally recognized this bird as the divine snack that escaped him earlier. Today, he was definitely putting it on the menu. The running mage looked tasty, sure, but Phoenix energy was top-tier cuisine. Roaring with anger, memories of their last epic fight flooded back. From the mountaintop, Torkunda watched the little Phoenix desperately struggling. He really wanted that majestic creature for dinner. But even totally battered, the bird refused to quit. Burning her very last drop of energy, she fired off an ultimate attack. A massive inferno swallowed everything, but the dragon knew fighting back was useless. Then he blinked, and the spicy chicken was totally gone. But hey, the Dragon King was patient. He knew his dinner would eventually return. Back to the present, deafening crashes shook the entire forest, snapping massive trees like toothpicks. The Phoenix got blasted deep into the woods. Completely battered, it was running on empty. Grounded near the waterfall, it was totally paralyzed. Frey instantly knew it fought an absolute monster. Those sad little eyes were totally begging for a revive. Seeing it suffer like that, Frey swore to save it. Honestly, this triggered major déjà vu. His old buddy used to be just as proud as this bird. Fueled by those memories, the Phoenix literally forced itself back up to fight the boss. It charged, aiming sharp claws right at his ugly face, but Torkunda just growled at the pest and swatted it away with a massive tail whip. Its painful screech echoed everywhere. Meanwhile, back in the cave, Frey was having an absolute nightmare trying to tame that icy potion. You know that feeling, when you completely underestimate the difficulty spike. Groaning in pain, he mentally apologized for totally wasting his respawn. He knew his arrogant gamer pride had completely ruined everything. He had 0 mana left to absorb it, and 0 willpower to survive. But wait, suddenly a cozy, warm aura wrapped around him, slowly restoring his health. Isabel was right there, pumping her own magic into him. She literally fetched snacks and water just to help him survive the icy upgrade. Suddenly it clicked. She ran all the way to town just for his sake. Sounding super depressed, she mumbled about being totally abandoned. For the first time ever, our guy finally understood what pure loneliness actually felt like. Having an absolute existential crisis, she confessed he was her only friend. Boom, Frey realized he definitely couldn't play the solo lone wolf card anymore. Barely able to keep herself alive, she was still hard carrying him. Right before the freezing ice swallowed him, he flashed a smile and said thanks. That is when the huge realization hit him. It was not about being brave or stubborn. It was all about trust. Outside, those two massive beasts were still throwing hands, absolutely refusing to yield. Suddenly, the big lizard noticed something super weird. A seriously creepy freezing aura was leaking out everywhere. The fiery bird charged up absolutely everything for an ultimate strike. It launched itself like a missile, straight at the dragon. Bullseye on the eye, Torkunda went completely berserk, instantly retaliating by chomping his massive teeth right into the poor bird. Feathers went flying everywhere in this bloodbath. The dragon was completely mind-blown that a little bird actually managed to scratch his eyeball. Their collision caused massive earthquakes, flames erupting everywhere. Torkunda locked his deadly glare onto his prey. Back in the cave, Frey kept grinning like a maniac despite nearly dying. Suddenly, a gigantic crater cracked the earth, spewing out insane amounts of energy. That magical blast nailed Torkunta right in the face. Direct hit, but the boss didn't even flinch. Oh, so the big guy winds up for a counterattack. Dust clouded everything, and the monster finally realized he was actually in danger. Light exploding from the cave, the flying monsters noticed it. Trust me, you and I aren't ready for what steps out next. Stick with me here. Those beams completely froze them solid. The ice cracked, shattered, but Torkunta, still alive, circling the sky. For the very first time in thousands of years, the beast wanted to run. When that terrifying figure stepped out of the portal, Torkunta felt pure raw fear. He panicked, flying away without looking back, terrified of a mere human. Sure, the guy was stupidly strong, but a human is just a human, right? Even so, the dragon needed a breather until his eye fully healed up. But boom, suddenly Frey was literally standing on his wing, absolutely stunning the beast. He started blasting the monster with magic arrows. Torkunta screamed in pain as the crazy impacts hurled his massive body straight backwards. With magical weapons buried deep in his chest, the dragon went totally berserk. Torn full of holes, he ripped himself free, ready to launch a massive counterattack. But by that time, Frey had already vanished. Frey figured an ancient beast shouldn't rely on just one eye. Appearing right in the dragon's blind spot, he gathered massive ice power for another hit. Bam! A direct strike smashed Torkunta's good eye, making him furious. He hurled boulders at Frey, but they exploded into dust before even touching him. Laughing like a maniac, the beast bragged about his past wins. But honestly, his eyes showed nothing but fear. Without him, even noticing his tail began freezing solid. Then Frey casually strolled through the burning wreckage. Now, watch closely. Torkunta was seriously doubting his own eyes. He kept screaming, "Is this guy really a human?" Glaring down, the giant creature exhaled a long breath. Super annoyed, he demanded to know who his enemy actually was. Beating his massive wings, the dragon closed in. The pink-haired girl was terrified, but Frey calmly told her not to come any closer. Prepping another ice spell, Frey laughed. He mocked the dragon, asking if that was truly his strongest move. Torkunta opened his jaws, ready to end this. Any human with ice magic should get melted by that savage roar. Using fire, the dragon tried roasting him alive, but Frey easily held his ground and completely blocked it. The girl covered herself. The shockwave was so massive it shook the mountains as fire and ice violently exploded together. The monstrous roar kept growing stronger but couldn't break the ice wall. The dragon pushed ahead with everything he had. Shaking in fear, the girl genuinely thought Frey was about to lose to the crazy pressure. She could only watch helplessly. But wait, suddenly she realized Frey had completely disappeared from sight. Torkunta declared an easy victory, calling Frey a bug. But something felt totally off. A massive, sudden chill brushed right against the beast's neck. Frey had teleported behind him, cleanly slicing off Torkunta's head with an ice blade. Game over. You saw that too, right? The massive dragon crashed down dead in an absolute instant. Staring at the massive body, she realized Frey had just soloed an ancient beast and wasn't even using his full power. But then, he started falling from the sky. Dropping like a rock, the girl barely caught him in time. She noticed right away that his skin was freezing cold. His only simple request was to be carried to the Phoenix. As they flew, she kept rambling about how absolutely legendary his fighting skills were. But Frey casually replied that the ancient dragon just lacked the battle experience to win. He explained that stepping on weak humans and fighting a real war are totally different. Raw strength is never enough against true monsters. His whole plan was tricking the dragon into thinking he went all out, using only 80% of his mana. That hidden 20% let him slip behind Torkunta and form an ice scythe. She admitted it was pure genius. Beautiful phoenix feathers were scattered everywhere. Frey looked on with pure sadness as heavy tears filled the girl's eyes. The legendary bird had already taken its final breath. Deeply grieving, he touched its glowing feathers and thanked it for saving his life. But wait, the phoenix began to glow again. Frey was actually going to revive it using his own power. Torkunta's massive corpse lay right next to it. The raw fire from the dragon's heart was getting pulled into the phoenix, giving it enough energy to fully revive. With Torkunta finally dead, the remaining valley dragons were totally going to slaughter each other for the throne. So the next boss needed to be the Phoenix. That way his buddy's dungeon would never face another Torkunta-level threat again. Leaving the valley to the fiery bird, Frey smiled, hoping they'd meet again. Meanwhile, back in Cow Symphony Village, things were super chill and peaceful. Villagers happily wandered through the bustling market. Frey just sat on a bench quietly reflecting on how crazy his new life had become. Suddenly, someone mentioned their new ship had been booked. Squeezing fresh juice, the girl noted that no ships were actually leaving today. Frey felt fine post-battle, though he definitely needed to bulk up a bit. The gear from the dragon's nest was super clutch, especially that awesome fire salamander cloak. She pointed at their spatial bag full of epic loot. Frey totally refused to let his old friend's treasures just rot away. The two sat peacefully in silence, sipping their fresh juice. And that's where we leave it. The journey felt so long, the new school semester feels like years away. Stick with me here, they had only spent a week in Hispaniola. The girl doubted visiting Lord Perron's house was smart, but with 0 ships leaving, they were stuck there another day anyway. When they finally reached the main gate, both of them were completely caught off guard. A guard immediately questioned their visit. Frey calmly asked if Perron was home, claiming they were friends. But the guard, thinking he was just some rude kid, strictly demanded his name. Flashing a calm smile, he answered Frey Blake. Suddenly, a memory of his old friend popped up. Perron had already warned them about the Blake family's 3rd son. If Frey ever visited, they must treat him with the same respect as their master. Hearing that name, the guard absolutely froze in pure shock. This guy was literally his master's only friend. Just then, a carriage rolled up. Another guard quickly announced the young lady had returned. Both of them turned watching the carriage. They waited patiently until the door opened and a young woman stepped down. This was Miss Lilia, and the guards immediately stiffened up. They nervously reported that the boy standing there claimed to be the young master's friend. Lilia studied him carefully. Her pale eyes, they held this quiet, lingering sadness. Flashing a smile, she mentioned her brother talked about Mr. Frey constantly. She even recognized the girl beside him as Miss Isabel. The red-haired girl was totally speechless from shock. Meanwhile, the young woman smoothly introduced herself as Lilia June Perron's younger sister. You catching this? Neither moves. Isabel is so absolutely stunned by Lilia's beauty that she literally forgets to breathe. Super embarrassed, the guard quickly explains they still had not officially confirmed the visitors' identities. Lilia shoots him a sharp look, making it crystal clear that extra formality isn't needed. He gets the message instantly. Saluting quickly, he apologizes for being rude. Then the sleek carriage rolls on toward the mansion. Even past the gates, this estate is so ridiculously huge, the main house isn't visible yet. Meanwhile, Lilia quietly studies this strange young man. She can't guess why he's staring so intensely. Frey notices, simply asking if she has something to say. Bluntly, she says he is nothing like her brother described, plus his hair is totally white, not gray. Pointing at his hair, Frey admits a lot happened during the trip. Lilia laughs, telling him to drop the formalities, so he instantly switches his tone. Naturally, Isabel scolds him for it. Lilia then asks what her brother was like back when they studied together. Frey admits he wouldn't know much since Perron was 2 years older. Smirking, Lilia points out that Frey isn't much older than she is. Meanwhile, Isabel urges him to act more polite, reminding him they are guests inside the prestigious June family's home. Soon, they reach the massive mansion. The carriage unloads them right near a grand fountain. Perron is already chilling in the garden. Smiling, he greets Frey, saying he's been waiting forever. The two instantly fall right back into easy laughter and super friendly banter. Perron quickly notices Frey's new hair color. Looking worn out, Frey just groans that he is starving. Lilia keeps noticing the difference. Honestly, she had never seen her brother smile this openly before. Cutting in, she complains that her brother always ignores her. Perron just walks over, teasingly calling her his princess, which only makes her furious. He literally had not noticed her until that exact moment. Annoyed, she just spins around and storms right into the mansion. You agree with Frey here, right? Perron sighs about Lilia's anger, but Frey finds it way weirder that he shamelessly calls his own sister princess. Heading inside, their chat quickly shifts to Frey's upcoming highly anticipated trip to the dangerous Hispania Mountains. Perron asks if he rescued his fiancée, confusing Frey completely. Isabel steps in, explaining he means Miss Sonia. Frey is super relieved hearing Sonia made it back safely. Through pure effort, she'd been training non-stop, earning the epic title Storm at a crazy young age. Her sword skills were outstanding. She was tough with the powerful arms to prove it. Joking around, Frey smirks and says it is a total waste for a girl like her to end up with Perron. Perron reminds him guests must greet the family head first. They stop at a massive door, finally ready to meet his dad. Inside, the room screams wealth. Even the simple teacups and silverware look incredibly refined and elegant. Everyone is seated waiting for the meal. Two blonde boys trade glances. Lilia eats cake while the woman beside her sips a hot drink. Another woman keeps pouring tea. The family head calls it a pleasure meeting. Frey then asks about Count Blake. Frey just laughs, saying he's doing great. But privately, he figures this guy has probably never even met Frey's real dad anyway, especially since he's only borrowing this body. The mood instantly tightens as every single eye turns toward the imposing patriarch. Shepherd June leads the family. He is one of the Empire's 5 elite 7-star mages, plus the master of the 4th magic tower. Frey naturally wonders if this powerhouse knows anything about the demigod. Sipping his tea, Shepherd notes the 6th magic tower is incredibly far away. Because of that distance, he only met Count Blake once a year at tower gatherings. He sighs, saying he really misses the meaningful time they spent together. Here's where we leave it. Frey studies the facial mark, absolutely sure it is Schweizer's one and only magical tattoo. Let's jump back in. Shepherd is super grateful. Frey saved his son and the fiancé, but then he asks why visit the Hispania Mountains anyway. Frey plays it cool. He just brushes it off as some minor personal business, totally not worth the patriarch's time. Shepard actually lets it slide. He shifts gears entirely, asking how the upcoming banquet preparations are looking. Perron promises everything is perfectly on track. He's stepping up to handle the VIP guests himself for future experience. He politely bows, accepting the job. Then Shepard looks right back at Frey. He casually mentions researching a new spell and asks for Frey's personal take on it. Frey acts hesitant, claiming his skills are way too basic to help. But Shepard insists he just wants a young mage's fresh perspective. Frey sits back, waiting for the catch. Perron excuses himself to check the banquet hall, and Frey sends Isabel to help him out. Suddenly, it is just the two of them alone at the table. Shepard drops the act, calling him Frey Blake. Frey stares right back. Shepard's eyes literally change color, demanding to know his real motive. He presses hard for answers. Frey tenses up inside a single drop of sweat, sliding right down his cheek. Watch closely here. Shepard glares, demanding to know why the Trauman rings infiltrated his home. Frey plays dumb, claiming there must be some massive mistake. Shepard calls him out for using Perron, and for arrogantly flashing that item. That is the exact moment Frey realizes he is talking about the Typhoon earrings. Touching the jewel, Frey looks genuinely confused. He thought the Trauman rings was just Perron's school club. He denies everything, simply stating he picked up the earrings back in the Hispania Mountains. Now Shepard looks confused, asking if he really isn't in the group. Frey says nope. Perron invited him once, but he flat out refused because he hates joining factions. Shepard slams the table hard. He snaps that he is not talking about some pathetic school club. He pauses, mid-sentence, glaring sharply. He finally realizes Frey is just a wandering nobody. Looking a bit embarrassed, he tells Frey to relax. Frey just sits there lightly, mocking the ridiculous mix-up, which totally crushes the patriarch's ego. Still, Frey insists he only came to visit a friend. Shepard glares again, but Frey coldly repeats it. He is just here for a dear buddy. Meeting Shepard was never part of his plan. Meanwhile, the grand banquet gets its final magical touches. Seeing the tension fade, Shepard calms down. He doesn't fully trust Frey yet, but he is willing to reconsider. First, though, he needs solid answers about Frey's hidden past. He asks who truly rules this continent. Among human nations, the Caste Cow Empire is easily the absolute strongest, even though they only control a tenth of the land. Frey silently agrees. If the world's total power was 10 fingers, humanity barely holds onto 3. He knows about the other rulers, the hidden godlike beings secretly pulling the strings from the shadows. I know what you're thinking. And yes, Shepard says the exact same thing. The demigods. That name shocks Frey, but Shepard keeps talking, describing these insane divine beings as the real predators hunting human society. Sounds like absolute madness, right? But Frey knows they are real. He nervously smiles, remembering the 5 legendary heroes who once fought the demigods. After 4,000 years, he honestly thought the demigods took over completely, and everyone forgot the dark truth. But people like Shepard still exist, and their numbers are growing. People who know about demigods refuse to give up. Extremely confused, Shepard demands to know why he is smiling. For the first time since waking up, Frey feels real hope. He admits he knows about the demigods, but he warns Shepard to chill out, unsure if they are actually allies yet. He keeps his true identity hidden, especially since Shepard claims to have read the great Schweizer's personal notes. Hearing this makes Shepard absolutely furious, but Frey does not flinch. They lock eyes in pure silence. After cooling off, Shepard begs Frey to share his hidden knowledge. He admits they know almost nothing about demigods, not even fully sure they actually exist today. All they know is these monsters are strong enough to wipe out all life on Earth. Frey feels so relieved. Shepard at least gets that crucial part. There can't be many left, probably under 100 total. But even one is basically walking mass destruction. Then Frey starts a story from 4,000 years ago, when 5 epic heroes rose against the demigods. Schweizer, the Great Sage, Kasajan, the Magic Warrior King, Lucid, the Sword King, Iris, the Black Witch, and Lucas Trauman, the Great Mage. But when the Great Mage vanished, history completely changed. The Warrior King and Sword King totally split up. The Black Witch erased every single trace of herself. Only the Great Sage fought to the bitter end, but he couldn't solo the demigods. That is how they became legends. The two just keep staring across the tense table. You and I both know Shepard holds secrets completely missing from modern history. Alright, stick with me here. He claims his group inherited those heroes' will, but honestly, they are totally split up everywhere. That legacy eventually shattered. Now they just keep each other in check. Frey figures this mess always happens when 3 or more people team up. It all turns into politics. The heavy hitters, Stro necklaces, Fizz founder bracelets, and Lucid swords. Frey realizes these factions are using their names, sure, but he still has zero clue what actually happened to Kassadin or Lucas. Shepard drops some bad news. The Trauman rings are barely surviving, and their leader might already be dead. As for Cassidon's title, the magical warrior king is passed down to just one person. Problem is, nobody knows where that heir is hiding. Even though they share a name, that powerful circle has absolutely zero connection to the Academy Club. Shepard explains the student club was just built on a total whim. Whenever they spot talented students, they secretly recruit them. Honestly, having dummy groups with the exact same name makes perfect cover to stay hidden. Handing Frey some wine, Shepard admits the demigod's spies could be anywhere. Right then, Frey realizes someone might actually be listening to them right now. Shepard just assumed Frey was loyal to the Trauman rings. Why? Because of those typhoon earrings, Lucas's legendary relic. Wrapping up, he says that is all he can share. Then, staring with pure curiosity, he directly asks Frey how he got those earrings. Frey keeps it vague, claiming he just found them in the Espana Mountains. Rumors claimed Schweizer's relics were hidden there, but nobody ever found them. The main reason was actually incredibly simple. Almost nobody knew the dungeon's location. Plus, Torkunta guarded the entrance. Dodging the question, Frey just says he got lost in some unknown area. Just pure luck, he stumbled right into Schweizer's dungeon. Shepard puts it together. The notes Frey mentioned must be from there too. Meaning, the kid already knew almost everything he just told him. Getting super impatient, Shepard pushes for more details. But he's totally disappointed when Frey just shrugs it off as an accident. Now pay close attention here. Still super suspicious, he challenges Frey to actually prove what those typhoon earrings can do. Frey calmly puts down his glass. Boom, the earrings explode with bright, powerful energy. After the flex, he asks Shepard for his thoughts. Shepard stays quiet, shuts his eyes, and admits this isn't the worst outcome. But there's a much bigger reason to doubt this boy. Cut to the fully lit mansion. The banquet is in full swing, with guests happily eating, drinking, and chatting away. Frey rolls in, rocking a sharp black suit. Finding an ally who knows about the demigod was great, but things are definitely getting way harder. The absolute worst part, learning those circles took up that heroic will only to immediately split apart and fight each other. He still has to track down the circle leader, figure out the frozen river's power, and finally finish building Schweizer's golem. Frey knows his problems are piling up fast. Honestly, dodging attention up until now might have just been pure dumb luck. Someone asks what he's thinking about. Smiling, the girl brags Lady Lilia made her dress just for her. Frey mutters that it must be nice living with zero thoughts. He frowns, and the clueless girl completely misses the insult. He stays quiet, takes a sip, and recalls an earlier chat. Back at the Magic Tower conference a month ago, a crazy report claimed someone had contacted the demigod. That got Frey's full attention. We all saw this coming, right? The guy hesitated, but Frey demanded the truth. The one contacting the demigod, Frey Blake, his own father. Back at the party, someone mentions Sir Patrick's sword skills rival the famous Luanable Kingdom warriors. Frey spots the flatterer. It's Gusbar, who just scored an invite to the Deerstay banquet. He was super easy to use. Just stroke his ego a bit and he crumbles. Thanks to that idiot, Frey snagged his own invitation. The plan is working perfectly. Standing by a table with a cold drink, he casually watches the room and some pretty girls. Then something weird catches his eye. He looks at two people talking in a corner and recognizes one. Suddenly, a voice says she finally found him. It is Miss Sonia, looking stunning in a white dress. With Isabel beside her, she approaches Frey. Isabel notices his strange expression. Pointing at Sonia, Frey tells Isabel that is what he calls truly beautiful. They start bickering right in front of Sonia. Once they settle down, Frey asks if she needed something. She lowers her head and says nothing, creating a painfully awkward silence. Frey quickly offers her a drink. Right then, Gusbar struts over with the smuggest smile ever, but honestly, Frey does not even remember who he is. Frey wonders if this is some new idiot, then freezes. The man just called him the Blake family trash. Gusbar grins, waiting for a reaction. Frey immediately realizes he's dealing with a total idiot. Gusbar scoffs, completely surprised that trash like him made it into this banquet. For a low-tier noble like Gusbar, getting invited was hard enough. This party is where top elites trade secrets and real influence. Trust me, we're pausing here. He keeps whining Frey made the academy when he completely failed. Alright, let's jump right in. Frey is super annoyed and orders the guy out of his sight. The girl teases him for using that exact cliché line. Gusbar snaps back, yelling that Frey is just an arrogant lunatic who cannot speak to him like that. But then his eyes drift over to the two girls standing nearby. He knew Perron always had gorgeous women at his parties, but these two were next level. Why on earth were they hanging out with absolute trash like Frey? Frey completely ignores him. Gusbar just assumes he is trying to play it cool. Suddenly, three men approach asking if there is a problem. One is Sir Patrick. He immediately checks out the girl and introduces himself as Sir Patrick of the Deersta family. Gusbar gets totally annoyed that Patrick is hitting on his target. The girl introduces herself as Sonia Aquaride. That name shocks one of the guys. He figures this foreigner has no clue what kind of total loser Frey actually is. He decides to clear things up. Sonia was the eldest daughter of House Aquaride and literally held the fierce title of Storm. He steps up apologizing for not recognizing Lord Perron's supposed fiancée right away. Sonia turns and coldly says nothing is official yet. He ignores that claiming Frey Blake is completely unworthy of her precious attention. Now, watch closely. Patrick realizes this is the infamous Frey and with a smug smile says he knows his brothers. They are the magic tower mages Michel and Heinz. Frey just calls Michel becoming floor master totally useless. Patrick keeps running his mouth. He says he totally gets why Count Isaka kicked Frey out. They can't possibly share the same blood. Absolutely furious, Sonia steps right up to defend Frey. She claims no one here even compares to him and demands a straight apology. The guy immediately refuses, thinking it is a joke. He laughs, saying nobody invites worthless trash to a high-class banquet. His friends crack up and Gusbar absolutely loves it. Just then, Perron quietly walks up and asks if they somehow offended someone. He drops a bomb. Frey's invitation came directly from him. The guys freeze. Perron steps right up to Sir Patrick, sarcastically apologizing since he didn't know he needed the Dearsta family's permission to invite his friends. Then he casually declares Frey his most valuable guest. Watching them panic, he tells them to enjoy. Gusbar tries to sneak off, but Perron grabs him. He whispers that outside this party he would be dead. Terrified, the men scramble away, spitting out apologies. The gang watches them run. You and I both know Frey is ruthless. He and Perron trade playful insults while the two girls burst into laughter. The party rolls on. Frey just listens as Perron calls him incredibly weird. Holding his drink, Frey thinks it over. If people saw what he did on the Cortez, nobody would call him trash anymore. But flexing his power just wasn't his style. Instead, he asks about Perron's family meeting. Perron mentions the suspicion that Frey is connected to the Trauman rings. Frey stays completely silent. Perron raises his glass, asking if Frey will join his club. That was never the plan. Remembering their chat, Frey asks who actually confirmed his secret identity. He is totally shocked to hear the name Heinz Blake. Heinz, his own second brother, was a Stro Necklaces member, just like Perron's dad. Despite their horrible family history, Heinz left a clue. He was way different from Isaka and Michel. Heinz had another reason for agreeing to Frey's exile, but Perron cannot say much more right now. Frey declares he is never returning to the academy, which completely shocks Isabel from afar. Frey catches her staring but keeps his mouth shut. She is super worried about him leaving. The Duke actually told him to join the third magic tower for its massive library of books. Frey notices Isabel acting really weird tonight. Later on, she wanders alone down the dark halls. She knows they part ways tomorrow. Frey hits the tower and she heads back to school. Ever since finding out he was the legendary Lucas Trauman, she knew this exact day was coming. She has no idea what to study anymore to become a real mage. Completely lost, she cannot figure out her next move. Suddenly a door opens. Someone asks if Frey leaves tomorrow. He says yes, thanking him for the awesome banquet. He admits Perron's name really carries some serious fame and status. Frey jokes his friend might actually be the June family's once-in-a-century genius. Sensing mana at age 5 is no exaggeration, and he isn't even boasting. That is where we leave it. Trust me, you need to see what comes next. Alright, stick with me here, because Frey is genuinely impressed. He and Schweizer only sensed mana at age 7, but by 17 Perron hit stage 4, even though official records claim he was 20. That little gap in the timeline, highly suspicious to Frey. Opening up, Perron finally drops his guard. With a completely shattered voice, he confesses that his insane talent actually feels like a curse. The guys just stand there. Frey stays completely quiet while Perron stares at the ground, gathering his thoughts. He talks about his old mentor, this skinny stage 6 mage. The guy was vice master of the 5th magic tower and an absolute genius. Every time Perron asked a question, the guy just smiled warmly and patted his head. He adored that feeling, pushing himself to study harder just to ask more. That mentor literally sparked his entire passion for magic. But that was a total illusion. Sadness floods his face. Right after hitting stage 4, he asked a question his master just could not solve. The master lost his mind, blowing up and calling him a freak. Perron only remembers that pure, unfiltered terror on the man's face. The mentor watched his terrifying growth, and eventually, that hidden panic just violently spilled over. From then on, Perron was lost. He loved magic, but whenever he went too deep, that disgusted, terrified face flashed back and instantly froze him. Day after day, he absolutely hated his own gift. Sobbing, he wishes he was just average learning magic normally. Maybe then no one would ever look at him like a total monster. Frey calmly rests a hand on his shoulder, but Perron just breaks down, letting all that pain out. Now pay attention, because here things shift. Frey tells him to stop whining and listen carefully. Some people are absolute anomalies. They stand at the absolute summit. If one pathetic teacher broke his spirit this easily, he will never reach the peak of magic. Perron tunes in. Frey drops a heavy promise the next time they cross paths he will be in a totally different league. So Perron better catch up. The boy freezes. He thinks about the demigod for a second, and Frey realizes he already knows it is real. Frey does not back down. The demigod is an evil entity controlling everything, completely warping the rules of reality. But honestly, humans share the blame. We totally failed to see our own chains. Still, humanity can smash those chains and fix the world if they keep fighting. Frey says only humans can actually pull this off. If Paran just wants a cozy tower job to flex his shiny talent, fine by him. But Frey is aiming for the absolute peak to crush the demigod. He wants that final stage. So he demands to know Paran's real goal. Paran sits there quietly, letting out a heavy sigh. Meanwhile, outside, the girl secretly listens through the cracked door. She always prayed her friend would defy his strict family and finally carve his own path. She basically envisions two absolute legends. Frey taps his shoulder, claiming he will always stay ahead. Paran fires back one last time next time he is taking the lead. Smirking, Frey says that is exactly what real friends do. Hearing this, she walks off crying. It is just way too much emotional damage. The very next morning, gray clouds roll in. Frey is waiting outside, packed up. Perfect gloomy weather for traveling. Suddenly, a voice asks if he is actually abandoning his baggage. It is the girl hauling a massive backpack. Frey looks visibly confused, wondering what baggage she means. I know what you are thinking, the audacity, she reminds him he called her, useless baggage. Now she is pushing her magic to the absolute limit. So yeah, she is tailing the greatest mage alive instead of wasting time with boring academy professors. Frey warns she will regret this. She totally ignores him, marching forward and declaring she would follow him into hell. Frey just flashes a tiny smirk. Then the newly formed duo calmly hits the road. Soon enough, rumors of their alliance explode. Lord Michael gets word that these two are suspiciously close friends now. Sir Patrick reports Frey was the VIP at the banquet, but Michael barely even flinches. Patrick nervously babbles on, but Michael literally could not care less about his little brother making new buddies. Finally, he just kicks the night out. Though he does admit Paran liking Frey is super weird. Turning to Heinz, he asks for input. Heinz shrugs. They share an academy, so it makes sense. Michael stands up. He figures their father needs to hear this intel. He struts right out, leaving Heinz totally alone. Heinz watches him leave, then stares into the distance, casually gripping some super weird artifact. Frey reveals Duke Shepard handed it over. It is the literal golden ticket to test for his inner circle. She figures joining up is the smartest way to research the demigod. Honestly, Isabel had zero clue who that was before. She knew nothing about the legendary 5 heroes either. History class just called them some old grandmasters. So, what do you and I take from this? The demigod is real. As Frey says, the absolute worst kind of control is completely invisible. Anyone trapped by this thing completely loses their free will and their whole future. Humanity basically turned into happy slaves fighting for fake wins. But stick with me here, he gives her one major warning before they move on. He never actually lost to the demigod, he's just taking the scenic route to winning. Soon enough, they pull up to this absolutely massive tower. Isabel is completely mind-blown seeing a magic tower up close. Meanwhile, Frey's got a whole 6 months before he can officially join the circle. Until then, he's stuck stabilizing that frozen river energy and grinding hard to get his legendary stats back. Looking around hits him right in the feels. He calls it his original magic training ground. Suddenly, a group of figures starts walking their way. They hear the footsteps coming. They totally look like cloaked magical beings. They stop right next to them, revealing themselves as dark elves. Apparently, elves and dwarves get a free pass to roam human territories. That completely shocks Frey. Yeah, he read about it at the academy, but compared to 4,000 years ago, this is a massive plot twist. Back in his day, the elves completely claimed the great northern jungle as their personal turf. One elf gives him a weird look and Frey stares right back. They walk past in silence. Man, this tower looks insanely huge up close. Inside, guys are grinding both physical combat and magic. The whole hall is absolutely packed with fighters. Isabel instantly drops to her knees to train super focused and used to the grind. But then some crazy fast movements catch her eye. It's Frey busting out ancient techniques. She literally can't look away from him. Rumors claim he just does this weird dance all day and everyone totally calls him a freak. Looks like a joke, right? But watch closely. Once Isabel gets it, she totally sees the key flow. There are insane, deadly moves hidden right inside that goofy dance. He hits way too fast to track, then glides right back to his starting stance like absolute liquid. That's no dance, it's top-tier martial arts. Meanwhile, some guy nearby just collapses onto the floor, tapping out and begging his opponent for mercy. The winner just stands over him. It's an elf roasting the human for being ridiculously weak, which is honestly pretty toxic after the dude surrendered. The dark elf woman asks if this is seriously the warrior Liamson was hyping up. Super embarrassed, the elf whispers a disagreement to his master. While helping the poor guy up, something weird catches his attention nearby. It's Frey still doing his bizarre routine. The elf locks right onto him. Isabel immediately realizes it's the exact same dark elf from outside the tower. He asks if Frey is a magic warrior. Frey just casually shrugs and says he's a mage. The elf isn't buying it at all since mages don't move like that. He points out Frey is human and our guy simply says just call me Frey. The elf introduces himself as Liamson. And literally a second later, he demands a fight with Frey. Frey is super confused by the random challenge. Liamson tries to explain it's not a real fight, he just forgot the exact word in human language. His master sighs and translates he means a duel. Next thing we know, all four of them are standing smack in the middle of the hall. The elf woman introduces herself as Camille and asks Isabel's name. She quickly apologizes, basically calling her companion a total annoying idiot. The elves start bickering in Elvish, leaving Isabel completely lost. Frey doesn't even care though. He smirks and says he's ready to throw down. Liamson is totally shocked a human can speak fluent Elvish. This guy is definitely built different. Frey fires back that seeing an elf learn human magic would be even cooler. Man, he sounds exactly like one of the grumpy elf elders. The whole hall gathers as the hype for a new duel builds. The dark elf drops into a super strange, highly complex fighting stance. He rushes Frey. A left kick easily blocked. You and I both saw his absolute shock right there, didn't we? Liamson starts swinging from every single angle using pure speed. These are silent shadow steps, totally relying on crazy fast footwork. He tries striking again, blocked. Then Frey busts out that weird dance and blasts Liamson to the floor with a single hit, though the elf barely catches his balance. Frey's fighting style feels more like a wild beast than a human. The duel just keeps escalating and neither is backing down. They both launch into the air for an aerial clash while the crowd watches in pure shock. The elves are absolutely stunned this white-haired human is matching Liamson, their future leader. Meanwhile, Frey starts ripping the air with sharp hand strikes. Liamson fires off another kick and they aggressively clash mid-air. Both land in a crouch, breathing heavily and just staring each other down. The elf master decides Frey definitely isn't a real magic warrior. His skinny build proves that. Still, her brain is short-circuiting trying to figure out how someone so slim blocked every single attack. Super frustrated, Liamson screams and rushes in for the ultimate finisher. The hits get even more brutal, but Camille is just absolutely amazed by Frey's flawless mana control. She finally calls off the fight. Completely breathless, the two guys actually start praising each other. Frey admits that in a bare-handed night brawl, Liamson would probably destroy him. But he also totally calls out Liamson for being rusty at close combat. The elf just cracks up laughing. So what do you and I make of this? A new ally during his magic tower stay. Let's dive into this wild ride together. Isabel hands Frey a tower pass and a fresh towel. He casually mentions he will crash there 6 months. Liamson, completely thrilled about it. Meanwhile, Camille is still super curious about this weird human, and as she moves, check out her earring. She instantly spots Frey's overpowered item. Frey notices her completely freeze up mid-sentence. Instead, she asks why he picked the third magic tower. Simple. They have way better books for his specific needs. He wants to craft a magic elixir. Everyone else is stunned he is casually chatting with the elf leader, but Frey just complains his books lacked answers. So the elf offers him access to the real magical library. But to read top-tier books, he needs to pass a test and get 3 floor masters to approve. Frey immediately asks when it starts. The earliest chance is tomorrow. Fast forward and the main hall is absolutely packed. Frey gets all the stares. Rumor says he fought a dark elf evenly, making everyone wonder why a magic warrior is even testing. Then someone shouts his name and they turn. Camille and Liamson showed up too. They brought bored friends along and Liamson really wants a rematch later. Suddenly, the doors swing wide. The 3 floor masters finally walk in. The guy right in the center, Michael, a massive big shot. Test 1 begins. First form an energy sphere. But here's what you and I must watch closely. Part 2, they have to compress that energy. Everyone follows instructions thinking the test is easy. Then Master Michael pulls something straight out from his sleeve. It is a tiny blue sphere. To pass, they must shrink their energy even smaller than his. Good luck. Hitting marble size is insanely hard. Time ticks by and many contestants fail completely. One guy sweats bullets trying to shrink his sphere but fails like everyone else. Too tiny. Isabel pushes herself to the absolute limit here. And boom, Michael announces she passes. Exhausted, she finally breathes. Next up, Michael locks eyes on someone else. That sphere is literally as small as physically possible. The dark elves ace it instantly. They score full permission to read the magic books. But then somebody questions another student. Frey hit an unbelievable level, but the guy beside him thought he quit. When Michael speaks, that dude is stunned. Eyes can fool you. Mana must be sensed. Frey shrank his sphere until it went totally invisible. Michael is seriously impressed by that. Spotting his earring, he just tells Frey to skip the rest of the exams entirely. He introduces himself as Frey Blake, 3rd son of the Blake family. Michael demands a private chat. Soon they are chilling in a bright room. Michael praises his insane skills. Hearing that Duke Shepard recommended him, the old man cuts right to the chase. Michael knows he hit stage 5. Frey was actually aiming for stage 7 but keeps his mouth shut. Staring outside, Michael asks if he knows about the demigods. Frey casually shows he knows a bit. Let that sink in for us. Michael reveals demigod traces and apostle signs were just found in Ushiano. Chosen by demigods and gifted with raw divine power, these apostles are a huge deal. Now absolute fanatics worldwide are flocking there. Frey is genuinely shocked. Nothing like this existed 4,000 years back. This falls under Michael and the Honorable Lucas. If left unchecked, entire cities could get wiped out, so they must investigate immediately. Michael invites Frey to join and he instantly agrees. The Master finds that slightly weird but super interesting. This is a crazy, dangerous mission. Normally, a kid would take at least a minute to think about it. Frey just asks why him. Rolling up his sleeve, Michael reveals a shiny relic of Iris claiming he represents the fist-pounder armlets. After demigods killed the master of the Trauman ring circle, the whole magic world plunged straight into total chaos. Those Tower Dark Elves were actually Blackteeth backup. That is exactly how Michael recognized our boy. A guy rocking typhoon earrings is hard to miss. Touching them, Frey realizes his old gear became super famous. After some prep time, he finally manages to study the deep energy of the frozen river. Then Michael asks why he needs the library. Frey says he is brewing an elixir and desperately needs alchemy knowledge. Impressed, the Master says books will not cut it. He points him toward a specific woman. Confused, Frey follows the lead anyway. He knocks and waits. A girl appears, so he introduces himself, claiming Lord Michael personally sent him here. Meet Professor Adelia, a genius from Westroad Academy. Inside, Frey notices her lifestyle is honestly pretty extreme. From her chair, she says to sit anywhere. Looking around, he spots wild magic study tools everywhere. Exhausted, she demands he explain his goal in exactly 5 words. Frey locks in and faces her. He demands a mana potion. Impressed by his speed, she gets curious, so he hands her a vial. And trust me, you and I will want to see what comes next. She inspects it immediately. You and I are about to see some insanely dense mana here. Frey starts explaining, but suddenly stops. Annoyed, the professor tells him to spit it out. He casually reveals it is a 1,000-year-old dragon heart with 100,000 mana, turning that into an elixir, pure madness. But her eyes absolutely light up, even though the required ingredients are completely ridiculous to find. He needs something practically impossible to get a literal phoenix feather. Bam. Frey casually drops one right on her desk. Do you need anything else? Totally stunned, she admits she has never seen one before. Next, she tells him to shrink down an energy sphere to the size of a grape. Frey does it flawlessly in seconds. With that done, these two maniacs start their wild alchemy experiments. Adelia starts seriously wondering who this guy actually is. She figures he must be from the Blake family. Frey does not ring a bell, but she definitely knows his older brothers. Sure, his knowledge seems a bit outdated, but his mana control and alchemy skills are absolute god tier. Someone this insanely talented, she can't believe he's a total nobody. Suddenly, Adelia completely loses it and grabs his collar. She looks ready to confess murder, but instead she literally begs him to be her personal assistant. She even promises top-tier pay, but he flat-out rejects her. Desperate, she offers exclusive top-secret production methods. But watch closely, you can totally tell she is already scheming other ways to trap him. Still sitting on the floor, another weird question hits her. Why exactly does this overpowered guy keep calling her professor? Frey drops the bomb that he is a Westroad Academy student. Her brain instantly shifts to blackmail. Bad grades, ruining his future, whatever it takes to recruit him. But before her evil plan starts, Frey casually mentions he dropped out. He suddenly realizes she knows how to build golems. Still on the floor, she asks if he is interested. Frey randomly guesses a 1 million mana core would do the trick. She just shrugs, calling that completely absurd. A core packing that much ridiculous power totally should not exist. Trying to control it, basically impossible. Plus, building that golem takes legendary level minerals and a painfully long process. Hearing this, Frey falls into deep thought. He remembers Schweizer's request to finally complete Anastasia. This made Schweizer's mission way harder than he originally expected. The professor starts nervously sweating. Does he actually have a 1 million mana core? She smiles awkwardly, stays quiet, then bluntly declares it completely impossible. Meanwhile, the dark elf is totally wiped out. He gets blasted through the air, smacks the ground, admits defeat, but hilariously blames it on pure luck. Suddenly, loud clapping and cheering breaks out. Right nearby, Isabel is busy teaching the elves energy compression. The master praises her super clear, easy-to-follow lessons. Walking over, Frey gets the good news, his legendary elixir finishes tonight. That means hitting the epic 7th stage is incredibly close, even if his ultimate journey is still far from over. Camille gets super curious hearing this. She randomly offers to teach them spirit magic, which is basically a cheat code for making future spirit contracts. Her only price, teaching human magic to her kids. Later, Frey meets up with Adelia, who confirms the crazy elixir is finally ready. Still, she is super nervous about him actually drinking the stuff. She basically begs him to back out while he still has a pulse. This elixir is absolute top tier, packing double the mana. Honestly, we both know drinking this might actually melt his bones. Frey thinks that sounds absolutely perfect. Adelia is speechless. Shrugging, she says, whatever, just do not haunt her as a ghost when he dies. To say thanks for the help, he drops an epic gift, the legendary Edis necklace. Classic anime logic, she instantly starts yelling, assuming he is aggressively flirting. But Frey calmly explains the item just boosts her focus and magical concentration. She absolutely refuses to believe him. Frey is totally stunned, accepting he will never understand how women's brains work. His window is completely boarded up. Inside the dark room, Frey grabs his bag, pulls out several magical stones and tosses them everywhere. A wild energy field spreads out, freezing the entire room. Cold mist escapes his mouth with every single breath. After checking his own condition, he starts meditating. Then, no hesitation, he pops the flask and chugs the crazy elixir in one shot. His eyes immediately flare up with terrifying power as reality itself warps around him. Meanwhile, the elf girl innocently asks Isabel about this 7th stage. She admits they just started learning human magic, so this whole crazy ranking system is totally confusing. She wonders if human power stages work like their own elf ranks and classes. Isabel explains that hitting stage 7 makes you an absolute legend, an archmage. You get treated like royalty, completely honored and immortalized on the imperial tablet. The master asks if Frey just wants fame or a fancy title. But the girl shakes her head, remembering Frey casually saying this was just the warm-up. His real goal goes far beyond just strength or fame. Then, one terrifying word drops: demigod. Back in the room, Frey is literally sucking up every ounce of energy. He plans to steal the world back from the demigods. And thanks to that elixir, done. 7th stage officially unlocked. Later they reach the Misty Hall Bridge, and that's where we leave it. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens next. Stick with me here. You and I are stepping into a village with a seriously creepy vibe. Her companion calls it divine power, but she's totally lost. Frey hasn't felt energy this gross in forever. It literally makes his stomach turn. So he finally asks the master the big question. Just how overpowered are these demigod-chosen humans? This place tiny, barely 500 people living completely off the grid, ignoring the outside world entirely. Basically the absolute perfect spot for apostles to scheme in shadows. The master warns things might get messy and worries about the girl. But Frey knows Isabel is an absolute unit. Suddenly, she spots someone walking right toward them. The guy rolls up, asking why the Lord Mage is visiting out of nowhere. Meet the local mayor, Milad. Michael cuts to the chase. He asks if anything feels off lately, weird habits, spooky vibes, literally anything out of the ordinary. But the mayor plays it totally cool. Just a boring town where nothing ever happens. The old man nods, but then asks the obvious question. Where is everyone? The streets look completely dead. Now pay attention, he claims everyone is out in the woods. You and I both know he's lying. Sweating bullets, the guy denies it. Frey just sighs and orders his dark elf Lamson to investigate. The master watches, completely stunned that this arrogant elf actually obeys Frey. Lamson zips through the village like a ghost. He comes right back with the report completely empty. Oh, and blood everywhere. Suddenly the mayor morphs into an absolute nightmare. Everyone instantly readies for battle. These freaks were demigod servants sent on an assassination mission. Their main target, the mage. The beasts dive straight for the old man, but Isabel is way faster, yanking him away. She flexes her power, blasting a massive fire pillar that instantly roasts one alive. Her flames pack a serious punch, but there are way too many to burn at once. That's when Frey launches into the air, slicing one's head wide open. Then he just starts spamming slashes everywhere. One monster panics, terrified by Frey's speed, and tries making a break for it. Big mistake. Lamson instantly chops its legs off, dropping it hard. Frey casually steps on its chest. He demands answers immediately, but the ugly creature acts like it knows nothing. Frey hates wasting time. So Master Campbell steps up, getting ready to use spirits. Chanting in some bizarre language, she summons a dark shadow spirit named Dark Goron. It's basically the ultimate tool for violently ripping secrets out of enemies. The spirit springs to life. The master commands it to mind control. It forces its way right down the monster's throat. We both felt that right, brutal. The master just chuckles. She clearly adores the little creep. Michael watches and mentally notes never anger dark elves. They interrogated about the missing villagers. The monster grins. They are all dead, but why kill everyone? It confesses they were used as human sacrifices, though it doesn't know for what ritual. The sacrifices created these monsters to wake up the apostles' power, then red eyes flash. Sensing something terribly wrong, the crew braces themselves. A massive explosion completely wrecks the village. The master blocks his face while the elves pop their shields. Frey's earring auto-deploys a huge barrier. Campbell realizes the beast was brainwashed to blow up. Things are getting wild, so retreating makes sense. If an apostle made these things, fighting him directly sounds like suicide, but Frey refuses to run. The apostles already know they are here. Running now means losing their only shot. The old guy argues they have to wait for Lord Lucas to come back. Facing a monster that strong alone, insanity. Frey declares he will step up and take Lucas's place. This isn't just arrogance though. Stage 7 magic means fusion. When opposite magic clashes, it blows up unless a 7th stage master fuses it perfectly together. Snap, just like that, he proves it. 2 massive energy pillars erupt from nowhere. The master is losing his mind watching this, but Frey ignores him, slamming his hands together. He is actually blending opposite elements. A guy like him shouldn't even pull this off. The master scolds him while being totally amazed. He demands to know if Frey is honestly just 7th stage. Frey smirks, says nope, and repeats he's replacing Lord Lucas. Later that night, a voice yells for Frey. Campbell is crouching next to a dead body. Fire didn't kill this poor guy. Lightning did, meaning the apostle serves the thunder demigod. A human using god-tier magic is bad news. Trust me, we are in for one epic showdown next. The first apostle got totally subdued in Casca, but then, boom. The demigod controlling him vanished into thin air. It's super rare and honestly nobody knows why. But when an apostle dies, the demigod linked to them takes a massive hit too. 4,000 years ago, apostles didn't even exist, so Frey is seriously wondering what the heck changed with these demigods. Moving deeper into the forest, something feels super wrong. There's zero life energy, just completely utterly dead. Trees, animals, even the bugs are wiped out. Camille is absolutely horrified seeing nature drained this dry. Touching the ground with 2 fingers, Camille confirms the worst. The whole forest is actually a giant trap sealed by a massive barrier. Frey wants to just burn it all down, but Camille points out a fire would totally roast the nearby villages. Manually breaking this complex barrier, that would take 2 whole days. Frey touches the dead bark and feels absolutely nothing. He studied the barrier trying to find a weak spot, but they had 0 time for standing around, so he chose pure violence over overthinking. While the elves watched his back, Frey analyzed the barrier and cracked it almost instantly. Telling everyone to get back, he unleashed his wind magic. A massive tornado slammed into the trees, blasting chunks of wood absolutely everywhere. One single strike cleared out the entire zone. Master Mikkel was left staring totally shell-shocked by this kid's insane power. This was way too much power for a 20-year-old. Mikkel quietly realized it might finally be time for the next generation to step up, but then looking ahead, he spots something terrifying. An apostle, glowing with divine energy. Now watch closely because this gets wild. The old man tensed up, barely believing his own eyes. The guy stepping forward, it was Honor Lucas. Everything just stopped making sense. The brutal truth, Lucas had actually become an apostle. The traitor even scolded Mikkel for being impatient. Poor old Mikkel was just standing there praying this was all a sick joke. Lucas sighed, wondering what to do with them. Lifting just 1 finger, he casually fired a lethal spell right at Mikkel to end him. But Frey blocked it. Lucas was honestly startled. His attack failed, though Mikkel still collapsed anyway. Mikkel couldn't wrap his head around a circle executive falling this hard to darkness. This wasn't the Lucas he once trusted. Frey angrily demanded to know why he betrayed everyone. Lucas totally dodged it smugly, telling him to show some respect. He bragged about finding true power now. To him, struggling humans were basically just annoying little insects waiting to be squashed. That specific word triggered Frey's past memories. Absolutely furious, he snapped that humans aren't bugs. Pure rage fueled a bizarre energy erupting from him. Camille had never seen him this mad. Lucas simply claimed he never surrendered. He basically said he just accepted the demigod's upgrade, adding that other circle members finally realized how insane that power is. But humans still push forward despite their fear. They risk their own lives and refuse to quit just to protect the people they actually love. That was real human courage, and Lucas completely threw it away. You and I both knew it was time for payback. Frey's magical fury exploded. The shaken old man called Lucas ignorant as battle started. Lucas cast spells with 1 finger, 0 chanting required. That apostle power was honestly miles above any normal wizardry. That crackling pure lightning magic couldn't pull that off alone. That was straight up demigod juice. With that insane buff, he broke past the 7 stages, lightning flashing, storm clouds rolling in. This definitely wasn't human strength anymore. It was purely demigod level. The panicked elf asked for orders, and Frey instantly yelled to split up. The plan: Liamson takes the front to protect everyone. Camille plays magical backup, and Lord Mikkel stays way back to block that nasty divine aura. Out of nowhere, Frey turned around and pulled his loyal friend Camille into a tight, silent hug. He whispered something shocking in her ear, leaving her completely stunned, then just turned his back. No time for arguing. Any complaints had to wait until they were actually alive. Frey braced himself, and the front line charged straight at Lucas. Lucas just swiped one hand, firing magic beams like a water hose. The elf dodged first, but when he countered, Lucas threw up a massive shield. Boom! A blinding flash of light blasted the elf right back next to Frey. The squad desperately braced for the next hit. Frey leaped right at him, casting blazing earth. Master Mikkel watched this all in absolute horror. The ground literally shattered, showing off just how terrifying Frey's true power was. Mikkel wondered who this kid even was. Frey was fully out for blood. Sprinting over the cracked earth, Frey attacked, while Lucas casually defended, taunting the boy not to waste his energy. It didn't matter how hard he hit. That lightning barrier was unbreakable. That pure demigod defense was just totally cheating. But Frey didn't blink. He closed in using flame impact instantly, chaining it into piercing ice, but honestly, it still looked completely useless. Nothing scratched Lucas. Things are getting desperate. So what do you and I think will Frey's distraction plan actually work out? Stick with me, every attack targets Frey now. Alright, you and I are about to jump into an absolutely epic showdown. Camille is running on empty, but Isabel insists their crazy plan is working. Lucas thinks Frey is the main threat, making the others perfect bait. That storm cloud up there, it is feeding Lucas infinite mana. While it exists, he is practically immortal. The actual mission: destroy that cloud. Frey is just a distraction while Isabel teams up with Camille and Lord Mikkel. Frey trusted her with his life, and now it is go time. She orders the other two to pull together every single drop of mana they have. Everything rides on them. Meanwhile, Frey just keeps on swinging. He blasts spell after spell, but Lucas just hides behind his barrier without taking a single scratch. Still, the old man realizes Frey has already broken past the 7th stage. The kid is not even 20 years old yet. Lucas decides he has to murder him before he becomes an unstoppable monster. Frey throws a massive fireball. His attacks are doing absolutely zero damage, but he refuses to stop. Suddenly, Lucas figures out the trick. Frey is blocking his vision. He spots the trio aiming right at the cloud and instantly moves to crush them. Isabel realizes their cover is totally blown. A heavy spell slams into all three of them. Frey screams a warning, but they hit the dirt, completely paralyzed by the attack. Lucas charges up a lethal energy sphere to execute them. Now pay attention because things are falling apart fast. It looks like game over until Liamson suddenly jumps in and blocks the final strike. Frey screams his friend's name. The dark elf fights desperately to hold his ground while Lucas casually throws up his barrier again. Frey rushes over, but the squad tells him they are totally fine. His only job right now is taking down Lucas. That storm cloud still has to go. Liamson keeps swinging relentlessly until Lucas finally blasts him away. Lucas is losing his mind with rage. He nails Liamson with a brutal spell, then chokeslams him into the dirt. He cannot fathom why they are fighting a lost battle. He laughs, saying he will happily grant the elf a quick death. Nobody leaves alive today. But Liamson secretly grabs his staff with his feet and spikes Lucas right in the chest, drawing actual blood. The barrier violently repels him, but he spots the bloody cut. A tiny scratch, but it proves this monster can actually bleed. Lucas walks forward, claiming he is basically an unbeatable god. Suddenly, an overwhelming energy erupts from the earth, spinning him around. The raw mana gathering behind them is completely off the charts. Frey knows this is it, zero, holding back anymore. He is betting everything on one shot to protect his team. This is about to get nuclear. He screams for Liamson to dodge. The elf leaps back just as an earth-shattering wave of pure fire blasts toward Lucas, turning everything to absolute ash. Wildfire swallows the battlefield. Frey just dropped a legendary attack, but his mana tank is now sitting at absolute zero. The elf barely survives the heat. When the smoke clears, a massive crater is left behind. Frey's power is insane, but Lucas is somehow standing. He is missing an entire arm now and screaming for blood. But then he senses that the kid is completely drained. Emptying your tank, rookie mistake. It proves the massive gap in their levels, but Frey does not care, sprinting directly at him. I know what you're thinking, game over, right? Nope. With zero magic, he is still charging. Even the master is stunned. The enemy barrier is flickering, and Frey knows this is his only opening. Lucas fires back with lethal force. Frey barely dodges the worst of it, closes the gap, and delivers a brutal punch straight to the gut. The old man's face contorts in pure agony. Frey claps his hands together for one hidden spell, blasting him away. Smoke chokes the air. Lucas screams that Frey is a monster. Frey just laughs, says Lucas is nothing but a pathetic worm serving a fake god. The villain completely freezes. His pride is shattering. He is actually losing, and he refuses to accept it. Reaching up with his one good arm, he starts ripping more energy from the sky. That cloud is his infinite cheat code. He is planning to nuke the entire battlefield. But out of nowhere, bam, a heavy kick connects. Liamson flashes right beside him, laughing at his huge ego, and completely drops the guy flat. Meanwhile, the squad is pushing hard to destroy the cloud. They are incredibly close. Frey and Liamson just keep Lucas distracted. Weakened and missing a whole arm, his mana is still insane. With one explosive strike, he sends both of our heroes flying backward. Frey hits the ground hard but stays awake. Lucas pins him down, promising to slowly slice him apart before burning him alive. But then, the ultimate table turn. A terrifying new energy erupts all around them. The magic storm the trio was preparing is ready. The ultimate combo is unleashed. The Master drops elven magic, the Elder summons raw elements with his instrument, and Isabel perfectly binds it all together. Completely drained, they know they finally won. But Lord Michael still pities his old friend. Lucas's body starts literally crumbling apart. With his absolute last breath, he cries out for his demigod master to save him. Beautiful lights rain down from the sky. As his body shatters, you and I finally see this legendary battle end. Mikel asks one last question, why the betrayal, but his old friend just turns to absolute ash. Lucas claims the demigods swore to save everyone. No more sickness, no more dying young, just evolving humanity to an absolute godlike tier. Frey wants to end this madness forever but gets blocked. Lord Mikel still desperately needs to reason with whatever remains of Lucas. Trembling, he begs for just one more second, but the apostle hates his pity. Michael actually still thinks he can save his old friend from the darkness. He gently reaches out his hand, but Lucas instantly gets super suspicious. Even on his deathbed, he forces his mission and grabs Lord Mikel. Everyone screams at him to run, but wild flames erupt everywhere and a massive, earth-shattering explosion absolutely destroys the crater. When the dust finally settles, both of them vanish entirely. Lucas escaped completely, kidnapping Lord Michael. Isabel stands there, totally horrified by the absolute chaos. Crying her eyes out, she utterly refuses to accept this kind man's death. Frey totally agrees something feels insanely wrong here. This entire world is completely messed up and they must fix it. That explosion was a giant warning sign. Literally anyone could drop next. Frey vows to fight until the bitter end, even solo. Next day at the Magic Tower, he sits on his bed processing everything until a sudden knock interrupts. Isabel drops the news. Lady Camille went visiting the Fizz Founder bracelets. Now, pay close attention here. Staring at the Apostle's crystal in his hand, he finally understands exactly what this means for Professor Adelia. Super quiet and deep in thought, Isabel sits nearby, still totally shaken up. It is her first time watching a real comrade die right before her eyes. Lord Michael belonged to the Fizz Founder bracelets, a secret squad, not just limited to mages. Frey remembers the old man claiming their hidden group lacked enough members, making them willing to recruit basically anyone with real potential. He even promised Frey would be welcomed with open arms. The Fizz Founder bracelets is much smaller than the summoner circles, yet their underground influence remains absolutely massive. Master Alton contracted Barbados of Greed, a literal Grand Duke of the demon world. Mikel was completely shocked by Frey's heavy interest in demons. Grand Dukes are arrogant beasts treating humans like literal bugs. Forcing a contract with one is basically an impossible feat. Frey had only ever seen Iris pull that off. Thinking about Master Alton leaves him wondering who this crazy guy really is. Frey decides to investigate the Fizz Founder bracelets even deeper. Right then, another knock. He quickly stands up to grab the door. Professor Adelia drops by and he casually mentions he was just heading out to find her. She is totally shocked seeing another girl in his room, but Isabel is no random guest. Adelia says Elder Julian needs him immediately. I know what you are thinking. The big boss Frey's interest spikes instantly. Up in his office, the man claims he knows Frey well. He introduces himself as Julian Montalivo, master of the third magic tower itself. Frey has zero clue who he is, but politely fakes it. Julian stands praising Frey's mission report from 4 days ago for perfectly describing the crazy powers of the Apostle. Still, he admits losing Floormaster Mikel is a massive blow, calling him an incredibly loyal and devoted comrade. Hearing that makes Isabel even sadder. Despite that awesome report, the Apostle's identity remains a total mystery. Julian complains they rushed it, insisting they should have waited for Vice Master Lucas. Frey stays completely silent. Finally, Julian asks how Mikel spent his dying moments. Frey pauses, then says, Mikel stayed fiercely loyal until his very last breath. A true man of unbreakable principles, just staring out at the seagulls. Julian mourns his fallen brother. Then boom, he asks Frey to become the brand new Floormaster, leaving the professor completely stunned. Nobody this ridiculously young ever becomes Floormaster. The previous record was Michel from the elite Blake family snatching the title at 26. The Blake family breeds pure geniuses, but Frey just stands there totally silent. Accepting this title means easy street. He gets massive private property, his own lab, and god-tier financial backing for all his magical studies. Depending on his research, farming ultra-rare magical materials would become an absolute breeze. The professor gets super hyped until Frey straight up rejects the offer. He hates the Floormaster idea. Julian offers a circle spot instead, but Frey brutally rejects that too. Julian is incredibly curious, but openly respects this bold choice. Walking downstairs, the frustrated professor keeps begging Frey to accept the Floormaster job. Clearly annoyed, she claims he is too young to grasp the politics. While she rambles, a sudden thought hits Frey. He interrupts, wanting to show her something insane inside his personal lab full of rare loot. Her curiosity peaks the second she spots it. It is a genuine relic left by an apostle. She had absolutely zero clue Frey defeated one. Hearing about Mikkel dying, she naturally assumed Frey cowardly ran away right after the battle. She explains this tiny stone holds a demigod's sacred energy, but right now it is just a pretty totally useless rock. Refined, right? Its power beats a dragon's heart. Frey tries handing it over, but she is completely clueless. And that is where we leave it. Absolute madness, right? Sweating bullets, he actually begs for her help. So what do we think? Let's dive right in. She smiles, but quickly gets dead serious, calling the whole thing pure madness. She'll guard the object. Later, Frey chills by the dark elf. The hall is packed. Frey happily says hi to Camille, but she completely ignores him, whispering about some scary guy from the Fizz-Founder bracelets, Honor Duganjar. She warns Frey to watch his back, basically saying the dude's temper is just as ugly as his face. Right on cue, the guy snaps at her for using another language. He furiously demands why they are whispering like cornered rats. He points straight at Frey. Wait a second, he realizes this is the kid who joined Mikkel during the Apostle Subjugation mission. Curious now, he orders Frey to explain everything, but Frey just deadpans that it is already in the report. The old man absolutely loses his mind over a kid talking back. Meanwhile, Liamson is just getting super annoyed with the elder. Frey casually mentions he isn't in the Fizz-Founder bracelets, so zero obligation to answer. Big mistake. That just makes the old guy explode, completely losing his temper. He genuinely cannot believe Frey has the absolute nerve to talk back. Someone quickly tells the cranky guy to calm down. Nobody wants to say it twice, so he angrily forces himself to chill. Now pay attention, because here comes the drama. A guy steps up, drops his hood, and Frey completely recognizes him. Without missing a beat, Frey says it has been a while. Yep, his brother Heinz Blake. Total awkward silence. Then Heinz casually brings up those wild rumors about Frey being best buddies with Perron. He points out how different Frey seems, claiming this glow-up finally proves he has that Blake family blood. Frey is honestly just confused. Heinz was the second son of the Blake family, the middle brother who totally helped Shepard confirm Frey was really him. Frey still has absolutely no clue what Heinz wants. Surprisingly, Heinz actually apologizes for the old dude's outburst. Then he drops a warning. Someone from the family is coming, and Frey needs to reject them instantly. The Blakes attract danger everywhere. Frey suddenly remembers something dark. Isaka Blake was the one who first contacted the demigod. Cutting to the chase, he asks what Heinz actually wants. Heinz looks away. Frey is baffled. Why act like a caring big brother now when he treated him like literal garbage before? Heinz doesn't notice the glare, but Frey remembers everything. This exact guy is a huge reason Frey almost gave up on life. Playing the nice brother routine, absolutely disgusting. Now that Frey is a big deal, Heinz just gives a really short, vague answer. He basically says no regrets for his past bullying, and actually wishes Frey never learned magic. Talk about confusing the poor guy. Walking away, Heinz just warns him against trusting the circle. Frey yells at him to wait, but some old bearded guy pops up instead. It was Alexandro, the Blake family's personal butler. I know what you are thinking, crazy timing, right? Frey didn't expect family this fast. He remembers Heinz mentioning Shepard talking about their dad. Things start out super awkward as the butler silently judges him. Beside getting older, Frey looks the same. The butler seriously wonders if those Perron June rumors are completely fake news. Looking away, the guy says the master summoned him back to the estate, but Frey hits him with a hard no. He claims he has super important work and literally cannot see his father today. The butler is absolutely stunned. Ignoring a direct order from the master, Frey stands his ground. His duties come first. The butler finally admits the kid changed, leaving with a threat that they will be waiting. After that weird chat, Frey keeps his cool act going, then instantly drops it the second the butler leaves. He grabs a vial and someone randomly mentions how brutal it was to make. The professor complains that electricity is the hardest element to handle, costing her hundreds of gold coins. Obviously, she fully expects to be paid back for this, but then she proudly brags about never charging students. Instead, she offers him a sweet assistant job. He still rejects it. Frey knows it is an elixir, just not its actual purpose. It is actually pure condensed electrical energy. Open it wrong. Boom, major danger. Still, the professor bets Frey will find some crazy use for it. Later on, back in his cozy room, he sits down to meditate. Then he pops the cap and downs the whole thing. Massive energy instantly starts flooding the room. It quickly wraps around his entire body. He keeps his zen focus while glowing particles float everywhere. Eyes shut, he zeroed in on that pure power. His control leveled up so hard that his whole body is basically a mana battery now. Once night falls, Frey invites Isabel over. Suddenly, this tiny cat creature pops out and Isabel is completely under its cute spell. She squeals that her heart almost stopped from the cuteness. This little fuzzball is actually Darkming, a shadow spirit. She is shocked Frey snagged a contract so fast. I mean, nobody expects a dark shadow spirit to look like a literal plushie. Because of this adorable fluff, Isabel gets super motivated to learn shadow magic ASAP. Frey successfully calmed the frozen river's wild energy, learning tons about the demigod. Plus, his spiritual power leveled up big time. And that's where we leave it. His next move, escaping this place, leaving Isabel to handle the prep. Alright, stick with me here. She asks about the circle exam with that massive tower looming. Back in his room, Frey packs up. Suddenly, something weird catches his attention. A strange energy pulses from outside the door, but it honestly doesn't feel hostile. He opens up and finds a girl waiting. She asks if he's Frey Blake. He just squints, studying her carefully. That specific coat stirs up ancient memories. She apologizes for the pop-in, introducing herself as Beniang Argento, master of the Trauman Ring Circle. Soon, snacks and tea are out. The three sit down in silence. Sipping her tea, Beniang drops an invite to her circle. Pre-test scouting is totally normal when a crazy talented rookie pops up. Circles always try snatching them first. Isabel actually laughs hearing him called a mere talented rookie. Then Beniang smiles, adding that the redhead is invited too. Rumors of their apostle fight had already spread everywhere. People noticed their teamwork. Beniang laughs. Hey, she's just following orders here. But Frey, he's still staring at her coat. It's identical to his from 4,000 years ago, maybe tweaked by a magic tool. Now watch closely, here's the twist. He bluntly asks if she's a dragon. Startled, she completely spills her tea, totally shaken. Panicking, she asks why he'd think that. He calmly explains dragons lack mana compartments. Their hearts store crazy transcendental power, absorbing elements straight from nature. Hers was super unrefined, and Frey knows dragons perfectly. Remember, he already told Isabel that 4,000 years ago Lucas actually had a dragon master. Back to the chat, Beniang admits he is partly right. She's a half-dragon human blood mixed in. Later they chat outside his room about the crazy reveal while Frey watches Beniang walk away. Curious, Isabel asks his plan. She points out the Trauman rings look like a mess, even with Beniang trying to sound positive. Frey totally noticed she lacked Circle Master vibes. Still, that whole meeting was completely unexpected. They keep packing up. Isabel asks if he's actually interested in the Trauman rings. Nope. He refuses to get dragged into their messy politics. The only thing that mattered was learning to concentrate his power. Bags packed, they're ready. Instead of joining a circle, Lucas Trauman was going to become the center himself. Isabel just smiles, he hasn't changed. Reaching the stairs, they spot a loud disturbance down below. Some old guy is screaming at Beniang and she's just taking it. Spotting Frey, he loudly brags about his fancy noble rank. Jerome Berner introduces himself from the Lucid Swords, alongside Steve Jacks, master of the Stro necklaces. Seems they missed the scouting window. The old guy demands to know if Frey is joining the Trauman rings, but Frey stays vague. Honestly, he just mocks the whole ridiculous situation. They're all the same to him. Another master practically begs Frey to visit them later. He even hands over a teleport scroll straight to the Stro necklace's base. The other guy just loudly invites him to the kingdom of Lua Noble in Geotanbul or Silkeed anyway. After they vanish, Frey turns back to the loudmouth. He asks if this old man wants to recruit him too. But the guy insists on a private chat, rudely telling Beniang to butt out of their business. You and I both smell a trap here. They head off, leaving the half-dragon girl behind as she tries warning him. Smiling, she whispers to be careful. Frey tells Isabel to stay put in the hall while he handles this old guy alone. He asks Beniang to wait up, promising he'll be right back. She nods, agreeing to stay right there. Soon they're alone in a creepy dark forest. Suddenly, this old man feels way more dangerous. Shady spot for recruiting, right? He flat out admits he'd never recruit a fraud like Frey. Frey just laughs. What does he actually want? The guy turns, demanding to know how he beat an apostle. Raw power surges from his body. He wants to test Frey himself. His force literally cracks the ground. Boom, magic blasts branches straight at Frey. Thorny vines wrap him up tight. The man sneers. Not all 7-star mages are equal, and he won't lose like that apostle. Frey just smirks. You're right. Then bam, he obliterates every single plant instantly. He infused his mana with elemental attributes, shattering those thorns easily. Duganjar had absolutely zero right calling himself a 7-star mage. Just basic raw mana, nothing else. Without moving a single finger, Frey's power is absolutely suffocating. Furious, the old man preps another spell. He launches huge waves of fire, forming a magic circle right in front of him. But it gets instantly cancelled before finishing, way harder than just blocking some flying blades. Brutal ice locks around his feet, freezing his entire body. Total defeat, no escape. But Frey isn't killing him today, he gives him a test instead. Makes you think, right, if he's really a 7-star mage, he'll melt that ice before morning. Otherwise, game over. Alright, stick with me here. The furious old guy refuses to be tested by a rude kid, but Frey stays stone cold, completely creeping him out. He cannot grasp how this defiant brat holds such dignity. He yells that Frey will have to kill him. Not blinking, Frey flatly states that was his only piece of advice. He just walks away, fully expecting the stubborn old man to survive. Back at camp, the girls are waiting. They sigh in relief when Frey finally returns and he apologizes. Isabel asks if everything is okay, but honestly, she just desperately wants to know what happened to Mr. Dugenzar. Frey tells her to relax. The guy will not die in the ice. It melts tomorrow, which is honestly going to be way more humiliating. Hot soup hits the bowl. It smells absolutely amazing, instantly tempting our hungry MC. Benyang hands Isabel a bowl. She looks totally at home out here, like camping is just her everyday routine. Impressed by her speed, Frey demands seconds. Turns out the former Circle Master was Osil Argento Benyang's own dad. Super bluntly, Frey asks how he died. Benyang just stares into the fire. Then she explains the demigod ranking system, revealing the top boss is called the Lord. That specific title triggers Frey's past memories. Pay attention here, because this is huge. The strongest demigods are apocalypses. Only 3 are known: sword poison and death. Tragically, 2 years ago, her dad was slaughtered by the demigod of death. Isabel quietly comforts her. But Frey, he is totally stuck on that word apocalypse. He actually knew the poison demigod, a terrifyingly powerful old man. Morning hits, but the creepy forest stays super dark. Benyang announces this is the Fist-found forest home to the hidden Trauman Rings base. Frey is actually impressed by the barrier her dad built. She can only patch it up. Frey guesses her dad was a legendary 8-star mage. Benyang is a 6-star talent, but trained completely wrong. He honestly wonders if her life would be way easier as a full human. He catches himself being super judgmental. Why is he acting so harsh when she is clearly trying her absolute best? Arriving at the village, the Trauman Rings base looks pathetic. Way too poor for a supposedly legitimate magic circle. Someone shouts for Master Benyang. Honorable Giselan rushes over to report the latest disaster. He says those basilisk-tail hyenas beat them in an artifact war. Frey and Isabel listen super closely. The Trauman Rings are practically doomed. Spotting Frey, Giselan quickly apologizes for the terrible welcome. You saw this coming, right? They literally lost the red ring made by Lucas himself. Bystanders watch them awkwardly. They mention Benyang was missing during greeting time. Apparently, these stressful meetings are happening a lot. Since the girls looked totally overwhelmed, they offered to help out, but it was too chaotic for even a tea break. Looking super annoyed, Benyang apologizes for the incredibly awkward situation. An artifact war, basically a high-stakes magic duel with legendary gear as the grand prize. Frey thinks gambling relics is completely idiotic. It started as a friendship-building tool between circles, but the guy admits that stupid tradition should have died out already. But since they masked it as building friendly ties, he literally could not refuse the challenge. The basilisk tail. Those exact hyena-like scum were actively hunting Trauman artifacts just because the circle was completely defenseless now. Even random low-tier circles were bullying them at every single opportunity. The situation was absolutely pathetic. Honestly, it was way worse than the rumors. Down to 10% capacity, and the only useful members were out on long missions. Frey realizes these guys invited him over just to throw a massive pity party. Catching his annoyed look, Isabel points out a massive, weathered statue standing nearby. Holding a book and staff, the plaque reads Lucas Trauman. Frey walks up and gently touches it. A random boy approaches asking if he is a Sir Lucas fan. Frey smirks, saying he would not exactly call himself that. The kid introduces himself as Pen, the 4th honorable of the circle. They exchange greetings. Frey wastes zero time on small talk. He bluntly asks why anyone stays in a circle that is literally falling apart. Pen is totally confused. Frey clarifies he means why are all these talented members staying here? With their skills, they could easily join way better guilds. Pen is stunned. Isabel scolds Frey's harsh words, but Pen just laughs and says he totally gets it. Leaving would definitely be the easiest path, but if they jump ship, the Trauman Rings are gone forever. They refuse to abandon their founding hero. Pen proudly explains that Lucas Trauman is history's only recognized Grand Mage. Trust me, you and I will love this. Pen says Lucas revolutionized magic, giving Frey silent pride. Stick with me here. 4,000 years ago, mages and magic warriors literally killed each other and witches were treated like total outcasts by everyone. But Sir Lucas Trauman was built different. He believed any person using magic was family. Mages, witches, warriors, they all rejected him. But he never stopped trying to build a place where everyone belonged. That crazy dream became their circle's core teaching. Even broken down now, they will not stop until their people are reunited. Fian says if Lucas was still alive, he would do the exact same thing. The boy awkwardly apologizes for getting too hyped. Frey stays quiet, but he looks super proud. Giselan totally loves the story too. Frey finally admits Lucas would be thrilled to see successors like them. Fian just gets embarrassed and waves it off. They greet 2 others, then head to a location the circle completely missed. Venian only knows that Frey asked about Basilisk's tail and the specific rules each circle followed. Everyone else thought he just cared about the shiny artifacts, not the failing Trauman rings, but the girl knows better. Something else is bothering her. He also asked if an outsider could jump into an artifact war. Meanwhile, some guys are trashing the Trauman rings, bragging about stealing everything they have left. Suddenly, wanderers show up asking for Rounder Antoine. They are here for an artifact war. Now watch this power move. Frey steps up asking if refusing breaks the rules, leaving everyone absolutely speechless. Frey just laughs, saying the barrier was so pathetically weak, he thought it was just a swarm of annoying bugs. Rounder Antoine is definitely getting ticked off. This kid looks young, but he is clearly packing serious heat. Easily 6th stage minimum. A guy asks what they are wagering, and Frey casually tosses Kungunli's dagger. We are talking priceless loot here. A mythical Age of Light weapon carrying the actual sword god's revenge. Another guy realizes Frey is no joke and calls him over. Before throwing down, he asks if Frey actually knows the artifact war rules. You cannot refuse a challenge. Both sides have to bet one single artifact. 3 challenges max per day and 0 penalties for catching a body. Match 1 starts with a red ring wager. Up first is Alan PX. They stare each other down, waiting for the green light, while Alan arrogantly flexes his moves. Alan is a magic warrior facing Frey, a squishy mage. Thinking a chanting mage is an easy kill, Alan basically calls game over. He assumes one punch will do it. The match starts, and Alan instantly collapses to his knees. You saw that too, right? Absolute shock. Frey dropped him using a basic 2nd level spell. A guy wonders if Frey has magical vision, skipping the whole memorizing spells part completely. But magical vision eats up mana crazy fast. Frey grabs the ring and turns to leave, leaving the guy totally stunned. The guy assumes Frey is retreating because he is out of gas, which is exactly what Frey wanted him to think. Minutes later, Frey throws down the Kelvin Stone and Winged Boots. Forced to accept, they risk the red ring and Kungunli's dagger. Thinking the trap is perfect, the guy pulls Killa aside for a private chat. He explains Frey is rushing because magical vision drained his tank. Drag the fight out, and Frey is guaranteed to lose. The strategy open with a massive shield and make Frey burn his remaining juice. No way a kid beats Killa's veteran experience. Killa promises an easy win. The plan is set, both fighters step up, and Killa remembers the advice. The round kicks off, and Frey unleashes an ice wave. Killa pops his shield, already celebrating, until a massive blast sends him flying. He cannot believe it. The whole circle is absolutely shook again. Killa gets launched into the sky, dropping his staff before face-planting hard. 1 match left, and Rounder Antoine is up next. The final bout begins. Antoine summons a battle spirit, and Frey gets ready. After 3 supposed magical vision uses, they bet his mana is empty. Antoine puts his entire soul into a punch and rushes forward. He wants an up-close finish. Suddenly, more arrows launch out, and he realizes dodging is literally impossible. The harsh truth hits him. No magical vision here. Frey was literally just spamming basic ice arrows. Antoine is losing his mind that a weak spell hits this heavy. Either they suck or Frey is just absurdly overpowered. Rounder Antoine completely loses his temper, changing the playbook and ordering his goons to grab Isabelle. That distracts Killa, giving the rest an opening. The goons charge in with absolutely everything. At this point, Antoine does not give a damn about artifact war. He just wants blood. Smoke everywhere as Frey calls for the girl. You and I just witnessed a legend, standing there without a single scratch on him. Stick with me here, we are jumping right into a wild beatdown. Isabelle calmly drops these guys using pure self-defense. Now that our duo teamed up, the fight totally flips. Antoine, meanwhile, still fuming with absolute rage. Frey totally roasts him for hiding behind his own goons and acting cowardly whenever a real threat actually shows up. The trash talk makes Antoine furious, but boom, his neck gets nicked. A sudden wind blade instantly sends him crashing down. Frey just chuckles and tells him to watch out. Antoine completely passes out from exhaustion. Then a new challenger arrives. Master Farik steps up demanding answers. Pink eyes deadly glare. Yep, the big boss of Basilisk Tale is officially here. She tries scolding Frey for his attitude, but suddenly freezes. A terrifying pressure stabs right into her heart like a needle. She introduces herself as Farah Kovat, demanding why he showed up. Frey flips it back. What exactly is her little circle plotting? Her guys just watch, silently judging our boy. Antoine pathetically drops to his knees, crying out to his master. She claims their big mission is freeing humanity from demigods. One dude cannot figure out why she is acting so submissive. Frey pushes harder, asking what demigods actually even are. She calls them godlike beings who can casually wipe out entire cities. Hearing that, Frey instantly realizes she knows the actual truth. Yet she still chose these shady methods to build power. Furious, he just starts freezing the entire room. Farik panics, warning her crew not to budge or they will be shredded. Still kneeling, she literally starts to beg. She pleads for her circle to survive, but Frey coldly demands the master's life instead. The woman is completely shocked. Surprisingly, she actually agrees as long as her faction survives. Now pay attention here, things get intense. Energy pools in her hand as her crew screams. Frey steps forward, hand raised. She bows her head, fully accepting death. He stares at her and his harsh expression finally softens. Deciding she is way too useful alive, he completely melts away the ice. Crisis averted, nobody dies today. He orders her to return every stolen Trauman Ring's artifact. She instantly agrees. Then, with a smirk, he drops one final command. Farik nervously sweats. Frey simply asks for the map coordinates of every local, small, and mid-sized circle. Back outside, Master Vignan waits at the gate, absolutely freezing. She nervously wonders if Frey reached Basilisk Tail in one piece. Her loyal subordinate tells her to stay hopeful. They might still ally later. Right on cue, Frey quietly strolls up, totally scaring them both. He jokingly claims he was just taking a nice long walk. Cut to everyone gathered around a table staring right at Frey. He has some major news. Speaking super calmly, he drops a massive bomb. He is going to wipe demigods off the map. To pull this off, he needs serious influence. He roasts the current circles for being pathetic and completely self-centered. Since nobody can fix this mess alone, his wild new plan is making Trauman Rings the absolute center. He wants to absorb everything, even the big three factions. Vignan tries arguing, but Frey completely shuts her down. He drops his heavy backpack on the floor and asks if they actually have the guts to do it. He warns them the upcoming training will literally be pure torture. But if they somehow survive it, he guarantees they will reach the top. You saw this coming, right? He dumps out the stolen artifacts, and everyone is completely speechless. In exactly one day, Frey bullied 6 different circles into totally surrendering to the Trauman Rings. He really pulled that off in 24 hours, but playfully admits he is keeping the shiny loot himself. He calls it a little thank you gift for their hospitality, then gives Master Vignan some time to process. Giving her exactly one day to decide, he turns to leave, but she jumps up and asks can he really make them the central power. Frey bets his own life on it. Soon after, a massive announcement shakes up the members. It is super early, and everybody is practically sleeping standing up. Some even think the group is finally folding. Master Vignan takes the stage to introduce their newest rounder, leaving the entire crowd completely confused. Almost nobody even recognizes Frey. To them, he is just some random kid who showed up recently. He introduces himself as Frey Blake, fully aware that a teenager becoming a rounder is making all these older members incredibly salty. Then he drops the ultimate insult. None of them are actually qualified. Vignan just smiles slightly while the crowd loses their minds. Frey casually points out they are so weak, a teenager easily beat them. The angry members simply cannot process this disrespect. Then he literally leaps down right into the mob. And that is where we leave it. He wants actions, not words. Damage his collar, win his rounder seat and earrings. Alright, stick with me here. This frightened kid has no clue what Frey is doing. But the guy next to him, he guesses it is a personal test. Benyang chimes in. He is intentionally drawing all their anger right at him. Then Frey kicks off the challenge. Next opponent step up. Enter Guntar Fire Mage. The kid readies his attack, totally baffled. Is Frey really just going to stand there without a proper stance? Frey completely taunts him. Show some real skill and maybe he will use his hands. The disrespect is unreal. Fio launches a massive fireball, but it does not even leave a single scratch. Frey's defense is just too solid, shattering the flame instantly. 0 incantation, the whole crowd is stunned. Fio starts panicking. Wait, wasn't Frey supposed to be on his level? Fio is a fire specialist. He literally trained in this for years. Fire magic is all about raw destruction. Hit for hit, it usually destroys any other element out there. Frey easily sees the kid spent years perfecting that shape, but he is just burning way too much mana holding it. Perfect form does not equal damage. He needs to focus purely on raw power. Fio actually listens and asks how to do that. But Frey drops the truth he has to master fear first. He brings up an old friend, a mage covered in horrific burns. Everyone said his magic days were over, but he pushed through and became a fire legend. The boy listens closely. Slowly, the others start to finally get it too. That mage won because he knew both sides of fire. The boy suddenly smiles huge. It is all about how he pictures it. Understand the true nature of fire and the path opens up. He genuinely thanks Frey. A guy nearby is totally confused. Why smile after losing, but the kid just says his friend would totally get it. It is like his entire world just expanded. He completely trusts the hero now. Up next, a heavily armed warrior steps in. You are going to want to watch this. He raises his gear, but boom, a ground strike instantly wrecks him. Coming back later, he admits defeat. The kid was right. Rounder Frey absolutely knows the best way. In just 24 hours, Frey completely wins over the entire circle. Everyone is insanely hyped now. Holding up 3 fingers, he promises it will take 3 months to buff the Trauman Rings. That includes Master Benyang Giselin and Fian. After those 3 months, a friendly little tournament against all the surrounding small and medium circles. Not a bloody war for artifacts, just solid networking. But hey, they still need to dominate and win absolutely every match. To bring this circle back to life, they need a win streak so massive, nobody can even complain. Fian calls that impossible, but Frey already warned them they are marching straight into hell. Meanwhile, training starts for Benyang. She starts gathering her magic. Just as he guessed, she forced a fake mana compartment inside herself. She seriously thought magic needed one. But dragons do not store mana like that. They pull it directly from nature. So that fake compartment has to go. She needs to dump every single drop of mana inside it. Frey slaps a hand on her back and forcefully drains it. She hits the floor screaming as her energy gets ripped away. Once she calms down round 2, he touches her back again, ordering her to push out whatever mana she has left. She braces herself and pushes hard, visibly panicking. As he adds pressure, the mana violently floods out. Everything inside her is draining fast. Her internal compartment is completely shattering. We both feel this one. Frey warns her it will hurt. Slowly her core cracks. Can she endure it? Benyang struggles as he pushes forward, gripping her pants tight. Frey stays focused. Maybe he is worrying way too much. When it finally stops, she faceplants from pure exhaustion. Then she gets super mad. That was only step 1. This whole nightmare takes a month. But hey, he already told her this training camp was basically hell. Tears well up. Absolute panic sets in. Suddenly, a massive scream echoes nearby. Fian is up next. The guy is totally useless against Frey's insane speed. Frey catches his punch to stop the madness, but Fian stubbornly refuses to tap out. Time for kicks. He throws a wild leg strike, but it misses Frey's face completely. He just keeps stubbornly swinging. Frey casually swats away every single hit. It is literally like punching a brick wall. Finally, the spar ends. The kid doubles over completely out of breath. His skills, barely even second-class martial artist level, yet he looks weirdly proud, meaning he has massive potential. His style is White King's Fist, super basic zero flashy tricks. That is exactly why long fights wreck him. His moves are just too predictable. Frey easily points out his main issue. He is just weak. His style only looks cool because it is classic. Frustrated Fian demands a way to level up. So what do you and I learn here? Frey drops the truth. Magic warriors get zero shortcuts. Just pure grinding. Alright, stick with me. You and I are diving right into some classic manhwa training. Pen thinks leveling up takes forever, but Frey guarantees a massive shortcut. Tears literally stream down his face. Then splash. He ends up face-planted flat on the ground after getting drenched with water. The guy looks totally drained, like 0 hours of sleep. He straight up begs Frey to kill him, but get this, they are not even halfway done. Later on, 2 comrades chill in the forest. The Honorable Giselin awaits his next orders from the brand new rounder. Frey tosses him a dagger and says, use it. The Dagger of Communal, an epic artifact from the Era of Light forged from pure mithril and packed with buffs. It is totally one of a kind. Giselin laughs it off, claiming he is strictly a mage, but Frey sees through it. The guy never stopped training with a blade. How did he know? The dead giveaway, those rough calluses on his hands, classic signs of non-stop sword practice. His master plan, turn this guy into a crazy magical swordsman. He might only be level 5, but that dagger breaks all the rules. Giselin carefully grabs the weapon, super curious. He vows to spend whatever time it takes to master it, even if his confidence is basically at 0 right now. Frey tells him to relax. He is going to pass down everything he knows and build that confidence right back up. By nightfall, Giselin drags himself into the room, barely standing. To him, absolute pure torture. Pen notices his buddy stumble back in, but he is way too exhausted to even look up. A second later, the other guy face plants onto the floor too. Their arms are totally numb. They cannot even drag themselves to the bathroom if they tried. Right on cue, Master Benyang groans at the door, holding her stomach before collapsing beside them. Now you have all 3 groaning, completely wrecked with full body pain. Frey bounces in, totally hyped, announcing evening training starts in 5 minutes. Nobody even twitches. Just then, a voice echoes for Master Benyang announcing a successful return from a mission. The kid at the door just stares at this absolute mess. Meet the Honorable Azak. Now watch this closely. You know a classic misunderstanding is coming. Seeing everyone sprawled out, he screams murder and draws his sword. He cannot believe his squad got wiped out. He instantly swings at Frey, who casually blocks the hit and asks for his name. Azak is absolutely seeing red, convinced his friends were attacked. Suddenly, Professor Adelia recognizes our duo. Benyang weakly explains from the floor that Azak was on official Trauman Ring's business. Hearing that immediately jogs the memory of Frey about the kid. She orders him to drop the weapon right now. She officially introduces Frey Blake as the new rounder, with Isabel backing him up. They are completely mind-blown. How do kids hold those ranks? Professor Adelia is practically foaming with rage. She refuses to accept Frey is the real deal. Azak instantly drops his attitude and apologizes for the major mix-up. Adelia is still fuming over his high-level post. Taking a quick pause, Frey calmly asks if she used to run with the Trauman rings. Then he drops the formalities, calls her Adelia, and demands respect since he literally outranks her now. She completely snaps and tries to punch him, but hey, Frey was only messing around. Anyway, Azak drops his report revealing clues about the heir to the king of magical warriors. Finally, he confirms he actually managed to track the guy down. Everyone leans right in, completely hooked. Prepping his big mission debrief, Azak admits the king was an absolute nightmare to deal with, just as the rumors claimed. He lifts his shirt. You and I know that shocking scar reveal means trouble. He explains that those guys totally ignored magic circles, fully believing that raw martial arts beat everything else. Then he buttons his shirt back up. Frey spins around and calls Isabel over. He quickly asks for the exact travel time to reach the Great Reynolds jungle. She calculates the southern route using the teleport stone at Pilot, taking under 4 days. That instantly sparks a wild new idea for Frey. Wait, Pilot, that is exactly where the Blake estate, his main family home, is located. Frey calls Master Benyang over, slamming his hand down. He announces he is going to meet this magical warrior heir himself. Still, the whole crew knows this trip is practically suicide. Super curious, the half-dragon asks for his departure time, but Frey is literally already walking out with Isabel. Azak catches onto the massive trust Benyang places in Frey. Later that night, bright moonlight floods through the giant window of the room. Frey stays completely quiet before calling his friend. But honestly, Isabel already knows exactly what he wants to say. He plans to solo this crazy trip. Since their base is finally stable, someone reliable needs to stay behind and protect it from disaster. She gets up, walking right over to him. She promises to lock down his duties so he can crush the mission. But man, she is holding back serious tears. Walking toward the door, she begs him to send updates from the road. If danger hits, she promises to rush in immediately. Frey gives a soft laugh, amazed by her character growth. His intense eyes finally soften. He deeply thanks her as she walks out crying. Tossing his heavy pack over one shoulder, he says his final goodbyes to the crew. He shuts the door, totally ready to embark. But wait, right at the exit, something incredibly weird blocks his path. So what do you and I take from this? The honored ones mobbed the hall, literally crying and begging him not to leave. Stick with me here. Frey thinks they're being way too dramatic. He pats Isabel's head, joking her scary temper will keep those men in line. That gets a tiny smile out of her. Besides, he's only leaving for a month. Everyone's bawling their eyes out, remembering their friendly sparring matches. Before taking off, Frey completely seriously orders them not to lose a single fight. His crew shouts that they've got it covered. Raising his fist, he walks away, throwing back that he absolutely can't wait to see them again. Meanwhile, bizarre remains sit in a crater. Suddenly, a bright green eye opens. The phoenix feathers just morphed into a magical being. She's got human hands and wild glowing orange hair that looks exactly like living fire. The strange woman wobbles, struggling to stand up. Her ultimate goal, rule everything. She wants to be the absolute mountain mistress and block any annoying demigods from stepping foot there. Holding firmly onto those exact words, she unleashes every drop of her stored power. She jumps blasting into the sky and streaking across the land. Meanwhile, in Grodd Street, life is totally normal. Back to Frey, he checks himself out in a mirror. Magic energy swirls from his hands straight to his face, totally rewriting his appearance. Meet his new persona, Kane Rickstone, a rank C mercenary. The backstory, a 26-year-old dude from the south, working as a 3-star mage. He absolutely needed this clever disguise to sneak through Pillin totally unnoticed. Now pay close attention. With rumors linking Asaka Blake to a demigod, Frey is staying far away from his family. Testing the disguise on the streets, a guard actually stops him, but his fake ID clears perfectly, so Frey just smiles and walks on. Pillin was his old hometown, so it felt strangely familiar. Fully disguised, he strolls straight into a local business. Inside, guys are eating, drinking, and laughing loud. The bar is completely packed with people. He strides in with pure confidence, and everyone instantly spots the high-level mage. Some guys think his old group is finally getting real respect. At the bar, a girl snaps her gum, asking if he's here for a drink. Frey skips the booze, explaining the trip to the deep jungle is crazy long, so he desperately needs a fast carriage to save time. The catch: he doesn't know any rides going that deep, but he heard about an elf trading group, hence the whole mercenary outfit. Since those traders always hire mercenary guards, he slides his fake info to the girl, declaring he's taking the job. He wants to guard the escort traveling to the Great Reynolds jungle. After pulling up his guild file, she casually mentions that job requires rank B minimum. Then she asks if he wants a promotion test. She opens a book to schedule it, but Frey demands to do it right now. Shrugging, she drops her pen and tells him to follow her. She tosses in that the fee is 10 silver. Heading downstairs, Frey's eyes scan the whole shady place. The basement corridor is massive, stretching into the shadows. A guy chilling in a chair spots them and lazily asks what they want. Flashing a smile, the girl announces, "This merc wants a test." Irene explains 2 paths, standard commission or raw demonstration. The first option, the evaluator assigns a mission and strictly judges your results. You and I both know the second option is cooler, a public skill showcase. But get this, nobody has passed its insanely strict judging in a century. Zero hesitation, Frey instantly picks the demonstration test. Popping her gum, she tells them to start. The evaluator perks up. His annoying headache literally vanishes when he realizes a fun challenger actually showed up. At the test site, Frey asks if he's fighting them both. Nope, they point to a wall and tell him to hit it with magic. She proudly explains that breaking it is impossible because a 5-star mage reinforced it with heavy defensive barriers. Not even her drunk boss could leave a scratch on it. Since he's rank A, if this kid magically breaks it, he'd easily deserve an A too. The duo stares at his confidence, then cracks up laughing. Totally unbothered, Frey tells Irene to step back. Chuckling, she wishes him luck and walks away. Frey channels raw power into a massive fireball. The second she senses 5-star magic, total shock. He locks his aim. The drunk boss screams for Irene to get down, then boom, Frey fires with absolute maximum force. They both eat dirt. Thick smoke clouds the room, and when it clears, a terrifying massive crater is completely blown right through the wall. Seeing that destruction, the leader instantly approves him. Frey is officially rank A. The guy is seriously impressed by him. The boss introduces himself as Duncan, eagerly asking if this monster mage already has a mercenary crew. But Frey shuts that down, saying he only wants the Great Reynolds jungle escort gig. Duncan squints suspiciously, but keeps quiet, and stamps his approval anyway. Later on, spicy gossip spreads that Count Isaka might actually resign as master of the 5th magic tower. Over drinks, a guy wonders if he wasn't actually fired. Frey politely joins the table. Playing the rookie, he claims he's new and wants to learn. To make friends fast, he buys everyone's drinks. At first, they see a brat. But trust me, you and I know free food works. Soon, the loaded table has everyone talking comfortably. Alright, you and I are diving right into the madness. Frey casually mentions wanting a guard job at the Blake estate while some guy just drools over the local girls. But then the mood shifts. He spills a wild rumor a friend spotted way too many suspicious carriages rolling into the mansion for a basic supply drop. Even worse, that same friend swore he heard muffled screams echoing from inside them. Absolute rage flashes across Frey's face. Later, brooding alone at the counter, those dark words loop in his head. Human sacrifices. The ugly puzzle pieces finally snap together. But before he can act, someone yells out for Kane Rixton. Raising a bottle, the guy introduces himself as Alcon, the escort team leader. He claims Domke hyped Kane up as some genius mage, and honestly, Domke never compliments anyone, so that means something. Domke immediately warns Kane not to slack off just because the gig looks super easy. Last month's Reynolds caravan, completely wiped out by an immortal being. Yeah, absolute massacre. And with freaky monsters suddenly popping up across the entire continent, everyone better keep their eyes wide open. Immortals usually hunt based on pure hatred for the living. Kane just shrugs that off, totally laser-focused on his own secret mission. Soon, the heavy caravan rolls out. At first, super peaceful, soldiers just chilling in the wagons, but Kane instantly senses something totally off. This creepy old mage won't stop staring at him, and Kane has zero clue why. Eventually, the guy just awkwardly looks away. Now pay close attention here because this gets weird. Kane figures everyone has secrets. Alcon checks in and Kane plays it cool. The captain tells him to rest up. Once they hit the forest, playtime is officially over. Casually, Kane asks about that weird guy in the carriage. Alcon reveals his name is Syax, a 5-star mage and an A-rank mercenary. Locals actually call him Rookie Syax. Later on, they hit the cabins for a quick break. Kane just sits there deep in thought. Mid-bite, someone suddenly calls his name. The creepy old guy taps over with his wooden staff. Kane politely offers a seat. The old guy officially introduces himself as Syax, flashing a smile, saying he already knows Kane. He apologizes for interrupting dinner, but Kane waves it off. Still chewing his food, he bluntly asks what Syax actually wants. The mage drops a bomb. He sensed a super rare spirit energy radiating off Kane, straight up asking if he's a spiritualist. Boom! Kane instantly realizes he means his dark mana. Deflecting like a pro, he flips the question, is Syax a spiritualist? Kane admits he signed a spirit contract but denies being a true spiritualist. Still, he demands to know how Syax even felt that crazy power. Normal people literally cannot sense it. The mage gets super sweaty, quickly dodging the topic. Kane just lets it slide. He just asks why Syax took this dirty escort job. The old man claims he's terrified of the immortal being. An immortal near the Great Reynolds, basically unheard of. 0 sightings for at least 1,000 years. And honestly, he says it exactly like someone who has lived that long. Kane just smirks, telling him to eat his soup before it freezes. Look, people use illusion magic to alter their faces when burying a secret. In Syax's sketchy case, he is definitely masking his true identity. Let's pause for a second because we both know that fake face means trouble. Suddenly, someone sprints in screaming for Captain Alcon. A massive horde of undead just spawned in the southwest. And yep, there is zero way around them. Time for a scouting mission. The two mages quickly buff up the team's gear with strong enchantments. Kane suddenly catches a tiny trace of divine power, not nearly enough for a demigod though. The squad moves out. Instantly stepping into the dark forest, a disgusting, rotten smell punches them in the face. The undead are super close now. Weapons drawn, hearts pounding. They charge straight in, completely bracing for a brutal bloodbath. But when they arrive, something is terribly wrong. Every single undead monster is already smashed to pieces. The team was only marching for 30 minutes. Frey instantly starts analyzing the bloody scene. Look at this mess. One person did this needing under 10 minutes to absolutely annihilate them. Everyone is totally lost until Frey spots a massive clue. Boom. He just found the literal successor to the magic warrior king. Panic rips through the squad. Birds scatter wildly overhead. Knowing things are about to get ugly, Frey screams for everyone to run. Whoever crushed this undead army was just unbelievably terrifyingly strong. Obliterated in a single devastating strike. Then splat, a bloody severed head rolls right to the soldiers' boots. They completely freeze, paralyzed by pure terror. A massive guy just stands there chilling on a mountain of corpses staring at the intruders. That absolute tank crushed everything in one shot. The captain stutters, asking why he killed them. The monster just snarls, move or die. Total silence drops. Yeah, that absolute giant is the successor. Frey realizes leaving a freak like this alone is completely suicidal. Caravans use this road daily. They can't leave this monster roaming free, but fighting him is certain death. So Frey makes a wild choice: follow him. He will stalk this powerhouse alone and decide if he's an actual threat. Honestly, his magic disguise should keep him totally safe. Chasing after the stranger, he orders the captain to continue their mission. Almost instantly, the forest echoes with brutal noises. The undead slaughter just keeps going. The giant refuses to slow down. He tightens his massive fist, then blasts out a razor-sharp punch. A monster attacks from behind. It bites him, but its teeth shatter on his skin. One hit dead. You and I must see what happens next. Let's jump straight in. This big guy isn't sweating at all. He spots Frey leaning against a tree just watching him. Kind of creepy, honestly. Frey casually strolls over, asking how long he has been mastering the magic warrior king techniques. The giant gets totally offended, assuming he is just another circle idiot. Frey calmly replies he is from the Trauman rings. Bam! The guy instantly throws a massive punch right at Frey's face. Smoke explodes everywhere. Just hearing that circle name made him snap. But Frey blocks it with a magic barrier. Not even a flinch from our main character. The absolute unit grabs his collar, lifting him into the air, but Frey is chilling. The guy roars, swearing he hates those stuck-up circle bastards. It is super weird for the magic warrior king successor to hate demigod business. His rage is honestly blinding. To him, circle mages are just greedy pigs living the high life. He absolutely refuses to associate with them. Frey explains the circles never actually planned to fight demigods. Smiling, he jokes that comparing them to pigs is an insult to actual little pigs. His real plan A, massive reform to gather up all the scattered magic factions. He wants to unite the broken circles. That gets his attention and he drops him. Intrigued, he decides to test Frey in combat. The giant strikes instantly, but Frey dodges with insane speed. The huge guy charges blindly, smashing right through trees while Frey literally just taunts him. He casually mixes two spells, Ice, Spear, and Windstorm. They clash hard, but the giant shatters the magic like it is nothing, charging forward without a single scratch. That wild stubbornness seriously reminded Frey of Cassadine. Now watch this closely. Frey forms a sphere and blasts out icy breath. For once, the giant looks stunned as his feet freeze solid. The blast hits him dead center. He smacks his hands together, slamming down a massive rock shield to block. Once the explosion clears, Frey lands perfectly on his feet. He asks if they can finally talk, but the big guy is completely frozen solid. Even then, the giant refuses to stay down. His eyes glow. Boom! He shatters the thick ice and violently rips his feet from the ground. Leaping into the air, he aims a deadly punch right at Frey, but our guy just teleports behind him. Smashed flat into the dirt, the giant respects that epic bull hunting technique. Frey reaches down to help him up, trying to chat. Instead, the guy throws a sudden uppercut straight to Frey's jaw, then runs into the woods. Totally caught off guard, Frey sprints after him. They dash through the trees. Frey easily catches up, running right next to him. But get this, he is not running away. He is acting as a guide, which is super suspicious. The footwork he used, the famous fool walk of the magic warrior king. A secret skill strictly meant for the #1 successor. Frey never learned it himself. Dashing together, he finally figures out this giant is named Ivan. Ivan guides him into totally unknown territory. Curious Frey tails him all the way until they stop dead in front of a creepy wooden shack. Frey sarcastically asks what kind of dump this is. Ignoring him, Ivan yells out to someone named Ricky. A massive boom echoes from inside, making Frey cover his ears. Ivan laughs, claiming that is how you wake Ricky up. Frey still has zero idea who is inside. You and I both know what that implies, a literal demigod. Ivan smirks at his shock while the doorway stays completely empty. Frey is absolutely speechless. An actual demigod stands right there casually yawning and asking Ivan who the new kid is. No fake-outs here. The guy is a demigod. Frey instantly senses his aura easily matching that crazy old man with the apocalyptic poison magic. Ivan points a thumb at Frey, introducing the circle mage. The demigod stares him down. Then he completely ignores him, asking Ivan if his mission was a success. Deciding to play host, he invites both of them inside. But wait, Frey grabs Ivan by the shirt, pulling him back. He demands answers. Why is the Martial King successor teaming up with a demigod? Ivan just stays completely silent. One wrong word and Frey might blast him into ashes. But Ivan doesn't care. Instead, he drops a massive lore bomb about their partnership. Turns out Ricky is a traitor who wants to wipe out the demigods. Frey isn't buying it. Ivan tells him to hold his horses and hear the whole story first. As Frey walks inside, he spots a crazy magic portal. Outside, it is a tiny shack. Inside, absolutely massive. Classic spatial distortion magic, literally twisting reality to expand the room. An average person would never even see it, let alone enter. Ivan is clueless about the magic. Ricky casually peels an apple, telling them to sit down. Ivan is genuinely shocked he allowed Frey inside. Ricky simply points at Frey's eyes. That intense stare does not belong to a normal human with a short lifespan. Frey immediately questions the traitor thing. Mid-snack, Ricky just nods. When Frey asks why, Ricky says his motives do not matter. He needs Frey for a massive plan. See, if an apostle gets killed, their demigod is forced into a deep sleep. Cold sweat drips down Frey's face. While asleep, a tiny knife can end them. You and I know exactly what comes next. Alright, stick with me. Ivan just wiped out an undead army to bait out their creator, an apostle. This guy is hiding in the Reynolds jungle. Hearing this, Frey connects the dots. He knows exactly who Ricky means. It is Oiden Predickwood, the apostle of the demigod of death, an actual apocalypse. Ricky wants these two to take him out. After that, they would hunt the demigod while it hibernates. But unlike hot-headed Ivan, Frey stays cool and totally declines. But he does ask, why not just kill the apostle yourself? Ricky explains that his sudden moves would attract unwanted attention. An apostle's mind is completely linked to their demigod. Now watch closely, because if they sense Ricky betraying them, everything falls apart. Frey hesitates, knowing taking down an apostle is no joke. Meanwhile, Ivan just sits there. He is done thinking and purely ready for a fight. Frey mentions he already defeated the lightning apostle, and even that was an absolute nightmare. Ricky pauses. Wait, does he mean Indra? Since Indra is the only lightning demigod around, he demands proof. Frey calmly digs into his bag. He pulls out a crystal vial surging with pure lightning energy. Ricky takes one look and immediately recognizes Indra's signature power. He stands, promises to return, and slices a portal through thin air. Let that sink in, because we are about to see something crazy. The spatial rift snaps shut. Ivan doesn't sweat it at all, trusting his master, so they just sit in complete silence. Ricky finally returns, and what he drops leaves Frey totally speechless. It is Indra's severed head. An actual literal demigod slaughtered just like that. Frey is too stunned to speak. Ricky notes their goals perfectly align, meaning they should definitely team up. And that is where you and I end today.